Well, if I'm not just a complete just slacker and it just did not show up like I was supposed to. Well, here I was supposed to be on with talking truths and trash today, but she is not feeling very well today, so we canceled it and I changed my stream time. And I thought I put in there 7:30. My apologies for running a little bit late. But I am going to do a speed run through this, and hopefully, the trial comes out okay. Because, well, I didn't have a whole lot of time to prepare. I was spending time with my lovely wife, so I appreciate everybody that's going to come back in. Mm, water, good. Sorry, but what I'm going to do is I want to bring this up here real quick. And don't you just love it when water goes down the wrong way? Oof. So here we go. Let's go ahead and bring this up and we will share this out. Wow. What a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening. I'm such a slacker. I thought I had changed it, but I actually got to be on there a little bit with Joe Neerman. That was really cool. He's pretty fun guy. I enjoy him, and I didn't realize that the room was going to be so full, or I probably would have just jumped on chat and said hi to everybody. But Cool Frog was gracious enough to send me out a shout, and I was getting ready to head out with my wife on a walk, and he said, good logic is here. I said, well, then I must come in. Nothing like seeing people that inspire you and being able to give them a little bit of kudos, let them know that they're doing something right out there. So we always appreciate it. It's good to see you, Rabbit. It really is. But let me go ahead and get the speed right on this so I can have it just running, and we'll leave the subtitles on. Sometimes it matters, sometimes it doesn't. But we're gonna speed through this bad boy and see what kind of more shenanigans they got going on for us. Glad that everybody that's coming in, come in, say hello, hit the thumbs up, make it beautiful. Here we go.
All right, we're going to go back on the record. We are here on Tuesday, January 17th, 2023. The matter is Mark D. Jensen, 2002 CF 314. Let's have the appearances, please.
Good morning. Out of the state of Wisconsin appears by Special Prosecutor Robert Jamboys, Deputy District Attorney Carly McNeil, and Public Service Special Prosecutor Beverly Jamboys.
Attorneys Frederick Krause, Jeremy Perry, and Mackenzie Renner appear on behalf of Mr. Mark Jensen, who appears in person. Good morning, Judge.
Good morning. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, thank you for coming back. It's a beautiful sight to see all 16 of you again back here. Just one comment, and obviously the attorneys want to put in their case the way they think they should. I think it would be beneficial for the court and the jury if we don't have a lot of videos in the afternoon. I think everybody, if I asked for a raise of hands, I think I would get 16 votes. It's just a statement.
We only have
Probably would.
Beautiful. There's 48 minutes left.
Probably would.
Brian Cosman. But after that, all the video testimony is very short.
That's good news. Okay, we're going to continue then. I believe Ms. McNeil is exhibit 15, and we're going to start it, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So at this point in the video, there are two question and answers that do not appear in the audio. So by agreement, I'm reading those into the record. This is still the testimony of Officer Cosman.
Is that correct from the defense? Yes? All right, go ahead, Ms. McNeil.
So the question to Officer Cosman was, quote, Officer Cosman, your department produced in this case the records relating to prior complaints regarding the Jensen home, correct? End quote. Officer Cosman's answer was, quote, I'm sorry, end quote. The following question was, quote, your department produced records relating to prior complaints, police complaints at the Jensen home, right? End quote. Officer Cosman's answer was, quote, yes, end quote. And now the video will resume.
All right, so that's part of the testimony. With that, we can start the video again.
Oh boy. There we go. Put in a nice little poll there.
For some reason, the sound is not playing through the TV.
Oh, good Lord, people, learn how to run Windows. Come on. Let's see if we can fast forward where they can't. They didn't mark it. They're as bad as me. Not. They're gonna boomer it. Let's see. Maybe if we turn up the volume.
To show you Defendant's Exhibit 198. Do you recognize that as a Pleasant Prairie Police Department contact report?
Yes, sir.
A contact history report, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that records official business that was recorded between the Jensen home and the Pleasant Prairie Police Department up to the time of Julie Jensen's death, correct?
Correct.
Let me, I'm going to leave 199 with you and I'll come back to those.
Oof. Oh my.
And that's a list of that's the contact history report. That's Defendant's Exhibit, I'm sorry, 198, is that right?
That's correct. 198.
And we begin with November 30th, 1990, and that's an animal complaint.
That's correct.
Do you have any idea what that was about?
No, I do not.
Then we have
It's just like, what the hell? Come on, boomers. Get with it here.
Before the state is displaying the exhibit that is being testified to, which is 198.
Thank you.
Criminal damage property, death investigation, a natural.
And now resuming the video.
Wow, that their sound is going all weird.
on April 6th, 1991, a false alarm. Would it be your understanding that that would relate to some sort of like false burglary alarm or something like that?
That's what I would assume, yes.
On August 13th, 1991, we have the first report of harassment, correct?
Correct.
And Mrs. Jensen reported that she believed that that was committed by her former lover, Harry Tarica. True?
I may have. I'm not familiar with that call.
Okay. You would not have been handling a call in 1991, correct?
That's correct.
You are aware from reviewing your department's reports, however, that in January of 1992, Mr. Tarica was cited for harassment, correct?
Yes, I do.
And that was a case investigated by Officer Hunter, who I think is now Lieutenant Hunter.
That's correct.
And is it your understanding that that was January 1992, that Mr. Tarica was cited for harassment?
I believe it was.
Now, Exhibit 199 that you have in front of you is a series of incident reports that are clipped together. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And beginning with this incident on January 27th, 1992, that incident that was investigated by Officer Hunter, correct?
Sergeant Mark Hunter, that's correct.
And that simply indicates that there was a request about suspicious activity, correct?
It just says suspicious of it.
So I believe at this point that Exhibit 199 is being displayed.
Okay, come on. How long will it take before they figure this out? Here is the display that he's showing. Suspicious activity. Suspicious problem. Extra patrol. You passed it, silly person there. False alarm, animal complaint, suspicious other,
And now
house
resuming
property
the
check.
The offense code is suspicious of it.
Well, if you look at, I'm asking you to take a look at 199, which has the incident report.
Yes, ask 121, which would be Sergeant Hunter's badge number, reports this incident for suspicious activity.
Okay. And there's nothing else that you know about that January 27th, 1992 contact.
No, there's none.
The next report relates to
Yeah.
January 29th, 1992, correct?
That's correct.
And just 2 days later, and all that report says is complainant requests to see responding officer about a suspicious problem. True?
That's correct.
Good to see you, W Daisy girl.
January 30, the Jensen's contact, January 30, 1992, someone in the Jensen household had another contact
Hang
with
as long
the
as you
Pleasant
like.
Prairie Police Department, correct?
That's correct.
And the subject of that contact was that the department was contacted to be told that the Jensens would be gone for the weekend, January 31st until February 2nd, and that Lori Coster would have the key to the home, correct?
That's correct.
So there wasn't any incident reported. They just wanted to let the police department know that they would be out of town.
Yes, we do vacation homes there.
Then February 20th, 1992,
There we go.
that's another report that the Jensens were going to be on vacation for a couple days, correct?
That's correct.
So no
Next
need to
contact
come
by
by
Julie
if
Jensen
we're on
was June
vacation.
16th, 1992.
Come on.
That's correct.
And on that date, Julie Jensen reported that a vehicle had been parked across the street from a residence for over a month and had not been moved, correct?
That's correct.
And it appears from the first page of that report that that vehicle may have belonged to a Melvin Ashley, correct?
That is correct.
And are you aware of the Ashleys living across the street from the Jensens?
No, I'm not.
You don't know anyone named Ashley? The next contact is May 8th, 1993. And what was reported on that day is that the complainants, the Jensens, state they believe someone is entering the residence and moving items, correct?
Correct.
Do you know anything further about that incident on May 8th, 1993?
No, I do not.
Do you know whether any fingerprints were taken at that time?
I don't know.
And also on that,
So I'm going to pause again and display for the jury that exhibit 198.
I don't think we need to.
And now resuming the video.
there's a request for extra patrol that would appear to relate to the suspicious activity about the items moved in the house, correct?
That would be correct.
Do you know whether items were actually moved in the house?
No, I do not.
The next contact on November 4th, 1993, that's your first contact with Julie Jensen, is that right?
That is correct.
And I may fast forward through some of this because this is just running through the same BS that they did the other day.
All that was reported at that time was that there were some annoying phone calls, hang-ups, and harassment, correct?
That is correct.
On October 21st, 1994, Julie Jensen called because two black males were selling magazines in her neighborhood, is that right?
That's correct.
And then the next incident
Sounds
on
like
October
Karen to
22nd,
me.
1994, Julie Jensen again called the Pleasant Prairie Police Department because there were two black males in her neighborhood selling magazines, correct?
That is correct.
And that was investigated, and they were told that they needed to obtain a permit, correct?
That is correct.
Not abnormal.
On December 25th, 1994, Julie Jensen called requesting extra patrol because her Christmas lights had been damaged.
That is correct.
I take it that it's not unusual that kids vandalize Christmas decorations in Pleasant Prairie?
Unfortunately, it's not. It seems to be a problem all over.
On
Yes.
January 19th, 1995, there was a request for extra patrol. Is that right?
Yes.
And the report doesn't contain any information concerning what that was all about, correct?
No, it does not.
It does not even indicate who the investigating officer there was, correct?
That is correct. This has basically for all shifts.
Just 2 days later, on January 21st, there was a complaint about a trespass to land, correct?
That's correct.
And it looks like a Christopher Martin was cited for trespass to land, correct?
No, that is correct.
Do you recall what that was about?
No, I do not. I know Sergeant Becker investigated it.
All right, I just received a report. Let me show it to you.
Yeah, I believe I wrote a short supplement on it, but I'm not 100% positive.
Oh, it's
Come on. Oh, just
let me show you
imagine.
exhibit 200, Officer Kosman. And if you could just go to the second page, that fax cover page, isn't really necessary.
Whoa, whoa,
And is it correct that the January 21st contact relates to a young man who is driving recklessly over people's lawns and knocking down mailboxes and that kind of thing?
That's correct.
So that was the January 21st trespass to land.
Right. And basically what happened in this particular complaint and why my name is on it, Julie Jensen had contacted me the following day, at which point I didn't know anything about this particular report. I went back and researched it, found the report, and contacted her and basically told her that she was not singled out. It was not damage done. Just to there is that it was a neighborhood, that several other residences in the neighborhood had also experienced some vandalism, so it was not specifically targeted toward them.
Okay. And was that, do you know, was that the case with the Christmas lights and the parked car and the black male selling magazines? Those didn't appear to be specific contacts relating to the Jensens, right?
Which ones?
The Christmas lights, the black male selling magazines, and the car parked across the street.
Well, those were reported by her. That's correct. But basically, it was just to her of a suspicious nature.
She
Those other
reports
incidents
a
appear to be
lot.
targeted at the Jensens for harassment.
Definitely not.
Then we have an incident on May 27th, 1995. Boatville, there's two of them there. Harassment and extra patrol. We don't have any information. There's no report concerning what happened that day.
I don't believe so.
Then we move to August 25th, 1995. And there is a report that you wrote regarding activities of that day, correct?
That is correct.
Activities.
On direct examination, you were shown a photograph, correct? By the prosecution, a pornographic photograph.
Yes, it was.
That relates to this August 24th, 1995 report, correct?
The August 25th, yes.
August 24th? Just to be clear, I think it's August 24th.
Oh, I'm sorry, August 24th.
Oh, well,
I have written on the 24th.
okay. So there's a little bit of discrepancy between the face sheet and the narrative report that you wrote.
Well, I think what happened here is because there was actually a lapse of a couple days when this occurred and when I was called.
Okay. And you first received a telephone call from Julie Jensen on August 24th, correct?
Correct.
And what she
Can't
reported on
complete
that
your
date is that
poll.
she and her
The
husband
state
left
needs to
their
prove
home
their
together
burden, and trust
about
me.
7:30 on August 23rd, 1995,
Shoddy.
correct?
That's correct.
She
Yes,
said
it
that when they returned
is.
home together 45 minutes later, the garage door was open, right?
Correct.
And she was positive that the door had been closed when
We
they
can
both left
complete it.
together,
You can just
correct?
put
Correct.
in there,
And at
need
this
more
time, she stated that they'd been
information.
receiving some recent harassing telephone calls, correct?
Correct.
On this occasion, the
Or you can
Jensen's
simply
turned
say
over
no.
several photocopies of pornographic pictures that they had found inside the boat, right?
Yes.
And the photograph that had been found on July 3rd, 1995 in Mr. Jensen's truck, correct?
Correct.
And that was on that.
Good to see
it's
you,
on-
Crystal.
It's on Kodak paper, correct?
The one is correct.
So
Which would be the state exhibit?
Exhibit 197, correct?
Correct.
That appears to be a developed photograph
It appears to be.
as opposed to being clipped from a magazine or being downloaded or printed from a computer or anything else. It looks like it's a developed photograph.
Correct.
Oh,
That
good.
photograph, no one would mistake the woman. in the
That's
photograph
fine,
for Julie
Crystal.
Jensen, right?
No.
And
You
there was
get
no
yourself
photograph
a little
that was Julie
rest.
Jensen in that photograph,
You're
right?
not photographed, no.
You indicated on direct examination, Officer Cosman, that was the only photograph that had been received that wasn't a photocopy?
That is correct.
And I
Well,
do agree with you
Do you
100%,
recall an
Crystal.
instance in which Mrs. Jensen called you because some photographs had been left that she was confident depicted her?
That's correct.
They were photographs that depicted her engaged in oral sex?
They were not pictures of her, but she felt that they were of her.
She reported to you that somebody had left photographs of her engaging in oral sex, correct?
Oh, now that is a pretty intense thing to bring up right there.
Engaged in having sex.
Oh, it was sexual intercourse, not oral sex.
I believe so, yes.
Oh,
Weren't those photographs?
They were the same as all the other in black and white and appeared to have been photocopied.
No, when you say they were the same, you mean they were the same
Same black
picture
and
or
white.
just the same type?
Same type.
Julie Jensen called you and she said, this is a picture of me engaged in sexual intercourse, right?
She said she had photographs of that. That is correct.
oh,
Did she show you those photographs?
She had them sealed in an envelope.
Did she show you them?
No, she did.
what in the... So she's got pictures of her having sexual intercourse, and I'm assuming it's not with her husband, that she's showing to this cop now, saying those are pictures of me having sexual intercourse. Come check it out.
Did not.
You never saw those
I
photographs?
did see them. I advised her. She was very embarrassed about handing the pictures over. When I got back to the department, I opened up the envelope and I looked at the pictures and determined it was not Julie Jensen engaging in any kind of sex, that they appeared to be pornographic pictures of the same content in black and white being on regular paper.
When you say
Gotcha.
regular paper, you mean?
Well, meaning
regular,
like
this.
correct. Not something you would see on a back of a developed film as in the state exhibit.
So Julie Jensen asked you not to look at these photographs, is that
Cellophane
right?
warning comes
I advised her that I
in.
would
Yeah.
have to look at them and see if it was indeed her that was in the photographs.
Let me back up and make sure I have this straight. Julie Jensen called you on the phone, first of all, right?
Correct.
Did she tell you what she wanted when she talked to you on the phone?
She asked me if I could stop by and pick up some pictures that she had, apparently of her engaged in having sexual intercourse, and wanted to turn them over to us.
When was this?
I don't recall the exact date.
Wow.
Is there any report regarding this incident?
No, there is not.
When you responded to her telephone call, she told you that the photographs were of her engaged in sexual intercourse, correct?
And she believed were correct.
Oh,
She said that she had looked at these photographs and she thought they were her, right?
I don't recall if she said she had looked at them or not.
Is
I
there-
would assume that she had looked at them, but when she handed them to me, they were in a sealed envelope.
And she gave you the sealed envelope and her initial instructions were, I don't want you to look at these, correct?
Well, I advised her. She asked me if I had to look at them. She did not request that I not look at them.
Didn't you just tell me that she requested that you not look at them? Officer Cosby?
If I did, I'm sorry. I mistakenly said that because she basically wanted to know actually if they were of her or not. She thought they were. She was embarrassed by the whole situation.
Do you know why it is that Julie Jensen could not determine whether it was
Look
a
at these
photograph of
dirty
herself
pictures. They
engaged in
might be
sexual
of
intercourse and
me.
she'd have to ask you?
I can't offer you an explanation on that.
And at least initially, she was trying to give it to you in a sealed envelope so you wouldn't look at them, so you wouldn't be able to confirm it, right?
Well, I think I don't know what her logic would have been for first basically what she told me is they were photographs given to her by Mark. Now, whether she had viewed them or not, I'm not 100% sure. I'm not 100% sure if she actually put them in the envelope or they were given to her that way and she did not look at them.
But she told you that she thought they were her, right?
Yes, she did.
And she told you, it wasn't as though Mark told her that he had made those, right?
Correct.
She didn't believe that they were photos of her having sex with her husband, right?
Right.
She believed that they were her having sex with her former lover, right?
With someone.
Did she tell you that she had more than one affair?
She told me just a one affair.
And that was with Perry Tarika, correct?
That's correct.
You did not look at these photographs with Mrs. Jensen?
No, I did not. She asked that I not look at them in her presence. She was very embarrassed over it.
Well, after you looked at them and concluded that they were not her, didn't you go back to her and show her and say, these aren't you?
I called her on the phone. I did not go back.
I bet she was disappointed.
How is it you determined that it was not her when she herself thought that it was her depicted in the photos?
Because the very first picture that I saw depicted a man on top of a woman engaged in sex. Both basically from the middle of the back up to the head of the male were visible. His arms were straight, like on the bed, and a woman was underneath him looking directly up. So there would have had to have been someone standing above them taking a picture in downward motion. And with the way she was looking, she would have had to have noticed that someone was there taking a picture of her.
So you did not conclude that, let me try this again. Your conclusion that this was not Julie Jensen was not based on your view of the woman's face.
It was based on that as well.
But what you just told me is that your conclusion was based on the camera angle,
Well,
right?
on the camera angle and the fact that in the rest of looking at the rest of the photographs, they appeared to be close, but they were not all the same woman. So they were not in the other photographs that were depicted. They were definitely not Julie Jensen.
Well, Julie Jensen had these photographs in her possession, true? It's foundation.
Well, let's be clear. That she did.
Julie Jensen believed it was her,
Objection
right?
has been answered. Several times been answered.
It does seem to be a little clear from the record.
He's doing a good job. He's calling it.
Did you save these photographs so anybody else could determine whether this was Julie Jensen like she thought it was?
No, I did not.
A camera could have been set up at that angle in her home when she was having sex with her lover, true?
It would have had to have been hung from the ceiling.
Oh,
Well, there would be other ways to have that camera above them, correct?
I'm not sure what you're driving at, Constance.
of course.
You don't know whether her former lover set up such a camera, correct?
No, I don't know that for a fact.
You weren't there, right?
That's correct.
And Julie Jensen would have seen the same camera angle. as
I
you
don't
did, right?
know. He might have been.
Right?
I'm sorry?
Julie Jensen would have seen the photograph was from the same camera angle as you did, correct?
Correct.
Mm.
She was a smart woman, right?
I felt she was.
Oh,
She didn't figure out on her own.
And again, I'm not 100% positive that she viewed these pictures.
In 2002, the defense counsel requested that you provide any photographs that you have relating to any of the harassment, correct?
That's correct.
And the first time any photograph was produced
got it pinned up
was the
there,
photograph
Crystal.
is Exhibit 197. That's the only photograph that's been produced, correct?
That's correct.
And that was not produced until August of 2007.
That's correct.
So it took over 5 years to find that photograph,
Yes.
and no other photographs exist.
No. They were entered into evidence because there are indications. This one as well with the report I did. The bottom line reads off my report. All photos were placed in evidence under PR number 2008. And apparently that's the only photograph that was kept for whatever reason.
October
Here you go. I
7th,
sent it to you.
1995.
Twitter.
There's another report involving your department from Julie Jensen. Is that correct?
October,
Just make sure you hit that like button. Just
20
like
years, August 25th.
she was
and the next
hitting
one
the-
after that is, October
hitting
6th.
the bed.
I'm sorry. You have
With
August,
your face up.
August 25th. That was related to the
Smiling.
last.
That was the one, right?
And then we have October 7th,
In pure
1995.
ecstasy. Hit
Sure.
that like
I don't
button.
have a copy of that report here.
In pure ecstasy.
This is even, last one I got, which is August 25th.
Well, I'm positive it wasn't her moaning on the bed. It had to be somebody else.
Or October 6th.
Yeah, October 6th. That's what I'm asking about.
Okay.
Who are you?
October 7th, 1995, on the one-page report that you have associated with that.
Yes.
And that was investigated by Officer Paul of your department.
Yes. That's the officer that was assigned.
Okay. And that's just a house property check.
Yes.
Do you have any idea what that was regarding?
It may have, I don't know. It may have just been that he called out on, that he was on an extra patrol at that particular time.
Now, the next
He was
the next
out
incident
having a
reported was on
good
February
time.
13th, 1996, correct?
Correct.
And that was investigated by yourself and Sergeant Ratsberg, true?
Thank
Correct.
you.
And on that occasion, Julie Jensen called Ameritech, right? I'm sorry, it looks
I
like-
believe at that point that Detective Rasberg had called him, I think.
Okay. And what had happened was there was a trace on the phone at that time, correct?
I'm not aware if it was a trace or at that
Probably
point we were
screaming
able to
hearsay.
contact Ameritech and have them
Oh, she's
look up a particular call that occurred on whatever date at whatever time.
Julie Jensen had reported that their home had received a harassing phone call, correct?
A prank phone, correct?
And they reported the phone number from that harassing phone call, correct?
Ameritech did, apparently.
Okay.
uh-huh.
There was a phone number associated with that, correct?
That's correct.
It established that somebody had made a telephone call to their number at that time, correct?
Correct.
Someone from the residence of Tina Thomas, correct?
That appears
Oh,
And then there was an investigation and nothing happened as a result of that investigation, correct?
that appears so.
And certainly there was no connection to Mr. Jensen making that phone call in that instance, right?
That's correct.
There was actually another telephone number that was established as being the source of that phone call, right?
Correct.
On February 16th, there's a request for extra patrol rather. That could be just for vacation.
Vacation home check, or may have been more photographs that had been found. It could have been for anything.
August 12th, 1996, we have another request for extra patrol. Is that right?
That's correct.
And that again may have just been for vacation type thing, right?
I'm sorry?
That again may have been just for a vacation type situation.
That's correct.
And then these last two contacts are the contacts that you've testified about that relate to your going to Mrs. Jensen's house after she left the voicemail, right?
Correct.
And December 3rd, 1998, which is the day that Mrs. Jensen passed away.
I don't have those here, but I'll assume that is correct.
Well, you know that December 3rd, 1998
Yes.
was the day she passed away. Are you aware,
Dum,
Officer Cosman, that during the search of the Jensen home, that Julie Jensen had logs indicating that she reported phone calls during the period that tracing equipment was put in the telephone line?
I was advised that she had kept notes.
Are you aware of whether those notes reflect that telephone calls were made during the time tracing equipment was on the phone?
I
That's
don't
right.
believe that. Basically, the log that she kept indicated all calls. And I think there may have been gaps in there where she had traces put on where she didn't receive any calls. Most of the calls that she did receive, that she did log, and my belief is, were either hangups or something of a nature where she didn't know the person that she was talking to or the person who actually called.
That is, she logged a number of
Telemarketers.
instances where she picked up the phone and there was dead air or somebody hung up, something like that.
Correct.
In your experience, that isn't unusual that any of us might get calls where there's dead air or hang up, correct?
Correct.
But she logged all those over a period of time.
Correct.
But are you,
Those
did you
are
examine
not abnormal.
that information?
No, I did not.
Especially back
You
at
don't know
this
if calls
time.
were received during the time tracing equipment was on.
No, I did not.
Did you ever get local telephone records from Ameritech to show, to try to establish whether calls had been made?
No, I did not.
Do you know whether at that time, Ameritech or whoever was it your understanding that Ameritech was the local
I believe it
telephone
was
provider?
at that time.
Did you know whether Ameritech as a local phone provider could obtain phone records that originated in some other area code or state?
No, it would have to be within the same. That was my understanding. It would have to be within the same state.
So if she was receiving harassing telephone calls from Illinois, they wouldn't be able to get those records of those calls.
It would be, I believe my understanding was it would be stated like something out of area or something similar to that, where they wouldn't be able to trace where it originated from.
So your understanding was an out of area call would relate to some call from a different state or a different area code or either one.
I would assume it would be a different state.
Probably telemarketer. That would be not uncommon.
At any time, did you try to take any fingerprints from any of these photographs that had been placed at the
No, I
Jensens?
did not.
Did you ever actually try to install a wiretap to record calls that came in?
No, we did not.
Did you ever try to stake out Mr. Jensen's place of employment to see if someone came and left the photograph on the truck?
No, I did not.
It's fair to say that
Wow.
any leaving of photos was pretty sporadic, right?
Correct.
It wasn't a daily thing by any means, right?
No, it was not.
I presume your office would not have had the resources to maybe wait a month to see if somebody left a photograph on his vehicle.
No, we wouldn't.
It also, you're aware that it would be pretty expensive to hire a private investigator to do the same thing, correct?
That's correct, though. We did suggest that to them.
You can understand how the expense would really roll up if they had to wait 30 days or something before a photograph showed up on the truck.
No, absolutely.
Come on, they were making good
You
money.
never talked to the neighbors after having this conversation with Julie Jensen?
No, I did not.
Did you ever talk to Perry Tarica, Julie Jensen's former lover, in person?
No, I have not.
I
Not up
wonder
until
why.
he was here. Other than that, this is the first time I talked to him was yesterday. I'd never talked to him beforehand.
Whether in full, on the phone, in person, anything else until yesterday?
That's correct.
That's more than 10 years since the last time something had been reported in the nature of harassment at the Jensen home, correct?
Correct.
Did you ever check with
Yeah.
the people who worked at Mark's office to see if they'd seen anything?
No, I did not.
Did you ever check phone records for Mark at his office?
No, we did not. Our understanding was there were numerous lines from that office that would have been very hard to get the records out.
Well, did you try at all?
I believe someone did. I'm not exactly sure who, but I recall being told that.
At any rate, you're not aware of any records ever being obtained for the phones, correct?
That is correct.
I take it that Exhibit 197, you don't have any evidence that Mr. Jensen obtained this photograph, right?
No, I do not, other than the fact that it was given to me on that date by Julie Jensen.
And they told you that this had been left on his truck, right?
That is correct.
Did you ever, at that time in 1998, there were several stores that specialized in selling pornographic items in the Kenosha area,
Oh,
Source.
in Kenosha County?
Yes.
On I-94 and on Highway 32?
Yes.
And did you check with any of those stores to see if they had any materials like this or like any of the other materials that you had?
No, I did not.
no, because he had those
Out of all these-
magazines himself.
Particular acts of harassment that were reported to you, can you identify one single incident that you have proof that Mark Jensen committed?
All I have is suspicion. Basically, the only fact, if you want to call it a fact, would be that whenever we put a trace on the line, the phone calls would mysteriously stop. And it was only three people that knew that a trace was being put on the phone. That was my own, and that's what basically gave me a suspicion. But as far as proof, no.
And as to the photographs, you had absolutely nothing, right?
Correct.
Your only source of information as to whether Julie Jensen told Mark Jensen was Julie Jensen, right?
Correct.
You didn't ask Mark if Julie told him, right?
That is correct.
You didn't check to see whether her reports indicate that some calls were received during the trace, correct?
Correct.
As you've acknowledged, many of these telephone calls were nothing more than hang-up calls, correct?
Correct.
And when there was an out-of-area call, whether there was a trace or not, there was no way to determine where it came from, correct?
Correct.
So that was an additional problem in terms of your being able to track source of calls, correct?
Correct.
You are aware that when she logged these things, there was a substantial number of out-of-area calls, true?
Correct.
Wow.
Did you ever try to contact Illinois authorities to see whether they'd be able to assist in determining whether the calls originated there?
No, I did not.
Come on. Get through this part of it. It's okay. Get your notes together. Get them together today. Yeah. Come on.
That's all I have.
You're right. I forgot to get it. You have disability request.
Oh, I think 198, 190. You still have those?
Somebody open their bubble gum.
Yes.
Turn to the one for August 25th, 1995, please.
Which one?
August 25th,
Me.
1995, date was recorded.
Night, Crystal. Oh, thank you, Rabbit. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Now, and that's reports, you're good report officer, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you prepared this report when there's still question one, correct?
That's correct.
And it was Julie Jensen that spoke to you?
I like Crystal's voice. She's got a
Well,
nice
she
little
was speaking to
accent
you
that
inside.
just
Yes.
she didn't say we
is
found it.
enjoyable.
No, she said market.
She said her husband developed it.
That is correct.
Tell us what, well, do you remember what she said to you without the report?
Is it basically market phone photographs?
The time that you prepared this report was that still question one?
Yeah, was it that one? Yes.
Okay, read it now, please, to yourself.
Where's it in?
Well, start the second paragraph though, when the report, RO did respond.
Okay, she basically advised me that her husband had gone out to the garage to work on a boat and found photos in the boat, and she also gave me one that appeared to be developed that her husband had found on his truck.
On his property, his truck.
In his truck.
On July 3rd, 1995.
That is correct.
And that's this photograph that's marked as exhibits 197.
That is correct.
And
Oh boy.
the handwriting of the records is 7385. Found
So we're
7385
gonna
in truck. That's
we're gonna have to
It appears to be Julie Jensen's.
a little mark on this.
And over the years, you responded to these complaints about the photos in particular.
Okay,
Was it predominantly photos that
don't
Mark Jensen
go
found or
showing
photographs that
no
Julie
naked
found?
pictures on my
They
stream.
were basically what Julia told me is that her husband had found photographs around the
Hey,
residence
Digger, how's it going?
near the garage, the front door.
Listen
on the
in.
deck, and her
Cook
shed in the
away.
backyard. Julie Jensen had told me that her husband had found them.
Make
I don't
sure
recall her
you
telling me
mix
that she had
those
phone.
ingredients well,
And as far as these harassing phone calls, were they all hang-up phone calls, or did you
and the
confirm
food
they were
is
phone calls?
cooked
To her, they were all
to the
basically the same calls, or
delicious tenderness,
someone would not say
crispiness
anything. There would not be any noise
with
in the
all
background.
of the
There wouldn't be
love
any heavy breathing or anything like that.
that you
At
can
times they would
put into
hang
that
up
food.
or dead space, and she would hang up on them.
That's what she answered the phone. Were there, did she ever complain of any instances where her husband answered the phone and complained that he's speaking?
She had advised me that her husband had received calls at work where he had discussions with a particular person.
Oh,
They did not know who it was.
At the
gotcha.
outset of these harassing phone call activities and harassing activities, you had told Julie to keep a log,
Yes, I did.
and did she keep that log?
Yes, she did.
Did she show you that log from time to time?
No, she did not.
Any further? Any question? In terms of who found the photographs, that's information you received from Julie, correct?
Correct.
In terms of what happened when she answered telephone calls, there's information you received from Julie, correct?
That is correct.
And she was keeping tabs not just on hang-up calls, but anytime somebody had a wrong number, right, that would be something else you keep track of?
I found it out afterwards, yes.
She kept track of any phone call that wasn't obviously for one of the Jensens, basically, right?
That is correct.
Those hang-up calls happened at all times of the day?
Mostly during the day when she was home.
They happened at all times of the day. She recorded hang-up calls, right?
Right.
Uh-huh. That's right. Bring it up. Because it could have been during the day, at night, could have been morning. Of course, that's the end of that. Hopefully that's the
Are
end
you
of
moving,
that
15 in?
recorded
I
part.
am.
Right, 15 will be received.
Oh, come
All right,
on.
what's next for us?
Steve called Dave Young to the stand.
What number is that?
Oh, my, oh, my.
52, thank you. All the way up here, sir.
Do-do.
Just
Do-do-do-do.
remain standing.
Do-do-do-do.
Raise your right hand. So I swear the testimony is meant to be the truth, whole truth, but the truth shall be God. Thank you. Get as close as you can to that microphone, the smaller one. Spell your first and last name for the reporter.
David, D-A-V-I-D, Nearing, N-E-H-R-I-N-G.
Thank you.
Mr. Nearing, do you know a person by the name of Mark Jensen?
I do.
Do you see him anywhere in this courtroom today?
I do.
Could you point to him, describe what he's wearing?
He's over there wearing the headphones.
I request the record show the witness identify the defendant.
All right, the witness has identified Mr. Jensen here in open court.
He has
Tell the
been
jury when and where you first met
identified.
Mark Jensen.
I first met him around 1990 or 1991 when I worked at Prudential Base Securities in Milwaukee.
Oh.
And Mark had joined the company around that time.
So at that, when did you first start working for Prudential Bach?
I believe 1987.
So by the time Mark Jensen had joined in 1990 or
Okay.
91, you'd been there for 3 or 4 years or so.
That's correct.
And after Mark Jensen joined the firm, did you and he become better acquainted?
Yes, we did. We became friends.
How often would you speak to him on a daily or weekly basis?
Both many times daily and all week long.
How would you describe your relationship with him?
It was good.
So was it a friendship or a business relationship or both?
No, it was a friendship. I got to know his wife and son, and we did things socially.
Oh, nice.
Do you remember a time in 90 or 91, shortly after Mark Jensen joined Prudential, back walking into his office and finding something on the desk?
I do.
Tell the jury about that.
It's
yeah.
a smaller 8x10, 8x12 stenographer's notebook. And inside of it, the entire thing was sketches of penises.
Judge, I move to strike as irrelevant.
That's funny.
What's the relevance, Mr. Jimbers?
Well, Your Honor,
He
the
was
defendant's
sketching
preoccupation
out
of penises is going to be
penises.
central to a good portion of the other evidence in this case.
Oh,
It was the defendant who
okay.
was going to be testimony
Because he
that,
drew
there were 2,200 penis
penises.
photos found on Mark Jensen's office
Just so
computer.
you know,
And
if
many of
you
these photos
draw,
were of the sort that were being left around the residence from 91
just so you know, if you're drawing penises, you might be a killer. So be wary of men drawing penises.
through 98. And the point of contention is that the defense is saying that it wasn't Mark Jensen that was leaving them there, and the state has clear evidence that it was Mark Jensen that produced them and left them around there. And this evidence here further reflects the defendant's preoccupation with penises. Furthermore, there's going to be testimony from his
Penises
Kelly-
everywhere.
well, her name was Kelly
There's
Lamont,
a
Kelly Evans,
penis.
and
There's a
Kelly Lamont again, and
penis.
Kelly Jensen,
There's a penis.
in which she
Oh
also
my gosh,
testifies about Mark
penises
Jensen examining her in
everywhere.
great detail about each and every penis she'd ever seen.
To this all being brought out in front of the jury. My objection was
Oh,
relevancy.
every
I'm not
penis
asking
she's
about what
ever
every other
seen.
witness for the rest of the trial is going to say.
She's
The
been
relevancy
seeing
objection is this
lots
witness talked
of
about sketches versus photos. I don't understand the
penises.
relevancy of something that happened from 1990 or 1991 as it relates to
Well, going back, folks, but I apologize for your early break here.
Oh, yeah. So they're going to kick the jury out. Does it have to do
All
with
right, the
penises?
jury's outside the courtroom. Ms. Krause, you indicated you object to what was said. I don't know what the lawyers are going to say, so I wish I could.
Of course you did.
I understand that, but my objection was not a
I know,
speaking
so
objection.
you can continue. Go ahead.
Judge, I guess my concern is this. According to what I've heard this morning, and this is the first time the defense has been notified that Mr. Nearing was going to say this, was this morning. And allegedly, this book that was found was like handwritten drawings of penis pictures. There's nothing in the rest of this trial that indicates that there is anything that matches these handwritten drawings to photographs of someone having sex or performing oral sex. So I just don't see the relevancy of something that happened in 1991 with handwritten drawings, if it actually happened.
Well, if
Yeah.
Mr. Gembo's can tie it up,
I'm with him
I
on
think
that.
it's relevant to the photos. I don't know if you can tie it up, and that the only way we're going to find out is through this witness now.
Oh, come on, Judge.
Well, through this witness, Your Honor, and other witnesses. And just it should hardly come as a surprise that we're going to be talking about penises in this trial. In Jensen 2,
Good
We are
lord.
Jensen 3 for the record.
This guy's got a
If
fetish for
you go
penises
back and read
too.
Jensen 2, the Court of
How
Appeals
many
decision. The word
penises
penis
does he
appeared 115
have?
times in that decision. I'm pretty sure that's
Hey,
set in
cool
record for Court of
frog.
Appeals
Good
decisions
to
in the
see
state of
you,
Wisconsin.
brother. Good to
Mr.
see
Jensen's
you.
preoccupation with penises is a major part of the state's case. It demonstrates why the defendant was so upset about this one affair that Julie had with Mark with this
That he was drawing
Teresa,
penises.
that it occupied him throughout the course of his entire relationship with her. And Mr. Nearing will testify that he never forgot about it. It's something that bothered him throughout the entire time that he knew Mark Jensen,
Oh,
and it ate away at
yeah.
him. We just had testimony the other day from Ed Klug, in which Ed Klug testifies about there being penis drawings at this drunken party at the Marriott Hotel on November 5th, 6th, or 7th of 1998. Kelly Labonte, or I don't know what her last name is right now, but when she testifies later today, she's going to testify about Mark Jensen examining her, about the size, shape, and circumference of every penis she'd ever seen. And we have his notes that he took during
How
that
many
conversation. They're going to be introduced as
penises
evidence. And
do
those are also
you
penis drawings that Mark
see?
Jensen
No, that's my
that
hand.
he
Seriously,
produced.
that's
So Mark Jensen's very bizarre, strange, unusual preoccupation with penises and penis drawings is very much a part of the state's case. And it does tend, and then along with his 2,200 penis photos.
Now, if the state's case is him drawing penises, they've got serious problems, because I would think that the case was about proving that he killed his wife with antifreeze. That's sort of their point. But instead, they're talking about penises. They might want to stop. I don't. If the judge lets them do this, then they're yeah. I'm not liking the whole penis joke here.
That were in his office computer, it will afford the jury the opportunity to draw the most very reasonable inference that was Mark Jensen was the source of these photos that have been left around the residence. We're also going to hear testimony about Mark Jensen assuming the identity of other people while on the internet. So he did this with, there's going to be testimony about that when Jason Ruff testifies. He's a computer expert, where Mark Jensen manufactured an email with a bunch of penis photos attached to it and made it look like it came from Turtle to Julie Jensen, when actually the evidence will show that Mark Jensen manufactured it, created it, sent it to himself, then deleted his name from the from folder and from the to section, replacing them with Turtle and Julie Jensen, respectively. There's going to be testimony about how, when he was working at Stifel Nicholas, and Mark Jensen was the office manager at Stifel Nicholas, or the senior vice president at Stifel Nicholas in the Racine office, that he was sending emails to Barry Peterson using the moniker, quote, Warm Irish Eyes, unquote. So he was as though Barry Peterson was receiving these emails on this dating app, and it looked like it was coming from a person named Warm Irish Eyes. And these emails also contained penis photos and questions like, is yours as big as this, or things of that sort. It just shows a very strange, bizarre preoccupation with penises. And
I don't
that's
know.
very much
I think
a
the
central part of the state's case,
prosecution
especially
has
with regard to other evidence.
Preoccupation with them.
I don't think it's relevant. I don't think it goes to whether or not Mr. Jensen committed a first-degree intentional homicide. That's the argument that I'm making. I understand that the court is saying that there might be a link up. I guess my concern is if there's no link up, it's already out.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
I think it's relevant, and I'm only going to say it once. I think there's so much penis evidence in this case. It's already been directed through the video. There's already been pictures. And I did read Jensen 2, and the Court of Appeals mentioned it numerous times, more than any other case I've ever seen. And I think the issue is the weight of the evidence, and that's something for the jury.
Not the
and
weight
the
of
defense
the
is free to argue
penis.
that later. Let the jury decide whether this evidence.
Oh, come
is
on,
anything here. But I
Judge.
think it's an issue.
Judge,
It's been
it's your
presented now by
job.
the state, and I will allow it. So let's bring back the jury.
Oh,
If we're going to further,
hang on.
if we're going to further arguments in front of the jury about other witnesses' testimony, I would ask that that be outside the presence of the jury.
I
think
agree
that's
with you, but I didn't know
Yeah,
what Mr. Jambois was going to say.
Nobody
This, that
did.
Kind of when you raise an objection on relevancy, it's kind of an invited response that the prosecutor's going to explain why it's relevant. So I suppose you can ask for a sidebar, but if you're going to object on relevance grounds, then are we going to immediately break? Because I was just responding to the objection.
I think that if we're
Oh,
going,
don't be a
going to go
prick.
into what other witnesses are going to testify, then the prosecution should have asked for a sidebar. My objection was simple. I did not go into it more because I wasn't. I didn't think I should do that in front of the jury.
I agree.
there you go.
And I'll, if it's relevance, I'll let you know
Yeah.
whether I'm going to sustain it right away or we need more argument. So we're all on the same page. Okay. All right. Bring the jury back.
Okay. More penises. More penises. That's what the world needs, is more drawn penises. Hand-drawn penises. Big ones, small ones, fat ones, skinny ones. Just penises. Yeah. Come on. We'll get there. Well,
Right. Have a seat, folks. Thank you for your patience. Ladies and
get
gentlemen, the jury, we're going to continue.
excited, Daisy.
The objection's been overruled, so Mr. Jambois, you can ask your question.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Mr. Nearing, can you please tell the jury what you found when you walked into Mr. Jensen's office that one day when Mr. Jensen was not in there?
Penises.
Yeah, there was a 6x8, 8x10 stenographer's notebook, and it was filled with sketches of penises. Each page had a different illustration.
And do you remember any notes or notations or anything about the penis photos? Or
Not that I
penis
recall, it was
drawings?
just sketches.
And do you have an estimate about how many there were? How many different penis?
The notebook seemed to be filled with them.
And this was within the first year or two that after you met Mark Jensen?
Yeah, first year or two.
Did you and he ever discuss that notebook?
No.
You remember why you'd gone into his office that day?
I do not.
You weren't in there to snoop around, though. You just got in there for some reason. You just don't remember what it was.
No, I don't recall, but no.
No, but the penises scared me.
So you indicated that as you were first getting to know Mark Jensen, you and he would socialize together?
Yes.
Did your families also socialize together?
Yes.
What were the kind of things that you and your family would do with him and his family?
Well, in the winter, we'd go up to Door County for a weekend for cross-country skiing.
Even after all of the drawing of penises, you went and hung out with his family and him. And you never mentioned the big, veiny elephant in the room.
We'd also take weekends for bicycle trips with both families. And, of course, we'd have dinner at one another's homes over the years as well.
So over the course of the years, you not only got to know Mark Jensen, you also got to know his wife, Julie?
That's correct.
What was your impression of Julie as a mother and as a person?
She was
great
sweet.
on both counts.
She's
She was
wonderful.
a caring and
Great
loving
mother.
mother. And she came across that way in every situation.
Now, at some point in 1998, you left Prudential Beck and you joined Stifel Nicholas. Can you tell us about that?
That's correct. A couple of the top people at... repeat your question, please.
So at some point in 1998, you left Prudential Beck and you joined Stifel Nicholas. Is that true?
No. I went from Beige to Robert Baird.
Oh, okay. So and then when did you go from Beck to Robert Baird?
How long?
Yeah, how long? When was it that you went from Prudential back to Robert Baird?
Yeah, I think it was around 80, from 87 to 92, 93 that I was at Prudential Beige. And then I went to Baird. And then from 92, 93 to 98, I was at Baird. And after 1998, we opened the Stifel Nicholas office in Racine.
So when you left Prudential Beck to go to Robert Baird, did Mark Jensen go with you
Yeah, not to the same office, but we went at more or less the same time.
to the same company?
That's correct.
And which
Wow.
office did you go to?
I stayed in downtown Milwaukee, and Mark went to Kenosha,
Did you continue to talk to Mark Jensen on a regular basis between 1992 and 1998?
most likely every day.
So even though your offices were in different cities, you still talk to each other regularly?
Absolutely.
And then in 1998, at some point, you left Robert Baird and you went to Stifel Nicholas. Is that true?
That's correct.
And did Mark Jensen leave Robert Baird and go to Stifel Nicholas at the same time?
Yes.
And did that alter your office situation?
Pardon me?
Did that alter your office situation?
In what way?
Well, when you were with Robert Baird from 1992 to 1998, where was your office?
In Milwaukee,
And when you were with Stifel Nicholas from 1998 onward, where was your office?
in Racine.
Okay, so do you remember when it was in 1998 that you left Robert Baird and went to Stifel Nicholas?
Do I remember when it was?
Yes.
Yes, it was in the summer, June or July.
And when you left Robert Baird and you went to Stifel Nicholas, then you also moved your office?
That's correct.
And your office was moved to the Racine office?
That's correct.
And who else was in the Racine office with you? What other brokers were in the Racine office with you in June of 1998 when you moved there?
I believe when we opened the office, Barry Peterson was there. And I think that's all at the time we opened the office.
Well, you were there. Was Mark Jensen there?
He was
Well, of course.
there.
So it was you, Barry Peterson, and Mark Jensen that were in that office?
I believe so.
That's it.
And
There's
do
the three of you.
you remember when you moved from Robert Baird to
Three
Stifel
men
Nicholas,
and
did
a
you meet anybody
penis.
from St. Louis, from the St. Louis office of Stifel Nicholas?
Yes, there were people, I'm not sure how many, that came from St. Louis to help us open up the office.
Was one of those persons a woman by the name of Kelly Labonte?
Yes,
So you met Kelly Labonte when you opened your Racine office?
that's correct.
Now, at some point, did you notice anything about Mark Jensen and Kelly Labonte?
Yeah, they got rather close.
What do you mean by that?
A personal relationship, if you will.
Oh,
What evidence? What information did you see, or what was it that Mark Jensen said or did that caused you to believe that he was developing a relationship with Kelly Labonte?
He talked about it. He talked about her. He talked about his interest.
What did he tell you about his interest in Kelly Labonte?
Just in talking about it, you could tell it was sincere. And
Well, was it a romantic interest or was it a platonic interest?
no, it became romantic, and I don't know exactly when that occurred.
Did you and Mark Jensen ever
Romantic.
talk about the impact this might have on his marriage?
Yes, we did.
Tell us about the conversation that you can recall having between you and Mark Jensen concerning the impact this affair could have on his marriage.
We talked about it, and he had mentioned that he was going to see her on weekends and such. And I just suggested to him that it wasn't a good idea. And part of the conversation was always the hurt and anger that he felt over the affair that his wife had had years earlier. And in a way, he was trying to use that as a justification for what he was doing. And I strongly suggested to him that it wasn't a good idea.
Did you ever discuss with him the issues pertaining to child custody and what would happen if one spouse moved away with the children?
Yes, we did. He was well aware that he could lose custody of the kids, or that he'd have to divide all of his assets in
that's
half.
interesting.
And how did he respond? How did he address that with you, if you can recall?
Well, there wasn't any way to really finalize that discussion. It was just something that was talked about.
Now, throughout the time that you knew Mark Jensen, from 1991 onward, how would you describe his computer skills?
He was very familiar. He had a lot of interesting software, and he was very comfortable with and interested in computers.
You knew how to use a computer too, didn't you?
Pardon me?
You knew how to use a computer as well, didn't you?
Not as well. I didn't know how to use a computer, and things like that. But Mark was always a step or two ahead.
Whenever you have a problem with computers, would you talk to Mark about it?
With certain business-related software, we talked about it, yes.
And Mark seemed to know the answer.
Mark had the answers because it was Mark's software.
Oh, yeah.
Now, at some point, about the time you were having these conversations with Mark about the pitfalls of divorce, did he start talking to you about Julie's conditions?
Yes, he did.
And what was he telling you about Julie's condition?
A lot of things. He said that she was depressed, that she didn't want to do anything, that she was losing weight. He said that I wouldn't recognize her if I saw her. She had lost so much weight.
Wow.
So when you heard him talking about Julie in this fashion, were you concerned about Julie?
Yes, of course.
So what, if anything, did you do in response to your concern about Julie?
We had not seen them together in a long time because of the ongoing relationship that was developing with Kelly Labonte. So I talked to my wife about it and asked her if she'd give Julie a call and take her out to lunch and maybe cheer her up.
You remember about when that conversation occurred between you and your wife?
I believe it was a week or two before she passed.
And do you know if your wife was ever able to get a hold of Julie?
Oh, yes, she was.
And did she have lunch with Julie?
Yes, she did.
And after your wife had her lunch with Julie, did she relate to you what her perceptions of Julie?
Objection, Jensen.
Sustained.
I didn't ask him what
Oh,
they
yeah.
were. I
You're
just
getting really close, so.
I wasn't going to go there. Just
Yeah,
share
he
I
was
your
understand, but you're
there.
really close. You're right on the cliff there. So let's ask
Yeah,
another
he
question.
is.
Now, during this time that Mark was telling you about Julie's condition, did you ever make any observations of things that he was doing on his computer?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
He frequently was on the computer searching for what he told me were drug interactions. He was trying to figure out why her behavior, her demeanor had changed so much and why her health was deteriorating. And so
That's what he was telling you. He told you that he was doing that. He told you he was looking for drug interactions, and that was the reason he gave you for looking for drug interactions.
that's correct.
Not
Just rephrase
abnormal.
the question.
So the only thing you know about why Mark Jensen was looking at these things is what Mark Jensen told you, correct?
That's correct.
So quite aside from what Mark Jensen told you about why he was looking at these things, what were the things that you saw on, on his computer when you walked into his office?
I never really saw anything on the computer. I'd wander into his office. We were close together. We were good friends. I'd maybe sit in a chair across from him, and he'd be working away, and I'd ask him what he was doing, and that was the response I would get, that he was looking for drug interactions.
So how often would you walk into his office and see or hear about him looking at drug interactions on the computer?
As I think back, it was very, very frequently. It was both before her death and after her death.
Well, how is that abnormal? Please, all my inners and outs.
Now,
Oh, no.
switching gears to December 3rd, 1998.
Sorry to hear that, Daisy.
Were you in the
Bro.
office on December 3rd, 1998?
Yes.
And how big an office was it? Some people altogether were in the office. I mean, if you add in all the brokers and all the support personnel, how many people were in the office?
I don't know exactly how many were in there at that time. We had people that would join us and people that would leave, but roughly half dozen.
So it was a relatively small office.
It was a small office. That's correct.
And on December 3rd, 1998, do you remember Mark Jensen coming into the office on December 3rd, 1998?
I did not.
You didn't see him on December 3rd, 1998.
That's correct.
On the morning of December 4th, 1998, do you recall having a conversation with Mark Jensen?
Yes. Mark called me and told me that Julie had passed.
Did he indicate to you whether he'd be in the office on December 4th?
Pardon me?
Did he indicate to you whether or not he would be in the office on December 4th?
I don't believe so.
At some point after Julie's death, do you remember having a conversation with Mark Jensen about whether or not Kelly Labonte should be at Julie's wake or at her funeral or come into his residence?
Yes, I did.
Tell the jury about that conversation.
Again, we'd have frequent conversations every day, and he brought up the issue of whether or not it would be appropriate for Kelly to be at the wake. And I don't know if it was the same conversation, but shortly thereabouts, he asked if what my thoughts were if Julie were to move into his home.
Julie or Kelly?
Pardon me, Kelly.
So this was within a matter of days of Julie's death,
That's correct.
and he was asking you about whether his girlfriend should come to his wife's wake and funeral.
That's correct.
And what advice did you give him?
I said it was not a good idea.
And this conversation about whether or not Kelly should move into his residence, he should have Kelly move into this residence. How much time elapsed between Julie's death and this conversation that you have with Mark Jensen about Kelly moving into his residence?
I can't recall exactly, but it was in very short order. It wasn't long.
More than a week or less than a week?
I can't recall, but maybe a week or two at the most, I would think.
And when he was asking you about whether or not you thought it advisable for Kelly to move into his residence, what was your advice at that time?
Rather low key, but just that it was not a good idea.
Now, you indicated there was a person in your office by the name of Barry Peterson. Is that true?
Yes.
Now, did Mark ever have any conversation with you about spoofing Barry Peterson?
Yes, he did.
Tell the jury about that.
Barry was single at the time, and apparently had been on a single dating site. And so Mark created a person that he called Warm Irish Eyes. It was supposedly a woman, and he responded to or started to come on to Barry Peterson as this woman named Warm Irish Eyes.
So Mark would tell you about this
Yes, he did.
more than
That
one occasion.
Sucks.
And these emails that were being sent to Barry Peterson as though they were coming from Warm Irish Eyes, these were emails that were created by Mark Jensen. Is that true?
That's correct.
And did you learn what these emails were, what they contained, or any attachments to these emails?
He would have pictures of penises and would inquire to Barry Peterson whether or not he was that big or things of that nature.
And at the time Barry Peterson was receiving these emails, they appeared to be from Warm Irish Eyes.
That's horrible.
Yes, not from Mark Jensen.
Guys, don't do that.
During the course of your employment at Stifel Nicholas, did you ever come to know a person by the name of Ed Klug?
Yes.
What can you tell us about Ed Klug?
Objection relevant. I don't know where this is going.
Overruled. Go ahead.
What can you tell us about Ed Klug?
I believe Ed was a Robert Baird broker also, and I believe Mark recruited him to come and open an office in Appleton for Stifel Nicholas.
Do you remember after Julie's death, ever having a conversation with Ed Klug about any conversations that Ed Klug and Mark Jensen had before Julie's death?
I do.
So do you remember where that conversation occurred between you and Ed Klug?
I believe the first time it was on a plane. We had both been in Boston for a meeting, and on the way back, Ed told me that Mark said he was going to kill her.
Did Ed tell you where that conversation had occurred between him and Mark?
I believe he said it occurred in St. Louis.
Very interesting.
So can you tell the jury in a brokerage firm, the sort that you had at Prudential Bach and Robert Baird and Stifel Nicholas, is there a process or a procedure regarding the opening of mail or taking phone calls?
Yes, they're different as far as opening mail. The front office would receive the mail, and they would always open every piece. Even if it was marked personal, they'd open it to see what was in it. Most of the phone calls also went through the front office, but we did have direct lines, and so a person could contact us directly without going through the front office.
Now, from the time that you first met and worked with Mark Jensen right up through December 3rd, 1998, do you recall Mark Jensen ever complaining, or any member of the front desk ever complaining about receiving harassing phone calls or receiving explicit or pornographic photos at the office?
Repeat the question, please.
Did any support person, anybody that opens the mail, ever indicate to you that they'd received or complained to Mark Jensen that they'd received or opened in the mail a packet containing pornographic photos?
No.
And something like that would stand out in your mind?
Yes.
So, starting with Prudential Bach, no such email, no such photos were in the mail at Prudential Bach or Robert Baird or Stifel Nicholas at the office. Is that true?
Opened by the front office. That's correct.
And all the mail was opened by the front office. Isn't that true?
That's the policy.
Well, front office is opening up your
some
own
point
personal
after
mail.
Julie's
love
death,
that.
do you recall having a conversation with Mark about and Mark wanting to get his home computer back from the authorities?
I do.
Tell the jury about that conversation.
The conversation wasn't so much about wanting to get it back. It was a general conversation, and he had expressed concern previously too about them having his computer, and it was a home computer, but he used it for business at home as well, and he wanted to get it back. And on this particular day, it was a Friday afternoon. We were talking about it, and again, it was, they took my home computer. He'd like to have it back, and I mentioned to him that given that they had taken his computer and wouldn't give it back, I was surprised they hadn't come in and taken his office computer as well.
Oh,
You had that conversation on a Friday afternoon,
That's correct.
and you recall having a conversation with Mark Jensen the next Monday morning.
Yeah, Monday morning, first thing, Mark told me his computer was fried, and
His work computer was
his
right.
work computer, the computer in the
Oh.
office, said it was fried, and he'd have to call St. Louis and have them send him another.
there you go. Problem solved.
Did Mark ever talk to you about possible ways in which one could fry the hard drive on a computer?
Yes, years earlier, and I don't remember when, but he had told me when he was working at Baird, there was an individual there that he didn't get along with, and so he took a large magnet and applied it to the hard drive, and the intent was to destroy the data on the hard drive.
Did it work?
Did Mark ever tell you or talk to you about what happened when he found Julie dead?
Yes.
What did he tell you? Well, specifically, did he tell you anything about what he did with the boys when he got home that day?
Yeah, he said it felt as though something wasn't right, and so I believe that he said he had the boys wait, and he went into the house and found that Julie had passed.
So normally he didn't have the children go in the house with him. He had them wait in the car.
Yeah, I would think normally.
Objection leading.
Yeah,
That's not
yeah.
what Mr. Nearing said.
Well, go ahead. Mr.
Oh,
Chairman.
I don't want to
there you go.
What Mark Jensen said to you. What did Mark Jensen actually say to you about the boys when he came home that day?
They asked him to wait behind while he went in to check on mom.
And that's when. And what happened then after he had the boys wait in the car?
Objection. Move to strike. That's not what Mr. Nearing said.
Exactly.
Overruled. Go ahead, Mr. Jambos.
Once again, please.
What? I don't want to put words in your mouth. So what is it that Mark Jensen told you about that? What he did with the boys when he got home that day?
Once more, Bob, I don't understand the question.
Mark Jensen talked to you about coming home that day, correct?
Correct.
And what, if anything, did he tell you about what he did with the boys before he went into the house?
Well, he didn't say specifically what he did with them. What I got out of the conversation was he went into the house to check on Julie before the boys did.
And did he tell you what he, if any, how he had what he did with the boys before he went into the house to check on Julie?
No.
Did he tell you he said that he felt that there might be something wrong with Julie, and that's
So that's correct. He said something didn't feel right. He thought something was amiss.
and so what did he?
Yeah,
he told you
when
he
in
went into the house and did he
reality,
tell you what he did with the
good
boys? At that
people.
point?
That's correct.
What did he do with the boys at that point?
Oh, I have no idea.
He's here in Georgia with me.
Did Mark ever tell you anything about Julie getting sick while he was at the Blueprint in November of 1998?
He did.
Tell the jury what he told you.
Again, I was getting the constant stories about how ill she was and how poorly she was doing, and he mentioned that she had thrown up while he was gone.
At the Blueprint?
That's while he was in St. Louis at the Blueprint. That's correct.
Yes.
During the time that you knew Mark Jensen from 1990 or 91 through Julie's death in December of 1998, did you ever get the impression that Mark Jensen had ever come to terms with or forgiven Julie for that one affair that you had in early 90 or 91?
No, he was seriously hurt and angered. And from very early on, when I first met him, that came across right up until the very end. He never got over it.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing further. Your Honor.
Who's doing the cross? Go ahead.
Mr. Neering, you said you worked with Mr. Jensen starting sometime in 1990 or 1991.
That's
Do
correct.
you remember what year it was? Whether it was 1990 or 1991?
Yes.
Which one was it?
Oh, I cannot remember. I started there in '87, and we were there a couple years, before we left.
So you were working with Mark Jensen at that location a couple of years before you both separated and went to different offices for Baird.
That's correct.
You had a lot of conversations with Mr. Jensen
Many, many, many. Yes,
about work,
that's correct.
about families,
That's correct.
about children.
Yes.
And it'd be fair to say that during all of those conversations, you didn't write them down anywhere.
Not a word.
You weren't taking notes.
Not a word.
You weren't writing them in a journal.
No words in the journal.
You guys were friends. You were just talking.
That's correct.
You worked with Mark at Prudential, you said, for a couple of years. Can you tell us what Mr. Jensen's schedule was? What time he got in each day?
Mark was always a later starter, and he would stay longer. So his schedule, of course, was Monday through Friday. And while I might be there at 7 or 8, Mark might not get there until 9 or 10. And I might leave a little earlier. Mark might stay a little later.
So it'd be fair to say there was no time clock to punch into.
Never.
Mr. Jensen wouldn't come by your office and say, hey, just so you know, I'm here today.
No, he never came by and said, just so you know, I'm here today. But I would know he was there. His office was next to mine. We'd say hello.
Because you talked throughout the day.
That's correct.
So you would know that he would be at work.
That's correct.
And that was when you were working at Prudential.
That's correct.
Now, at some point, you separated and he went to Baird in Kenosha and you were at Baird in Milwaukee.
That's correct.
And during that time, you continued to talk to each other.
Yes.
On the phone,
Daily,
about work,
mostly.
about family,
That's correct.
because your families actually got together.
That's correct.
I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but I want to talk a little bit about this time when you were at Baird. When Mr. Jensen was at Baird in Kenosha and you were at Baird in Milwaukee, you would have no information about phone calls he may have received.
I would have no firsthand information. That's correct.
You wouldn't have been talking to the front office staff of the Baird in Kenosha.
Yeah, no, I would not.
You wouldn't be asking them what mail they had opened.
That's correct.
You wouldn't have been asking them about what phone calls they had received.
Correct.
That wasn't your office staff.
That's correct.
Your office staff was actually in Milwaukee.
That's correct.
And that was from sometime 1993 to 1998.
That's correct.
Now, you talked a little bit about these computer searches that you say Mr. Jensen conducted, correct?
That's correct.
You didn't
Yes.
see him conduct any searches.
I didn't see the screen, but I saw him conducting the searches.
What you mean by
Okay.
seeing him conducting the searches, you saw his fingers typing on a keyboard.
No, what I mean is he told me that's what he was doing.
I understand what he told you, sir. I'm asking what you actually saw, though. What you saw was his fingers typing on a keyboard.
That's correct.
You didn't actually see the screen.
Wow.
That's correct.
So I want to talk a little bit about Mr.
That's
Jensen's
important.
office in Baird in 1998. Okay.
Mhm.
When you walked in the door, there was like a U-shaped desk that you would see in front of you.
At Baird and Kenosha,
No, at Stifel in 1998.
please repeat the description.
Thank you. When you walked in the door of the office, there was like a U-shaped desk that you would see as you were walking in.
Yes.
And there would be a monitor on one corner of the desk. Is that a yes?
Correct. Yes.
And there would be a monitor on a second corner.
Yes.
He actually had two monitors.
Yes.
And
Two
it'd be-
people.
Thank you. And it would be fair to say that as you walked in the door, you could see the monitors.
That's correct.
Now, you said that when you talked to Mr. Jensen, you actually sat across from his desk.
That's correct.
And it was when you were sitting across from his desk that you couldn't see the monitors.
I'd sit across from him, or he had a credenza. There was the desk in front, and then chairs directly opposite, and off to the side was a long credenza, maybe 6 or 8 feet long. So a lot of times I'd wander in, as Mark did in my office, and stop next to his desk, beside it, and lean onto the credenza. So it was both sitting across from him and sitting right next to him, standing right next to him, leaning up against the credenza.
So what I asked, though, is when you were sitting across from him at those chairs, you couldn't see the monitors.
No, I never saw the monitor on any other searches.
So as he was doing all of these searches that he was telling you about drug interactions, you never looked at the monitor.
That's correct.
And what he said to you was that he was concerned about Julie's change in behavior. Correct?
Yes.
And he was concerned, and he expressed that concern to you.
Yes, he did.
And he was concerned because she wasn't eating the same.
That's what he said.
And he was concerned, and what he said to you was that she was losing weight
That's correct.
and that she would lock herself in the bedroom.
I don't think I said that yet, but he did.
He told you that.
Yes.
An additional concern he expressed to you was that she didn't want to do anything.
That's correct.
And she seemed depressed.
Pardon me?
And that she seemed depressed.
That's correct.
Now, in 1998, you
Wow.
and Mr. Jensen had been friends for 7 years.
Lady
Okay.
is depressed.
Sounds about right.
Okay.
That's correct.
That's what you testified to. I'm just
Good.
putting
Yeah,
a number
I didn't have
on
a number, but you're right. You did that math.
it. And during that time, you talked about a lot of things,
We did.
personal things,
Sometimes.
including Julie Jensen's affair.
Yes.
And how that hurt Mr. Jensen
That's correct.
and how he was upset about it.
Yes.
I think your testimony was he was angry about it.
I said hurt, very hurt and angry.
And he confided in you about those things.
Yes.
And when he was talking about his wife in 1998, he was confiding in you about what he saw.
That's correct.
Rough.
So when Mr. Jensen talked to you about looking up drug interactions, I think you said he did it both before Ms. Jensen's passing and after her passing.
That's correct.
And that was on the work computer.
That's correct.
And did he talk to you about the prescription medication she had been prescribed by a doctor?
Specific ones?
Yes.
Not that I ever recall.
Did he talk to you about his concern about her taking an unusual amount of aspirin?
No.
Did he talk to you at all about antidepressants?
No.
I want to talk to you a little bit about these computers.
Okay.
You just told this jury that you had a conversation with Mr. Jensen at some point about both his home and work computers.
Yes.
And I think you said it was on a Friday.
That's correct.
What day was that?
I have no idea.
What month was that?
I do not remember.
What year was that?
I don't recall. I'm sorry.
And at that time, Mr. Jensen had, when he worked at Stifel, he had actually 2 computers in his office
Yeah, he had a personal computer and a company computer.
and used his personal and company computer for work.
That's correct.
And he had those computers through the time that he was arrested in this case.
Yes.
And you actually had information that his work computer had been sent to St. Louis.
You kind of jumped ahead on the timeline.
I have jumped ahead on the timeline. That's fair. So when
No.
you spoke to Mr. Jensen about this damage to his work computer, he advised you that he had sent it to St. Louis.
That's correct.
And it's fair to say that working for a stock brokerage firm, there's certain protocols you have to follow.
There are departments that take care of different things. That's correct.
And because you're dealing with stocks and trading and people's personal information and money, there's specific protocols you have to follow.
Yes.
And that's why people at the front desk open the mail.
Yes.
Because you need to make sure that you're following whatever protocols have been set by the company.
That's correct.
And the main location for most of the departments for Stifel Nicholas, am I saying that right, sir?
Yes.
Is in St. Louis.
It's the home office.
So that's where a lot of the things happen, is at the home office.
That's correct. We're just a small branch.
In fact, you said you had like a half a dozen people working there.
That's right.
So if something was to happen with a work computer, it would be sent to St. Louis
Right. Any kind of issues that we would have like that were resolved
by St. Louis.
by St. Louis.
Do you remember in 2002, everyone in Stifel Nicholas getting brand new work computers?
I don't remember the year, but there was a time when everybody got an update. That's correct.
Another thing that the home office can do is conduct audits on computers.
I don't know anything about that.
Do you know anything about the fact that they can remotely access your computer and see what you're doing?
I assumed as much, but back then I'm not so sure. In fact, I would say no. I didn't think that was occurring.
Not abnormal, but it's still not looking good for him. Basically, it looks like he's destroying a computer.
Sir, you testified previously in this case, correct?
Yes, I did.
And that was in January of 2008.
You have to help me with the date. I do not remember when it was.
You remember it being early January 2008?
If you say so, I do not remember.
That's fair. You were asked on page 82, line 21, and on occasion will conduct audits, correct? And your answer was yes.
I'm not sure the context. The branch would be audited. The people would come in and they'd go through stuff. Your earlier question was about, did I think they could see everything we were doing on our computers? And I believe those are two different issues.
That's fair. I didn't ask him. You didn't know the exact date.
Okay.
So you knew that they did conduct audits, though, of computers and other business activity.
They would come in and make sure records were kept properly, that people were not gaining access to records that they shouldn't gain access to, and things of that nature. I don't believe they would have ever looked at individual computers or how they were used or what was on them. Back then, it was kind of in the early stages, and we didn't have the oversight that we had today or at the end.
Sure, sir. On page 117, I don't know what line 25, 24, 25,
Page 117.
19, 118, 17, 16. Line 16. When asked about system checks from the home office, you received a question. Did that ever happen to your knowledge in your office? Answer. You mean a system check on computers? Question. Mm-hmm. Answer. A system check by the home office? Question. Yes. Answer. They routinely monitor various things.
I guess I would stand by what I said today, as opposed to
2008. Which
I'm not sure what I was thinking then or what I meant.
That's fair, sir. Do you still work for Stifel Nicholas?
No, I retired 9 years ago.
So you haven't had any system checks done on your computer in the last 9 years.
Well, nowadays you never know.
After Julie Jensen passed away, you spoke to law enforcement.
That's correct.
And that wasn't actually until 2003? Does that sound right?
Again, as I reread my testimony from the last trial, I couldn't get my head around the dates. So if that's when I saw him or that's when I contacted them, that's correct. But I can't sit here and tell you it was in 2003 in this month. I just don't, it's just not in my head.
That sounds wrong because it is wrong. It was March 22nd, 2002.
Okay, yeah, whenever it was, I don't remember.
You didn't contact anyone in law enforcement in 1998.
I did not.
You didn't contact anyone in law enforcement in 1999.
No, I did not.
You didn't contact anyone in law enforcement in 2000.
No, I believe the first contact was after Mark was arrested. I think I contacted Paul Ratzberg, Detective Ratzberg.
And Mr. Jensen was arrested in 2002.
Okay.
And that's when you then contacted
I
Detective Ratzberg.
contacted him.
And he wanted to talk to you about what you knew about the Jensens.
That's correct.
And what you knew about Mark Jensen.
That's correct.
Because you had worked for him so long.
That's correct.
You had hundreds of conversations.
Yes.
You guys were friends.
Yes.
He had confided in you.
Yes.
And Detective Ratzberg wanted that information.
Yes.
He asked you questions.
He did.
And you answered those questions.
That's correct.
And you answered those questions truthfully.
That's correct.
And as Detective Ratzberg was asking you questions and you were answering those questions truthfully, Detective Ratzberg was taking notes.
That's correct.
Notes on what you said.
That's correct.
And if he was concerned about something you said or unclear, he would ask you to clarify it.
Yes.
After you spoke to Detective Ratzberg, you wrote a written statement.
Okay.
Do you remember writing out a statement after you talked to Detective Ratzberg?
I can't remember if I wrote them or if he wrote them and I signed them, but
Let's find out.
things were put in writing.
I'm going to show you exhibit number 16. Recognize that?
Looks like a report with my initials at the bottom.
So since I don't know your handwriting or Detective Ratzberg, is it your handwriting or Detective?
I don't write in cursive. I print, and this is printed, but I'm not sure it's my handwriting. It is my initials at the bottom.
At the bottom of each page, there's actually a spot where you initial.
That's correct.
And that would have been after reviewing and or writing this statement.
That's correct. Yeah, is there a date on this? Okay.
And you and I just spoke about March 22nd.
Okay.
Now, sir, you also testified previously in this case.
Yes.
2 times.
One digger.
If you say so.
Did you say so? Do you remember testifying 2 times?
There's a lot of it I don't remember. So
A lot you just can't remember.
that's correct.
One of the times was on August 28th of 2007, and the other ones which we just talked about was January 9th to January 10th of 2008.
Okay.
And when you testified on those days, you actually took the stand,
I remember doing that.
much like you are doing it today.
That's correct.
You raised your right hand,
Yes, I did.
you swore to tell the truth.
Yes.
And you told the truth.
That's correct.
You were asked questions by Attorney Jamboys,
That's correct.
and you answered those questions.
I did.
You were also asked questions by defense counsel, not
did.
me,
I did. Yes, I answered them.
and you answered them truthfully.
That's correct.
I want to talk to you about some of the statements that you just said today for the first time.
Okay.
You testified today that in 1990 or 1991, you walked into Mark Jensen's office and flipped through a journal,
Hey, what?
like a stenographer notepad, I think you said.
That's correct.
So I want to make sure I understand what happened on that day.
Okay.
You go to Mark Jensen's office.
Mhm.
He's not there.
That's correct.
And he's not someone you've known for a long time at that point.
That's correct.
It's when you worked at Prudential.
So, Daisy, this is just something that I happened to figure out pretty early on. If you're talking about somebody to log into your computer and remote access it, you can actually do that through Zoom. But if you need someone to physically work on your computer, you can't do it like that. But if you're looking for someone to access it, you can go through Zoom and you can share your screen and actually share your computer. You can, if that's what you're looking to do.
That's correct.
And he's not there. So instead of walking out of the office, you go inside the office
That's correct.
and you look around.
No.
You don't look around. You don't see a notebook.
And I knew you would ask me why I was there.
So my question is did you see a notebook?
I saw a notebook.
And after you saw that notebook, you opened that notebook.
That's correct.
And your testimony today is in a coworker's office that wasn't present, you started to flip through his notebook.
That's correct.
You never told Detective Ratzberger that.
I believe I did.
You believe you told Detective Ratzberg that you saw this notebook?
Absolutely.
Sir, I'm going to show you Exhibit 16, which is your statement. Can you please take the time to review this and stop when you get to the part that you found a notebook of penis sketches?
I do believe I reviewed this, a copy of it that was texted to me, and you're right, it isn't in there, but I know that I told him.
Objection, Your Honor. The counsel is interrupting the witness while he's answering. She's got to wait for him to finish answering the question before she starts speaking.
Give him a chance to finish. I understand. Give him a chance to finish.
And sir, you also had a chance, I think you testified to, that to review the transcripts of your testimony from the last trials.
I did.
You didn't testify to this notebook of penis sketches then either, did you?
I don't think so.
I'm going to ask you a few questions about this Barry Peterson spoofing email that you testified about.
Okay.
You testified that Mr. Jensen advised you that he created an email to spoof a coworker.
That's accurate.
No
And-
problem, Daisy.
Was this when you guys were at Stifel Nicholas
Yes.
in 1998?
This was more like 2001, 2002.
So at that point, who was the manager of the Stifel Nicholas office?
Mark was.
Mr. Jensen was the manager.
Mr. Jensen was.
And after Mr. Jensen told you that he spoofed an employee, you went to St. Louis? Did you tell them about what the manager of the office was doing to an employee?
Objection. There's two questions, and she didn't allow him to answer the first question.
I
Before
think it's
she-
time for our morning break. That's what I think. So we'll continue. Relax, relax.
So we're going to take a little break. Yeah, on that sharing of your computer, you just have to make sure that you enable it in Zoom. It's been a while since I've done it, but I had someone that I was working with that was from the computer, so I was able to remote access through Zoom, which was really weird. I didn't know it was possible at the time. I used to use, what was it? Not TeamSpeak. It was something else, like some old program where I could remote access. I had to do that a few times whenever I was setting up a server for them. There's this old website that we set up, and he had a specific server, and then he gave me access to the server, and
Date, 'cause there were
The
two-
10th.
ended up being, but regardless, yeah, so with the Zoom, there may be a setting in there, and you have to like give that permission in the Zoom settings. Once you've given the permission, then whenever you've got like the little chat up and stuff like that, where you can do the share screen, I think there's an option where you can share, like where they can control your cursor and all that stuff. So it does move slow. So if you don't have a super fast internet, it can look a little bit funky sometimes, but it is possible. Boom, boom.
Of divorce, who learned about
All right, come on. Let's get to this spot. Dun, dun, dun. Judge is looking through his notebook of penises.
All right, have a seat, folks. We're back on the record on Mr. Jensen's case. The appearances are the same. Mr. Naring is still under oath, and we will continue with the cross-examination. With that, Attorney Krause, you could start.
Thank you. Mr. Nerin, I asked a really bad question when we ended there, so I'm going to rephrase it.
Okay.
In 1998, Mark Jensen was the manager of Stifel Nicholas.
Yes, he was.
And
Stiff
you
old
had testified on the
Nicholas.
rec about some spoofing of Barry Peterson.
Yes.
So he would be considered an employee of Mark Jensen, or
Pardon?
someone you supervised.
Yes, he was manager at the time.
So he supervised Barry Peterson.
That's correct.
He supervised you.
That's correct.
And at any point when Mark Jensen told you about the spoofing, did you contact St. Louis and advise them about what this manager was doing to someone he supervised?
No, I did not.
And when you talked to Detective Ratsberg, your testimony is you told him about the spoofing,
I know that I did.
and you never testified about any of this in your previous trial testimony.
Oh.
I cannot remember, but if I didn't, I didn't.
You had a chance to
Oh.
review your previous testimony transcripts.
It was over 100 pages. If I didn't, I didn't.
Another conversation you talked to this jury about was a conversation that Mark Jensen had with you about, it sounded like divorce. Right?
Man,
It was after you learned about the affair with Kelly Levante,
That's correct.
and you told
they
him
are
about possible
tearing him
ramifications.
up on
We discussed
cross.
this.
And what you told the jury today was that the possible ramifications you talked about was child custody and splitting assets.
Correct.
Now, you also testified again, January of 2008, and you were asked the question.
Counsel, what transcript?
Thank you.
Page number?
It's page 15.
Okay.
Oh,
That was
man.
the first day. Let me just double check.
They are tearing him up.
Can you know which date? Because there were
The
two.
10th.
The 10th.
Mhm.
Okay. On what page are you on?
Well, I wasn't a page. Now I gotta find it. What did I say? 15? Page 15. The fourth line.
Page
Oh,
15, line 4?
come on.
And what exactly, and the question was, and what exactly did you tell him about the ramifications? And your answer was, we talked about custody of the kids, possibilities of one spouse moving away, and things like that. Next question. Did you tell him that it was a difficult position to be in terms of divorce? Yes. I'm going to go down to the next question. Did you ever talk to him, or did he ever talk to you about the financial ramifications, like splitting money and the assets, splitting the assets? And your answer was no. I don't believe that was an issue for him. That was your testimony in 2008.
Oh,
We discussed this topic on many occasions.
I understand that, sir. My question was, that was your testimony in 2008.
Okay.
yeah.
No, you testified that you knew Mark and
Got
Julie
called
Jensen
out.
Yes, I
as
did.
friends.
Yes.
You knew Julie Jensen was from the Kenosha area.
I'm not sure I knew that.
Didn't know that she had lived there her entire life,
That's correct.
or that her brother lived just a few miles away.
I knew family was in the area, but I didn't know she was born and raised there.
Oh, wow.
Another conversation you talked about and talked to this jury about was a conversation you had with Mark Jensen about Kelly Labonte after Miss Jensen's death. So I want to talk to you a little bit about that.
Okay.
Your testimony was that Mark Jensen asked 1 or 2 weeks after Julie Jensen passed if Kelly Labonte should move into the family home.
That's correct.
And you told him that wouldn't be a good idea.
Yes, I did.
You never told Detective Ratsberg about this conversation about Kelly Labonte.
I cannot remember.
In fact, he specifically asked you about Kelly Labonte and Mark Jensen's relationship with her. And in fact, when she moved to Kenosha, but at no point did you tell him that Mark Jensen asked if Kelly Labonte should move into the house 1 to 2 weeks after Julie Jensen's death.
Okay.
Oh,
Did you tell him that?
Gosh, there are so many facets to this case. I don't think I touched on absolutely everything every time I sat down to speak with him.
oh,
And you
geez.
didn't testify to that last time in January of 2008,
Testified to what?
the 2 weeks after Julie Jensen's death.
Oh, it was
conversation.
shortly after the death. That's correct.
But you didn't testify to it previously.
No.
I can't remember what I testified to.
You read the transcript, sir.
It was
Yes.
over 100. It was over 100 pages. Yeah, I read it all, but just in one ear and out the other. There's so much.
Mm-hmm.
You were aware that in January of 1999, Kelly Labonte was still married and living outside the state of Wisconsin.
I was.
So I want to go back to this friendship you had with the Jensens. I think you said it developed in 1990, 1991,
That's correct.
and you would do things as a family
That's correct.
with the Jensens family.
Yes.
Cross-country skiing.
Yes.
Camping.
Not camping with bicycle trips, and
Like glamping. Was it like Door County, or was it
we
a
stayed in
hotel?
hotels.
And when you stayed in these hotels, did you find babysitters for your children so you could go to strip clubs?
No, we did not.
That wasn't something your families did.
No.
And
Huh.
in 1990, when do you think the last trip you had to Door County
Amazing.
was?
Sorry, I cannot help you with that. I don't know.
It wasn't until maybe July, August of 1998 that you stopped having these family trips together.
That's correct.
And that's because you found out about Mark's affair with Kelly Labonte.
Yes.
And you didn't want to do things as a family.
That's correct.
And so between the time that you stopped doing anything with the Jensens and Miss Jensen's funeral, the only time you had any conversation the only time you had any conversation with Miss Jensen was sometime in October of 1998. I think you took a bike trip with your wife.
I can remember reading that. Oh, but that's correct. I didn't see much of her.
You might have remembered reading it. I'm asking if you actually remember it though.
I remember it when I read it, but you know what? Prior to reading it, that was not a part of my memory.
So sometime in October of 1998, you and your wife were on bikes
That's correct.
and you stopped by the Jensen home.
Yes.
And you saw Julie Jensen
That's correct.
and you saw Mark Jensen.
That's correct.
And after that time, you didn't have any other conversation with Julie Jensen.
That's correct.
You didn't see Julie Jensen again
I did
after
not.
that. You didn't call her on the phone and say, hey, I hear you're a little down.
I did not. I never talked to her by myself.
Mm-hmm.
You did know, because Mr. Jensen shared it with you, that Julie Jensen had this affair
Yes,
sometime in 1990, 1991.
that's correct.
And that she had filed for divorce.
Yes.
And at that time, David Jensen was a small child.
Yes.
During the course of this friendship with Mr. Jensen, he did talk to you about concerns about the harassment of his wife and himself.
I couldn't hear all of that.
During the years that you were friends and coworkers with Mr. Jensen, he did talk to you about the harassment of himself and Julie Jensen.
Yes, he did.
He did talk to you about phone calls made to the Jensen home.
That's correct.
He also talked to you about photographs left at the Jensen home.
And on his work vehicles. That's correct.
So he told you about the photograph on his work vehicle.
That's correct.
And you said that this was a small office.
The Prudential Beige office was huge, and I believe there were pictures left. We had 80 brokers. There were pictures left at that time, I believe. But the Baird office obviously was small, and I didn't work there. The Stiefel office was very small, and I did work there.
So the Baird office that he was at, you were not at.
That's correct.
So, sorry. Although he had told you about it, you weren't there when he found them.
That's right.
Interesting.
Mr. Neering, you've been a stockbroker for a long time before you retired?
Yes.
It'd be fair to say that companies have specific symbols that they use, like McDonald's is MCD.
Yes.
And Citicorp is CCI.
Oh,
Mr. C, or it was 9 years ago.
there it is.
It might have changed
Bringing it
now.
out.
You never know.
HD is Home Depot.
Correct.
WMT is Walmart.
Yes.
DE is Deere and Company.
Nothing runs like a deer.
Right. That's what my stepdad says. PDE is Pride Petroleum.
Oh,
And those are symbols that stockbrokers use when talking about companies.
Yeah, the prices show up on the tape that you see, the scroll. And when we want to look up information on our work computers, we use those symbols.
So if I put in Google, let's say GLM, it's going to come up with Global Marine.
Maybe not Google per se, but if it's a financial site, it would.
It might show me that there is something associated with that. I'd have to click on it to get what it was associated with. And those are BBY is Best Buy.
Correct.
And those are pretty common symbols that stockbrokers know.
Yes.
mm-hmm. That's what I
Is
was
there a
saying the
security
other
industry
night.
association for stockbrokers?
Yes.
And they sometimes have dinners or meetings?
I don't know what organization you're talking about in particular, but Our company had dinners. I don't know if that's what you're referring to.
I did not know that, but your company
Or
had
like the
it.
blueprint you referenced.
So that would be
Blueprint.
some type of
There you
meeting that
go.
would be had.
Blueprint. Amazing.
You testified on, when I was asking you some questions about schedules, that Mr. Jensen was kind of a later morning, later at night kind of worker. You were an early morning, leave at a normal time worker.
That's correct.
And that was pretty consistent over the years.
Yes.
It'd be fair to say you weren't checking him in and checking him out.
We all worked whenever we wanted to. That's correct.
If he was going to be late, he might call or he might not.
He would not call.
He would not call.
Oh, you wouldn't call.
You testified on direct
How nice
that
of him.
Mr. Jensen did not come into the office on December 2nd. Is it that you just didn't see him? I just want to clarify. You didn't see him or he didn't come in? Sorry, December 3rd is what I meant.
You had me confused there.
I was
That's correct.
confused too, sir.
I didn't see him or he didn't come in. Are you asking if there's a difference there?
Yes.
I don't think he ever came in where I didn't see him. So yeah, maybe he came in and I didn't see him, but his office is right by mine, and that wasn't the type of relationship we had in the office.
So it's possible he would have come in and you wouldn't have seen him. He might have been in a meeting.
It's not possible. I mean, it's possible.
He might have been on the phone.
Okay.
I'm just asking, sir. Is it possible that you could have been on the phone at some point during the day?
And
and not-
therefore I wouldn't have known that he arrived?
Correct.
That's not possible.
You did talk to Detective Ratsberger about whether Mr. Jensen came in on December 3rd.
Okay.
Do you remember that?
We talked about so many things. No, I don't remember speaking with him specifically about it.
Do you remember telling him that Mr. Jensen did call you and talk to you about whether he would be in?
On December 3rd?
Yes.
I do not recall that.
Do you remember telling him that Mark Jensen told you he would be in late or not at all?
I do not recall telling him that.
It'd also be fair to say that some stockbroker business happens outside of the office.
Yes, we see people outside of the office. That's correct.
You meet clients.
Right.
Go out for lunch.
Right.
Go out for dinners.
Yes.
Business is done at those points.
Yes.
Must be nice work.
You said you spoke to Mr. Jensen on December 4th,
The day after, that's correct.
and that's when he called to tell you that his wife had passed away.
That's correct.
And he told you he thought it was a drug interaction.
As I sit here, I don't remember what he told me, but he did tell me that she had passed, and I was blown away.
He told you that she had recently seen a doctor for depression
Yes.
and been prescribed medication.
Yes.
You were asked a couple questions about Ed Klug, another stockbroker at Stifel Nicholas.
Okay.
You weren't friends with Mr. Klug at the time that you were working at Stifel Nicholas.
Was I friends
In
with him?
1998. I should be more clear about the timing, sir.
No, I don't think I knew him before they opened the Appleton office.
And at some point, Mr. Jensen was charged with the crime in this case,
With what?
with first-degree intentional homicide. You know he was arrested and
That's
charged.
correct.
And at some point, you actually went and searched for Mr. Klug at a conference.
That's correct. Oh, correct.
And you were searching for Mr. Klug because you had heard rumors about what he had said. Mark Jensen told him.
That's correct.
And this was a conference that you both had attended.
Yes.
And that was in 2006.
Yes.
And he told you that at this Blueprint conference, they had both been drinking.
Yes.
And that's when they had this conversation that Mr. Klug says Mr. Jensen admitted that said something about killing his wife.
That's correct.
Well, witnesses
Do you remember
get a little
testifying in 2007 that
frustrated
the
here.
conversation between Ed Klug and Mark Jensen? Ed Klug said it happened when opening the Appleton office.
Yeah. When I read the transcript review, and I read that, I said I thought Ed Klug had told Mark in Appleton. That wasn't the way I remember it today. I remember it telling me that Mark told him that in St. Louis. So there's a discrepancy there.
Don't change your
So in
story.
2006, you spoke to Mr. Klug
Yes,
at this conference
Yes.
about this conversation between him and Mr. Jensen.
that's correct.
And a year later, you testified at a
Tying
hearing.
him down on
And
it.
during that testimony, you said that the conversation happened when they were both in Appleton.
That's correct.
During the conversation, he also told you that other people were present when Ed Klug and Mark Jensen were speaking.
Excuse me, counsel, what page? Transcript?
You're cross-examining. I'm not on a transcript.
Well, you can't have a personal conversation between the lawyers here. I do have some job here.
There you
I'm
go.
not quoting from a transcript, Judge.
All right, ask a question.
Once again, please.
Oh, yes. I have to remember what the question was. During the conversation that Ed Klug had with Mark Jensen that he then told you about, Ed Klug said there were other people present.
Okay, that's correct.
Huh.
Now, 2006 wasn't the only time you talked to Ed Klug about this case.
Yeah, when I read the transcript, I couldn't believe how many times I saw Ed Klug.
You actually talked to him a lot after.
It appears that
2006.
way, and I don't remember those conversations, but it appears that I did.
You talked to him after you testified in 2007.
Most likely. In fact, until I read the transcripts, and I'd completely forgotten about the airplane trip from Boston with Ed Klug. Completely, that was just gone from my mind. So, yeah, I talked to him a number of times.
And you talked to him after his testimony in 2007.
Probably yes.
Boy, you can tell he is getting a
few more questions,
little
sir. I want to talk to you a
frustrated.
little bit about the conversations you had with Mark Jensen in November of 1998, if you remember them. Okay?
Okay.
As a result of the conversation you had with Mr. Jensen, you asked your wife to go out to dinner with or lunch with Julie Jensen,
That's correct.
and she did that.
Yes, she did.
The conversation you had with Mr. Jensen is that Julie Jensen was crying regularly
Yes.
and that she was withdrawn,
That she was with yes.
and he was concerned about that.
That's correct.
That she was locking herself in her room,
Yes.
that she was losing weight,
Yes.
and that she was miserable.
Yes.
He told you he wanted her to see a doctor.
Yes, he did.
She
Come
did not want
on.
to see a doctor.
That's correct.
He told you he was encouraging her to go to the doctor.
I think I testified last time that he said the only way to get her to a doctor, and these are his words, was that if he duct taped her up and threw her in the car. So yeah, he wanted her to go. He said he wanted her to go.
And she didn't want to go.
There you go.
Objection. Calls for speculation as to what she did or did not want to do.
Sustained.
It was only based on his answer.
Said move on.
And that's based on his answer. Come
He told you
on.
that Julie was afraid of ending up like her mother.
Yes.
And you knew her mother had some medical issues.
Yeah, I believe it was alcoholism.
And Julie feared being hospitalized
I
like
don't
her
know if she
mother.
did, but that's what Mark said.
That's what Mark told you.
That's correct.
And that was in November of 1998.
Sounds right.
Man, oh man, come on.
He also talked to you about her previous treatment for depression.
Perhaps.
You don't specifically remember.
I don't.
Wow.
So you talked a little bit about this computer that Mr. Jensen said he tried to fry with a large magnet.
Yes.
You know that you can't fry a computer with a large magnet, correct?
I didn't say it. He said it. I don't know if you can or you can't, but I've never tried it.
Okay. You also
He's
testified
looking
that
like a
Mr.
hoe in
Jensen was kind
church.
of the person you went to if you had issues with the computer software.
Yeah, not so much issues, but just to help it to use the various features.
And that was the software that was on the computer for your work.
Oh, they.
No, it was
I
software that
knew
was on
some
his
of
personal
those
computer.
in
Okay.
church.
Just
They
work oriented.
weren't all
They
that
weren't work
bad.
oriented.
Yes.
And did you use that software?
Yeah, I had a laptop and used it as well.
It wasn't about like if your computer died, he would come in and
No,
fix
no,
it.
no, no, no. It was just about utilizing the software.
He wasn't the IT tech of Stifel Nicholas.
No, he was not.
Oh, backtracking from things he said prior, and how that I think about it, I got these extra thoughts, and
Nothing further. Thank you, sir.
Redirect, Mr. Jambois.
Thank you, Your Honor.
yeah, I'm sure he
Now,
will.
on cross defense counsel is asking you about Mark's conversations with you about Julie, suggesting that he was actually communicating real observations about Julie. But really, at the end of the day, was it your impression after Julie's death that he was conveying this information to tell you about Julie, or was he conveying this information to you for some other reason?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled. Go ahead, answer the question.
Yeah, I was always doubtful of the things he was saying.
And what was it? What was you? Do you have suspicion or an inference that you drew as to why he was telling you these things?
Objection, speculation.
Overruled. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
What's more on the question?
So, did you draw an inference or develop a suspicion as to why Mark Jensen was telling you these things? What his motive was?
Well, I knew what was going on in the background, and it felt very strongly like he was trying to lay a path or an alibi in my lap. So yeah, I never
Calls for
bought into
speculation.
all the
This
things
is
he was
why
saying.
she objected.
And you even had your wife check on Julie to see if there was truth to what he was telling you.
I did. That's part of the reason. That's correct.
Now, defense counsel had asked you some questions about your previous
They're gonna
testimony.
get him on
and I'm going
cross
to go into that. First of
again.
all,
Whenever they
Um,
redirect.
you were sent the transcripts of your testimony from your testimony on August 29th, 2007. You were sent that testimony,
I believe so.
and it was 87 pages long. About it's or 88 pages
Yeah,
long.
it was an 88-page one.
And then the first day of your testimony on January 9th, 2008, at the later hearing, and that was from pages 252 to about 270.
Please speak into that, Mike. With this
I'm
plastic,
sorry.
it's hard to hear now.
I'm sorry. So then the first day of your testimony at the later hearing, it was from pages 252 to page 270. Is that about sound about right?
Yes.
And then from the next day of your testimony, it was from page 1 through page 126. Does that sound all right?
Yes.
So you didn't commit to memory all of your testimony from all of those proceedings, did you?
I couldn't. And in fairness, even as I read it and tried to refresh my memory, there were just so many dates and so many things. I couldn't refresh my memory on everything. It's just so much, and it was so long ago.
But one thing
Mhm.
that's similar to all those proceedings in this proceeding is you're not just sitting up here and just telling the jury whatever comes to mind. You're actually asked questions by lawyers, correct?
Yes.
And if the lawyer doesn't ask you the question, then you won't provide that answer, correct?
I don't think they'd let me, but that's correct.
Now, defense counsel asked you about questions, page 117. So counsel, I'm directing the court and counsel's attention. This is the transcript of day 6 of that previous hearing. And I'm going to go to page 117.
Yeah, good job on the prosecution there, trying to make it seem like, oh, you can't remember everything you said. But you would think that they would be able to keep certain things, stories in line, even
And defense
after
counsel had
decades.
posed you some questions, and they were found, directing court and counsel's attention to, well, these lines aren't marked, but it's above the middle of the page. Question: you're called being asked the following questions and providing the following answers. Question: and Mr. Albee asked you questions about audits that the home office could do and about system checks that the home office could do on your computers, correct? Answer: yes. You're called being provided that question and giving that answer, or now would you concede that was a question and answer that was posed?
Yeah, run that by me again, please.
Okay, that was a question and that was the answer that was provided to you at the time?
Yes.
And then the next question: did that ever happen to your knowledge in your office? Answer: you mean a system check on computers? Question: mm-hmm. Answer: a system check by the home office? Question: yes. Answer: they routinely monitor various things. You recall being posed those questions and giving those answers, or do you at least concede that those questions were posed and those answers provided?
Yes.
Now, and those questions were just posed to you by defense counsel on your cross-examination. So now, to put that in context, do you recall then being asked the next question? And this is the bottom page 117. As of this conversation that you had with Mr. Jensen, where suddenly the next Monday his computer was fried, at that point, were you aware of any system checks where internet history would be checked? Answer, no, not specifically. Do you recall being posed that question and giving that answer, or concede that that question was posed and that was the answer that you gave?
I concede.
Oh, come on. That's gonna bite him. Might want to get off this line of questioning, prosecutor. I know he's trying to save his testimony, but there you can tell that the defense is looking pretty smug and they're feeling pretty good about answering these questions.
And cross-defense counsel asked about whether or not you'd ever told anybody about the conversation where Mark Jensen was asking you about the suitability of Ms. Labonte coming to stay at the house. Do you recall her asking those questions?
I do.
And so directing your attention now to page 93 of your testimony on January 10th, 2008. Do you recall being asked the following question, giving the following answer? Page 93.
Closer to the mic, please.
Page 93.
Come on.
Do you recall being asked the following question? Actually, it might be page 94. Let's see what page. Yeah, it is page 93. Do you recall being asked the following question and providing the answer? Following answer. Question. Do you recall him discussing the suitability of Ms. Labonte coming to stay at his house? Answer. That's correct. Question. This is the same house he shared with Mrs. Jensen? Answer. Yes. Question. And what did he ask about? Answer. He asked if I thought it would seem out of place to be presented to the family as a friend or an acquaintance from the home office in St. Louis. Question. And what did you tell him? Answer. I thought it would be out of place. Now, do you recall being posed those questions, or do you acknowledge that being posed those questions and providing those answers on January 10th, 2008, the earlier hearing?
Yes. Or I concede that I probably did.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Young.
Recross on those limited questions.
Briefly, you were just asked that last question about Ms. Labonte staying. That was in relation to the wake, correct?
In relation to what?
The wake. About him introducing her as a colleague from Stifel Nicholas.
No, I think he said moving into the home as well, and
Old Nicholas.
two conversations together.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you there, sir.
Go ahead with the question.
You were asked a question, same place, just slightly before what Attorney Jamboyce read. Do you recall a conversation you had with Mr. Jensen regarding the suitability of Ms. Labonte coming to Ms. Jensen's wake? Your answer was yes.
I do.
And it was shortly after that you were asked the question, do you recall him discussing the suitability of Ms. Labonte coming to stay at his house? That's correct.
Yes.
And then 2 questions later, and what did he ask about that? Answer, he asked if I thought it would seem out of place if he presented her to the family as a friend or an acquaintance from the home office in St. Louis. That was your answer.
Okay. Yes.
And that was in relation to the wake.
That's correct.
Nothing further. Thank you, sir.
All right, your excuse. Thank you.
Yes, I did not have any redirect, Your Honor.
You got to talk to them. Okay. Yes.
Let's see what Sharon Nearing to the stand.
What number is that?
Number 53, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Judge, I move Exhibit 16 in. Judge, I move Exhibit 16 into the record.
16's moved in.
All right, come on. Let's get through this. This must be the wife.
I have a flag over there. I'm all the way up front here. It remains still. It's the way it is. If you raise your right hand, solemnly swear the testimony is meant to be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Thank you. Have a seat. Get as close as you can to the little microphones. Spell your first and last name for the reporter.
Sharon Nearing,
Oh,
Spell your first and last
geez.
name for the reporter.
SHARONNEA.
Yeah.
He had been sitting up. So, I mean, I can give you a better time frame if you can tell me when he was born, because that's kind of where my recollections are. He was at least that old.
Do you recall providing a statement, a signed statement, on August 28, 2002 to Detective Ratsberg?
Yes.
And if at that time you said myself and my husband, David Nearing, became friends with the Jensens in about 90 or 91, does that refresh your recollection as to how long and when you and your husband became friends with the Jensens?
It refreshes my recollection as I was thinking about it. Again, it's been a long time. My recollections of knowing them, again, it's old, but I believe we knew them more when, like I said, Douglas was of an age that he could sit up. So that would be the time frame that I could work from. I'm guessing more closer to, we might have started doing things mid 90s rather than right when they met, when they first started working together.
So you and Mr. Nearing had children
One, yes,
And the Jensens had 2 children.
correct,
And it was about that time when Douglas was old enough to sit up on his own that you and your family started doing things together.
correct.
What sort of things did your families do together, if you can recall?
We had been to their house for dinner. They had been to our house. We went biking up in Door County, and we went cross-country skiing in Door County.
So it sounded like a pretty active family-type activities that you did together.
Yeah, always family, yes.
And did you have an opportunity to see how Julie was as a mother and how she was as a person?
Yes.
So what was your impression of Julie as a mother and as a person as you got to know her and Mark Jensen?
My impression was that she was enjoying and loving being a mother.
Now, do you recall in October of 1998, you and your husband riding bicycles from Racine to Pleasant Prairie to see the Jensens?
Again, very long time ago, but vaguely.
Did you place the date of that in your calendar?
Possibly, but I don't have that date available.
At the time that you gave the statement to Detective Ratsberg on August 28, 2002, were these matters fresher in your mind?
I would assume so.
So if you in your statement indicates on October 10th, 1998, myself and my husband biked down to see the Jensens in Pleasant Prairie. We didn't call him ahead of time to see who was home. I remember that date because I wrote it down on my calendar, which I still have.
Judge, I object.
Is that-
This is refreshing.
Does that refresh your recollection?
Exactly.
Yes, I would, Judge.
We have the statement, Mr. Jimbo.
I've got it here on my computer. I didn't print it out. That's why I was doing it this way. Let's put it this way. Instead of
I think
using
the defense counsel's giving you a copy of this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will.
Isn't that wonderful? Give defense a copy. Oh, come on, prosecutor. Do a better job. Well, Miss Williams, that's because I've got it on high speed. Of course, that lady back there, she doesn't blink much. But of course, she's a little bit like a toad. And she blinks so little that it's a possibility. She may have like a
Okay, if I gave you that date, I do keep calendars,
tongue
and I
that
do write
comes out,
like
snatches the
logs,
back
but I
of the
write notes of what we
prosecutor
do,
by the head.
and I've done that forever. So if that's the date I gave you, I'm fairly sure that it was correct.
So we'll then treat this as a recorded recollection rather than as a refreshed recollection. So your recorded recollection was that on October 10th, 1998, myself and my husband biked down to see the Jensen.
That's a really rough thing that he just did right there, because if he uses it as a recorded recollection and not her true recollection, she's not going to be able to change her story coming back. But you see this lady right here? She looks like she just wants to smack him in the back of the head. She really does. She looks very angry. Very angry.
In Pleasant Prairie. We didn't call him ahead of time to see who was home. I remember that date because I wrote it down on my calendar, which I still have. So that was your recollection at the time?
Correct.
Judge, I would object this to leading. I think if Attorney Jim Boyce is going to ask her questions and she doesn't remember, she can refresh her recollection with the document that's been provided. She doesn't actually have her notes from back then, which would make it a past recollection.
Well, actually, this is a statement that she wrote.
Just ask a question, Mr. Jimbo.
Okay. Now, thinking back to that time that you rode to Pleasant Prairie and you visited with Mark and Julie Jensen, do you recall seeing anything unusual about Julie Jensen at that time? Did she appear to be normal Julie Jensen that you'd known her for a number of years?
Again, recollections are a little old, but I just do remember riding down. I think they were working out in the yard. We said hello, probably turned around and went back because it was a fairly long ride.
Okay. Now, you remember sometime in the month of November 1998, your husband, David Nearing, conveying to you information that he'd received from Mark Jensen concerning Julie Jensen's condition?
Yes.
And what had your husband told you about Julie's condition, that Mark had told him about Julie's condition?
That she was feeling poorly, that she didn't want to get out of bed, and that she was feeling sick.
And did your husband suggest that you do anything in response to receiving this information?
Yes. He suggested maybe I call and see how she was doing, and I guess we both kind of came to the conclusion that if she was doing fine, I would ask her out to lunch.
So did you call Julie Jensen?
Yes.
And did you end up asking her to go out to lunch?
Yes.
And do you remember where you went for lunch?
I didn't until I reread the testimony, but Culver's. I know we did fast food, but it was Culver's in Kenosha.
And so when you went to visit with Julie or meet Julie at the Culvers in Kenosha, did she come alone or did she bring somebody with her?
She brought Douglas with her.
And did you have your son with you or not?
No, he was old enough to be in school.
So when you had this lunch with Julie, do you recall you were looking for the signs that Mark Jensen had conveyed to your husband about Julie being depressed and lost weight and gaunt and depressed and things like that?
I wasn't doing an examination, but I was there to just talk to her and see how she was.
And to assess her condition in comparison or contrast to the way it had been described to your husband by Mark Jensen. That'd be fair?
That would be fair.
And did you assess Julie's condition in comparison or contrast to the manner in which her condition had been described to your husband by Mark Jensen?
She drove herself there. She brought Douglas in. We sat down. We had a conversation. We had a meal. I did not see that she looked sick. I'm not a doctor. I understand that. But she looked fine to me. In my estimation. I mean, I can't make a judgment call because I'm not a doctor.
You didn't see any evidence of her being depressed or suicidal?
No. But again, I can't make that. I'm not a doctor. So
The objection was overruled. Continue, Mr. James.
she appears as the same Julie that I haven't seen before.
That's interesting.
Did she say anything to you about her marriage and the state of marriage?
I'm going to basically fall back on reading my testimony because, again, I don't have a lot of, it's been a long time. I do believe she had mentioned, and I don't remember the word, but that she was not happy. She didn't know how things were going. Let's put it that way.
She wasn't happy about her marriage.
I would want to say just more unhappy at the moment. I don't, again, I would have to reread my testimony, but I would just say not in the best of moods about how things were with her at the moment.
First, I'm going to move that statement into evidence as an exhibit.
Is it Mark? All right, let's get Mark with the clerk.
See, now that you said that, Daisy girl, it makes me think, who was in my room last night? Who the hell was in my bed? Butthole surfers, yeah.
Last sentence was?
Actually, the last two sentences.
Okay, based on what I said back then, I would assume that's what I said. Again, it's been 20 some years. So if she mentioned it as being unhappy, then I would assume that's what she said.
So the recorded recollection at that time was, quote, Julie did mention that her marriage wasn't going well and that she wasn't sure what to do next. She didn't know what to do about Mark or her marriage. That was your statement on August 28, 2002, correct?
Correct.
And on August 28, 2002, you had a clear recollection of that communication or the conversation you had with Julie. Is that true?
Yes.
Oh, come on.
I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Ross?
There you go.
Karen, you said that you became friends with the Jensens because your husband worked with Mark.
Correct.
And although they met each other in 90 or 91, you specifically remember that you became closer after Douglas was born.
I've been trying to think this whole thing through, and again, it's been a long time. I don't have recollections. We may have done things socially with them earlier in the 90s, but my clear recollections are when we went biking and we went cross-country skiing, Douglas was old enough to sit up. So again, depending on when Douglas was born, I'm guessing that's when we maybe did things more socially.
So your
Wow.
memory is that you did things more socially after Douglas was born, although you may have done things previous to that.
Again, I do not remember. I've been trying to rack my brain to remember if I remember seeing him as a baby, and I'm sorry, it's just not there.
And when you did things as a family, it was like activities or dinner in the home.
Correct.
And by activities, I mean the cross-country skiing in Indoor County,
Correct.
biking.
Correct.
Did you guys do hiking also?
Those are really the only two instances I clearly remember that I have some memories of are the biking and the cross-country skiing.
When you guys went to Door County, you would stay in hotels?
Correct.
Do you remember ever getting babysitters?
Oh,
for
the
children
memory's
going to
a
strip
tricky
clubs?
thing.
You would see Julie when you did these things as a family. Would you consider her a close friend?
What is this thing with strip clubs? That they were getting babysitters to go to strip clubs. I mean, okay.
I guess to me, close is someone you call up if you're down or they're down or whatever. And so I would say maybe not. I would say a social friend that I felt comfortable with, that I knew their children, but maybe not. I wouldn't consider it close.
So you guys would see each other occasionally when you guys were meeting with your families?
Correct.
Or they were coming to your house for dinner or you were going to their house
Correct.
for dinner? Julie didn't talk to you about the affair she had in 1991?
I did not know about that. No.
She didn't talk to you about her mother's alcoholism or any depression in her family?
The mother's problems, I don't know where I would have found that out because of everything that's happened over the last. I don't know where I would have known that from.
So you do know it, you're just not sure where you
Correct. I don't know if it would have been from Julie. I don't remember if it would have been from Julie or not.
You've spoken to other people about this case, including your husband.
Well, yeah, we were on trial last time.
And you've spoken about like what you remembered and what others have told you to each other.
Correct.
So it's possible you got that from him.
It's possible. It's possible she told me. I don't have a recollection.
That's right. Now you said that you observed the family interact when you guys were together hiking and biking.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
And you also observed the family.
Not my head. Is that what you're telling me? Okay, sorry.
That is what I'm saying. You also saw the family interact in October of 1998.
Yes,
Briefly
very briefly.
on this bike ride.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes. Sorry.
And is that because did you bike down from Milwaukee?
No, we live in Racine, so we would have biked from Racine.
So you biked from Racine, kind of stopped at the Jensen home.
Mhm.
I think you testified you saw them outside
If my recollection is correct, they were working in a yard.
and you didn't see any issues between the two of them.
No.
Prior to October of 1998, when was the time before that you had socialized with the Jensens?
I don't know.
Is there a time that you stopped socializing with the Jensens because of your husband's comments to you about Mark Jensen having an affair?
Yes.
And that was sometime in the
Oh.
summer of 1998, if you remember.
No memory.
And during the bike ride, you stayed for a short period of time.
Correct.
You didn't observe anything unusual?
Nothing unusual.
Julie Jensen didn't express any fears or concerns to you?
No.
So I want to go to this Culver's lunch that you and Julie Jensen had.
Okay.
Was that in Kenosha?
Yes.
And so you drove to Kenosha to meet her for lunch.
Yes.
And she had Douglas at the time.
Yes.
And do you remember how old he was? 2 to 3 years old?
That would be my estimation.
And just like most 3-year-olds, Julie was kind of doting on him,
Yes.
making sure that he was eating,
Yes.
making sure that he was staying in his seat,
Trying.
making sure he wasn't running around Culver's restaurant.
Correct.
And during this time, you had an opportunity to talk to her.
Yes.
Did you ask her if she was depressed?
No.
Did you ask her if she had been locking herself in her room?
No.
Did you ask her if she had been refusing to come to eat?
No.
Daisy, that probably would have been my lovely wife, more than likely.
If, can I add? If anything, I would have just asked how she was.
And when you asked how she told you she was unhappy.
Correct.
And during that time, she never expressed any fear of Mr. Jensen.
I can't say.
And you can't say because your memory is not clear about everything that's happened over the last 24 years.
Correct.
Well, Rabbit, that deserves to be shown right there. That is awesome. I'm so glad to hear that your grandson is going to fly in to come see you. That is really, really awesome. And hey, it's okay if you're not around, spend some time with family. Family is awesome. Family is great. So congratulations that your grandson's coming to see you. I like that. That's good.
In 1990, I'm sorry, not in 1990. In 2002, you talked to.
Oh, and also, I probably won't be streaming Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because I will be out of town for the weekend. So I probably won't be doing any streaming, and I'll have to catch up maybe Monday night. So I might be a little bit late on, getting on Monday. I'll know better what my schedule looks like. I'll try to stream a little bit on Friday morning, but no guarantees.
Dr. Breisberg.
Correct.
And he wanted to know everything that you knew about Julie Jensen and Mark Jensen.
Correct.
He knew that you had lunch with Julie Jensen at Culver's
Yes.
because your husband had told him.
Yes.
So he wanted to know about that interaction.
Yes.
And he asked you questions about it.
Yes.
He asked you what you observed.
I'm guessing.
He asked you what Julie Jensen said to you.
I would assume.
And then after that, a statement was written.
Okay.
And you had a chance to review that statement, Exhibit 23. Yes?
Yes.
Did you write that or did Detective Ratsford write it?
I do not know.
It starts off with myself and my husband. Does that refresh your memory as to whether you wrote it or he wrote it?
I do not know.
So it's possible you wrote it or it's possible that Detective Ratsford wrote it and then you reviewed it.
Well, hopefully not. We don't want that to happen. We want you feeling,
I do not know.
up
don't you know?
and better.
I don't know if I wrote it or he wrote it.
Chipper.
But no matter who wrote it, after it was
Say
written, you
chipper.
reviewed it.
Correct.
And you signed it.
Correct.
And in fact, when you signed it, it says, I have read the above statement and found it to be true and correct.
Yes.
And there's nothing in this statement about Julie Jensen expressing any fear of her husband.
No.
I have nothing further. Thank you, ma'am.
Exhibit 23 has been received in evidence. Is that correct? Exhibit 23 has been received in evidence. Is that correct, Your Honor?
Yes.
Okay.
23 is received.
Judge, I think my concern is that we asked very specific questions about Exhibit 23, but I'm not sure we asked every single thing that was in there.
Well, I only got one question.
He's got
Oh.
one question.
So looking at the exhibit, it's clear that this statement was not written by anybody. It was
Talking
typed,
about
correct?
the court pick.
When I've seen it, yes.
I don't know.
And it's on a form statement.
Well,
with
that's
the name,
right.
Sharon K. Nearing, and so forth, correct?
Correct.
So unless at the time you obtained this, or at the time Paul Rathford obtained this statement from you, were you sitting at a typewriter or a computer, or
So
was
great.
Mr. Ratsberg, or do you remember anybody sitting at a computer?
No memory. I
There
remember
we go.
talking to him. I don't remember the particulars of what was happening.
But it was a typewritten statement, correct?
Correct.
Nothing further.
Thank you. You were excused. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks, perfect timing. We can take our lunch break. Please be back at 1:15. Please
Oh,
don't follow
cool.
the case.
So we will skip over the whole lunch break here. Man, this is just zipping right along. And nope, that's not it. Somewhere here, maybe.
Second floor of a bank building.
Nope. And there. Maybe.
Rosemary, Rosemary.
All right,
Middle
Rosemary.
name Elizabeth, Elizabeth. Last name MacInnes, Mac, capital INNES, like Sam.
Thank you. Are you going to do the question, Ms. McNeil?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead.
Ms. McGinnis, I want you to think back to the summer of 1998. During that time period, did you join
Summer
the Stiefel
of
Nicholas office in Racine?
Yes, in July of '98.
And was that a new office that was opening?
They had opened it a couple of months prior to my starting there. I thought maybe in June that they opened it up.
And you started working there in July?
Yes.
Of 1998.
Of 1998,
And do you recall when in July or just July?
22nd.
July 22nd. And where had you worked before?
I worked at Piper Jaffray, another brokerage firm that was downtown Milwaukee.
All right. And so now you're working in the Racine office of Stiefel Nicholas?
Yes, I went from Piper Jaffray to Stiefel Nicholas with a broker who moved to that office, and I went with him as his assistant,
And who was that broker?
Daniel Exner.
Now, how big was the Stiefel Nicholas office at the time that you would have moved there?
It was a very small office, about 4 or 5 brokers, 3 support staff, sales assistant, and cashier. So there were 3 females, and the rest were the brokers, all male.
And so these other women, did they have the same position as you did?
Meredith Perez was hired as the cashier and receptionist,
Meredith Schultz was hired as a sales assistant, so she would work with the brokers. And I was a sales assistant to Daniel Exner.
So 3 women and 2 Merediths. Now, did they go by
Oh.
nicknames?
Yes, they did. Meredith Perez, we called Midge, M-I-D-G-E, and Meredith Schultz went by Mary, and I think she spelled it M-E-R-R-I,
How long did you end up working at the Stiefel Nicholas office in Racine?
until about March of 2005, and that's when I transferred to the Brookfield office of Stiefel.
Now, when you started working there in 1998, was Mark Jensen also working there?
Yes, he was a branch manager.
And I want you to particularly direct your attention back to the time period when you were working with Mark Jensen in this office. Did you ever, during that time period, receive any harassing phone calls?
No, not at all.
And did Mark Jensen ever complain of any harassing phone calls that he was receiving?
I did not hear him complain about any.
And did you and the other women in the office, was it your job to open the mail?
Actually, Midge, Meredith Perez, opened the mail. She was in a little area similar to that, so she was kind of caged off. And she would open the mail and receive in checks, hand deliver the whatever they were supposed to go to the brokers. If it was a copy of a letter that the client sent or something on that order, that was Midge, Meredith Perez's job.
So the brokers did not open their own mail?
Definitely not.
Did you ever hear of any mail coming in that was pornographic in nature?
I did not hear anything like that.
And did you ever hear Mark Jensen complain that he was getting any mail that was pornographic in nature?
I did not hear that at all.
Now, did you ever hear Mark Jensen complain about any pornographic material being left on his vehicle?
No, I did not hear anything like that either.
Do you know where he would park his vehicle?
Kind of parked his vehicle towards the back of the parking lot, not right up front. I think he was afraid that maybe somebody hit it or something, because most of the people parked closer to the building, and he would park his car further back in the parking lot.
Based upon where his office was, would he be able to see the parking lot?
I believe he would have been able to.
So through whatever window was in his office?
Yes, he would sit forward to his computer, but he could swing around. So I'm sure he wasn't
Oh.
looking out the window at all times. And it was a second floor of a bank building, so there was the drive-through there. But because of the area that he parked in towards the southeast corner, I believe he should have been able to see his vehicle.
Well, only if he was looking.
And that's based on also where you knew he parked his vehicle.
Mhm.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Interesting.
Now, I want to direct your attention to December 3rd of 1998. Was that a memorable day for the office?
Yes, it was.
And is that because that's the day Julie Jensen died?
Yes, it is.
Now, on that day, did
Sorry,
Mark?
did you say December 3rd or 4th? I just didn't hear
I
you.
thought I
Sorry.
said 3rd. Thank you. Okay, so we're
Third.
referring to
Yes,
this
we're
time.
talking about the 3rd.
And so on that day, did Mark Jensen come into work?
No.
Now, given the size of the office, is that something you would have noticed whether he was at work that day?
There were only 2 entrances. One was the front entrance, which I sat right across from. So within 10, 15 feet, he'd have to walk through the glass doors there. That's also the door that the clients came through. Or he could have come up the hallway through the lunch area. And there again, because of the size of the office, he'd have to walk up that hallway and into his office.
All right, so based upon where you would typically be seated during the day, would you have seen him if he came in either of those entrances?
Yes.
And just generally him being around the office or in his own office, would you have seen him?
Correct.
Interesting.
Now, regarding that particular time period of December 3rd, 1998, approximately a week later, on December 11th of 1998, was the office having a Christmas party?
Yes, we were.
Was that Christmas party still held?
Yes, it was.
And was there some consideration or thought among yourself or other people in the office about canceling the Christmas party?
We had all asked Mark if we wanted to cancel it because we were all fine. Something like that happens in your family. The last thing you really want to do is go and celebrate.
And what was his response to that?
He doesn't want to ruin anybody else's time.
And so was the Christmas party held?
Yes, it was.
And did he attend the Christmas party?
Yes, he did.
And did you make any observations about his demeanor during the Christmas party?
He seemed to be enjoying himself, having cocktails, eating food, talking to everyone.
And did you observe him with anybody else during this Christmas party?
One of Meredith Schultz came by herself, and she was actually sitting next to Mark. I was a couple of seats to the left. And I guess I would say she was flirting with him. He didn't really flirt back, but he didn't tell her to stop it either. In fact, I'd even asked one of the brokers, Dan Exner, if he couldn't go and talk to Mark about it because it was making people feel uncomfortable, how that interaction was going.
And based upon your observations, did you believe that he was showing any signs of mourning at this Christmas party?
I didn't really see any myself, no.
Now, in this office, was there a person working there named Dave Nearing?
There was a person, yes, he was one of the brokers, David Nearing, yes.
And did Dave Nearing ever say anything to you about finding a notebook that had drawings in it belonging to Mark Jensen?
I don't know if Dave Nearing actually told me or if he told one of the other brokers about it or if we were in a conversation and he brought it up.
Objection, hearsay, Your Honor.
Yes.
The cross-examination suggested that there was recent fabrication about this point from Mr. Nearing, and so this prior consistent statement would be admissible.
Judge, I think we should have a.
What's that?
I think we should have a sidebar.
Guess what? You get an early break, folks.
There you go.
So when Dave Nearing testified,
right, the jury is outside the court. Mrs. McNeil, give me your reasoning again why you should be allowed to get into this.
So when Dave Naring testified about having found this notebook, he was cross-examined based on having not stated that before in a written statement to Ratsburg in his prior testimony. And so a prior consistent statement is admissible if it is to rebut the recent fabrication. So the implication of cross-examination is you're just coming up with this. And this witness can say, no, Dave Naring talked about it years ago.
All right, go ahead. Who's gonna
Still hearsay.
Just because Attorney Jim Boyce told me about this notebook this morning. It's the first time the defense had ever received any discovery about some notebook that was recovered from Mr. Jensen's office sometime in 1990 to 1991. There was no specific questions to Mr. Nearing about whether he told Ms. McGinnis, and she just testified she wasn't sure if he was the one that told her or somebody else did. So there's potentially two layers of hearsay there. That's my second concern. Third, we were never notified that this witness had mentioned this at all. In fact, she testified previously and gave a statement to the detective and is in none of those places. So if there's specific notes that she gave a statement to someone before today that Mr. Nearing told her that, the defense has a right to that discovery.
Well, what
Oh.
I did during the lunch hour,
Boom.
I reread State versus Jensen, 331 Wisconsin, second, 440. That was the
Damn.
Court of Appeals decision.
Good catch on the defense.
Decided December 29, 2010. I'm not going to get into the issue of confrontation and the letter and all that other issues that were decided later by the Supreme Court of Wisconsin and the United States Supreme Court. But this case that I just cited talked about the penis issue pretty extensively. And I'm shocked how many times they mentioned the word penis. And what did this case say? Now, this is guidance for me. And I like it because it makes my rulings a little easier. So what does it say about this evidence that we are trying to keep out? It's admissible as part of the panorama of evidence surrounding the offense. And it talks about numerous witnesses. It talks about the state's theory that before Mr. Jensen, this is the Court of Appeals talking, not me. Before Jensen murdered his wife, Jensen engaged in a campaign of emotional torture by repeatedly confronting Julie with pornographic photos. The evidence involved the relationship between the principal actors, Jensen and Julie, and traveled directly to the state's theory as to why Jensen murdered Julie. Then it goes on to say, it also goes to the issue of the computer, because there's an issue of pornography on the computer, and that Mr. Jensen regularly surfed the computer regarding the issue of pornography. So the computer is also an issue in this case. And then it also, we're going to have other witnesses that are going to testify. The state talked about Kelly Jensen, and I believe her last name is different now, but it also talks about Kelly Jensen's testimony. And it goes on to say, it tended to show that Jensen had a long-standing fascination or obsession with penises. Given this, was likely the one responsible for the penis-focused photos stored on the home and office computer and left around the Jensen home to emotionally torture Julie. Each category of evidence Jensen complains upon was properly admitted. So it's coming in.
I'm not arguing as to relevance.
It's coming in.
No, I get
You argued this morning that it was relevant. So don't tell me now it's not relevant.
This time I'm not
I'll get the
Don't
transcript.
start
I'm not
the
arguing relevancy.
judge.
You argued that this morning. So we're
No,
done.
she
Bring the
didn't.
jury
I'm
back.
arguing hearsay.
You argued a different objection this morning, and now you're saying I didn't say that.
No, I'm saying, Judge, I agree with you as to this morning. I'm not
You can't
arguing,
have every argument you want and get the last word in.
Judge, I'm not arguing as to relevancy from Ms. McGinnis. I'm arguing that it's hearsay. She just testified
Boy,
that she
this
wasn't sure if
judge
she
is
heard it from
so-
Mr. Nearing or
such
heard it
an
from someone
angry
else.
little
That's
man.
hearsay. And I don't have a right to confront that individual who may have said that to her because that person hasn't been called. That's the objection. I didn't object as to relevancy.
Are you done?
Yes.
Okay. Bring in the jury, and we'll let the state ask their question on the issue of what was your statement again before I lost my train of thought here?
So what I was asking is whether Ms. McGinnis had heard from Dave Naring before about this notebook.
That question will be allowed. Thank you.
Oh,
I don't know where the bailiffs
jeez.
are. I went to get the jury, Your Honor.
I mean, I understand, but come on.
All right, the jury.
Crazy.
Well, you can go and ask the questions.
So did Dave Naring ever tell you anything about finding a notebook with
Yes, Rabbit. The defense did tick off the judge because they lodged an objection, and he basically pulled up the old court case and why it was allowed in, because this man's obsession with penises, leaving them around that more than it's a ridiculous reason for letting it in, but the judge is allowing it. I think the judge does not like this defense attorney, or he just doesn't like this case at all, and he's just angry little man.
penis drawings in it?
I'm going to repeat what I said. It probably was when we were in a group. I didn't have a relationship with Dave Nearing that would have him come and talk to me about penises. So I believe it was, we're standing in the office talking about this stuff, kind of confused at why somebody would even leave it out.
All right, and you've described the context for us now. So what did Mr. Naring say about what he had found?
He had actually
I know he had found one when Mark worked at a prior firm. And that's the one that I remember Dave talking about. And it was like notepads that people would have with their name on the top. And there were drawings of different sizes and shapes and kind of page after page after page.
And this conversation you were involved in, was that years ago?
Yes, it was.
And do you have an estimation of how long ago it was?
When I worked down in the Racine branch. So somewhere between 98 and 2005.
Now, when you were working at that Racine branch, that's the time period when Mark Jensen was arrested for this, correct?
I was actually, yes, he was arrested in 2002 or 2003.
Yeah, so do you recall that time period?
Yes.
And shortly thereafter, did a detective come to the Racine branch?
Yes, I did.
And did that detective take various things for evidence from the Racine branch?
Yes,
He did?
Yes.
I have nothing further. Thank you.
Cross-examination.
Thank you. So, Ms. McInnes, did I say your name right?
Yes.
Okay. I just didn't know where you were.
Oh, sorry, I'm hiding over here in the corner.
I saw her talking before. Okay, go ahead. So I understand you joined the Stifel group in July of 1998.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And prior to that, you were with, I think,
Piper Jaffrey. Yes.
Okay. Now, you never actually worked at Baird with Mr.
No,
Jensen.
I did not work at Baird.
Never worked at Baird at all. At all. So you didn't meet Mr. Jensen until July 22nd of 1998.
Correct.
And I understand you and Mr. Jensen weren't friends outside of work.
No.
You didn't hang out socially.
Well, I live in Brookfield and they're down there, so in Racine or Kenosha area. No, I did not hang out with Mark Jensen.
You didn't have personal conversations with him.
First of all, I'd only been there. I started in July, so I don't know if people really go into personal things like the first few months that you're there. You're trying to understand what your job duties are, how to work the computers. And so, no, I did not have any real personal conversations.
So you didn't have conversations with Mr. Jensen about his wife being depressed.
No, I never heard that. I know that Julie brought in some food once. Well, Julie would make it. Mark would bring in some food once in a while and say, oh, Julie made this. Julie would come in with the two boys, his two sons once in a while. I didn't see that she was depressed when those things were happening.
Okay. And what year would that have been?
That would have been, yeah, 1998, 99.
Now,
98, I should say, not 99.
Now, you had testified about Mark's office at Stifel.
Mhm.
You said he had a window in his office,
Yes, a big window in the back of him.
and he would park in such a way that he would see his vehicle.
Not if he's sitting looking at his computer, which nobody sits and looks at your computer all day long. You talk on the phone, you kind of turn around, and at that point, he would have been able to see it, but not when he's watching his computer.
So he parked in a way that he could turn around and see his car.
I believe so, yes.
All right. And you said that was not where most people parked.
No, he parked further back in the southeast corner, and a lot of the other people would park on the south side. They parked on the west side. There was a parking lot.
Okay. Now, you were first spoken to about this case in 2002. That's right?
Yes.
And that was after Mr. Jensen had been charged in this case.
Yes. We heard about it on the phone. One of the clients called up and said something that he had heard that he was arrested.
Okay. When you spoke with Detective Ratsford, so that was about 4 years after Ms. Jensen's death?
Yes.
Wow.
So you didn't speak with the police right after Ms. Jensen's death?
No.
You didn't speak with them after the Christmas party?
No.
And as far as work attendance, if a broker was not in the office, you didn't make notes about that, right?
No, but if he's calling in, it's going to stick in your mind more. No, because they would go see clients and things like that. But if you're calling up, kind of giving little reports as the day goes on, that's more memorable.
And did you speak with Mark Jensen on December 3rd?
No, I did not. But Midge, Meredith Perez, was the one that would answer the phone.
Okay.
Mark would tell her a few things and then transfer him to like Dave Nearing or something.
Okay. So on December 3rd, did you find out about Julie Jensen's death?
Yes, towards the afternoon.
You found out about it that afternoon?
Yes. Mark called up and said that she had passed.
Okay. And did you take that phone call?
No, Midge did.
So Midge answered the majority of the calls, fair to say?
Yes, she did. Yes, she was the receptionist and cashier.
And Midge, again, was the one who opened the mail?
Correct.
That wasn't your duty?
If she wasn't there, if the other Mary wasn't there, then obviously somebody has to do it. It would be my responsibility. One of the three of us. But Midge was first in line. Meredith, Mary was second in line, and I was third.
So on December 3rd, did you go to lunch?
Yes, I did.
Where did you go?
I don't even remember where I went to lunch yesterday. But to me, lunch isn't as important as somebody passing away. So it's not memorable enough to care about.
Right. But you may have left the office during the lunch hour?
Yes, I would have, but the other two ladies were there then.
Okay.
And
And
I'm not even sure if I left because a lot of times I didn't go out for lunch.
so you have no recollection of that?
Nope.
And fair to say, typically you would go to lunch around 11:30 and 12:30?
Somewhere in there.
And you take an hour?
Yeah, half hour, 45 minutes, an hour. Wasn't
And
set in stone.
fair to say people would kind of come and go as time allowed in that office?
Not the ladies. The guys, yes. The brokers, yes. They could come and go as they pleased. They normally told us where they were going, so the clients called in that we could figure out how long they'd be gone.
Okay.
But the ladies kind of had a set schedule.
So if Mr. Jensen were to go talk to a client outside of the office, that would not be strange.
Not at all.
In fact, you kind of expected the
Mhm.
brokers to do that in your
Yes.
work.
Yes, provide service for their clients, correct.
Oh,
Was Mr. Jensen a person that would cry at the office often?
I'm objecting to relevance, crying often at the office.
Let's just go ahead. Do you know the answer, man?
I've never seen him cry.
All right. Stand. Thank you. Let's go.
Thank you. Now, you testified today about a Mr. Nearing talking to you about sketches. Is that correct?
Talking to the office, not directly to me, but yes, talking to the office
about these sketches, yes. And was that was after Mr. Jensen was charged? I don't remember if it was before or after. Probably
Oh.
after, yes. And you're aware that, strike that. And you said that it was maybe David, maybe somebody else that, no, it was Dave, because he worked with Mark at Baird. He is the one that saw that notebook or that notepad with all of the sketches on it. I believe your testimony, though, was that it may have been David who told you, or it may have been someone else that David told. Is that correct? David didn't tell me directly. I believe he was talking in the office, and we were all there. The office is small enough that you can hear it. We were probably standing around a desk, kind of shocked. Was Mr. Nearing once a
Okay.
gossip in the office? Dave liked to talk.
That's a yes.
And actually, Dave liked to talk, and he knew Mark very well. So he
Because-
liked to talk about Mark because they used to
Yeah.
go out as couples all the
Come on,
time.
don't stop her.
So he probably knew more about Mark than any of us. Okay. And you also testified about a Christmas party? Yes. And at this Christmas party, Mr. Jensen was seen with Meredith Schultz. I don't call it seen with. Well, you saw him with her, talking with her. Well, yes, it depends on how you say with. He didn't come with her. I don't know if he left with her because I left beforehand. But yes, they were sitting next to each other, engaging in conversation, talking, laughing. Yes. And you said that she was flirting with him, but he really didn't flirt back? I don't remember him flirting back, no. Okay. I don't remember him saying, excuse me, but this isn't the proper thing to do. But I don't believe he was flirting back. Nothing further.
Redirect.
I have no further
All right,
questions.
thank you. You can leave. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. Later, lady.
He calls Kelly Brooks, formerly Kelly Labonte, and that is number 39.
Oh,
39.
Here comes,
Thank you.
here comes Kelly Brooks. This was the lady that supposedly he was having an affair with. This could get spicy. Let's find out. Are we going to have some spiciness?
You just remain standing, and then I'm going to swear you in, okay? Take your time. Put up your right hand. Solemnly swear the testimony is made to be the truth. Whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you. Get as close as you can to the microphone, and spell your first and last name for the reporter, okay?
Kelly Jensen, or Brooks, Kellylybrookes.
Thank you. Who's going to do the question? Go ahead.
Now that's interesting. She's came in there identifying herself as Kelly Brooks. So she's remarried. Oh. Now it gets spicy.
Is your maiden name Labonte?
It is.
And Ms. Brooks, at some point, were you
She's got a little bit of a beard, I think. Maybe that's just me.
married to Mark Jensen?
Yes.
And do you see Mark Jensen in the courtroom today?
Yes.
And can you just point to him and describe something that he's wearing?
He's over there in a suit and tie.
Right, there's only one individual over there in a suit and tie. That's the individual right there. All right, it's been identified. Thank you.
So, Ms. Brooks, I want you to think back to approximately 1997. During that time period, did you join the firm Stiefel Nicholas?
Yes.
And do you know when about you started working for that firm?
I believe it was in February.
So you think February of 97?
Yes.
And where were you working? Like where physically were you?
I was in St. Louis at the corporate office.
And so this firm Stiefel Nicholas, it is headquartered in St. Louis?
That is a
And that is where you
serious
were.
beard she's got going on
And what
there.
was your job position?
I was administrative
Some
assistant to
men
the
find that attractive.
retail brokerage president.
Okay.
So,
And,
yeah. Sorry.
and so someone who worked at the headquarters of the firm?
Yeah.
And was he like a boss to other brokers at the firm?
Yeah. All the brokers reported to him.
And what was this person's name?
Scott McCaig.
And so during this time period, was Stiefel Nicholas, was it expanding, opening offices?
Yes, they were. We had a new president and CEO of the entire company come in, and he was big on expanding it.
And given your job with Scott McKay, did you help with the opening of new offices?
I did.
And so did you end up coming to Wisconsin several times to open offices?
Yes.
Now, when do you recall first meeting the defendant, Mark Jensen?
I believe I originally met him around April of '98.
And do you recall the context, how you met him?
He was one of the brokers that was being recruited to open an office
Mm.
up in the Racine, Wisconsin area.
So where were you when you met him? Do you recall?
I was in the corporate headquarters. They flew him out to St. Louis to meet with people there.
And Mr. Jensen was involved in a new office being opened, correct?
That's correct.
And were you one of the people who helped open that office?
Yes,
Where was that office?
it was in Racine.
Do you recall when it opened?
I want to say a couple months later, May, June, somewhere in there of '98.
Okay, so we're talking May or June of 1998 when the Racine office opened.
Somewhere around there, yes.
And so did you actually come to Wisconsin?
Yes.
And during that time period, did you meet Mark Jensen again?
Yes.
I would imagine
After that time period,
Cross
let's say
is
over the
going to
summer,
tear
of
her a new
1998,
one.
Did you ever communicate with Mark Jensen in any way?
Yes. Yes.
And how would you communicate with him?
There would be phone calls back and forth for various work things. And I believe I went out and he opened the office. I think there were 3 of them that came over then. And then there was another 1, maybe 2 that came over later. And I went out and helped bring those people on as well.
Now, over the course of this interaction with the defendant, did you learn that he was married?
Yes.
And did you learn that he had children?
Yes.
And as far as you were aware, he was still living in the same household with his wife and children?
Yes.
Did you ever meet Julie Jensen before her death?
No.
So during this time period, the summer of 1998, what was your relationship status?
I was engaged.
And who was the person you were engaged to?
Mark Greenman.
Oh,
Mark Greenman, you said?
Mark Greenman, yes.
Was that a fairly long-term relationship?
Yes. We had been seeing each other on and off for several years.
uh-huh.
And you didn't have any children, though?
No.
So as you continued communicating with the defendant, did you develop a romantic relationship with him?
Yes.
Do you recall the first time that you and the defendant had sexual relations of any sort?
It would have been, I believe, around September.
September of 1998?
Yes.
And do you recall
Wow.
where?
I think St. Louis.
Now, leading up to that point, had you,
Yes, it was on a
had sexual
desk.
relations with him? Yes. Now, I'm going to show you what has been marked as State's Exhibit 21. So looking at that exhibit, can you tell us what it is?
It looks like email messages between me and Mark.
Mhm.
Now, at some point during the course of this case, did you learn that police had obtained email messages between yourself and the defendant?
I'm sorry, can you state the first part?
At some point during the course of this case, did you learn that police had obtained email messages between yourself and the defendant?
Yes.
And so State's Exhibit 21, what you're looking at here, would those be the email messages that you learned were obtained by the police?
Yes.
So fair to say it's not every email you ever sent to the defendant during this time period?
That is correct.
So State's Exhibit 21 is the physical exhibit. I would like to display on the screen State's Exhibit 20, and this would be the file labeled emails. Now, Ms. Brooks, we're obviously talking about something that is quite a long time ago, 1998. And so I'm going to ask you some questions about these email messages during that time period.
Okay.
Look at that.
Can you see the screen and see whether that matches the exhibit that is in front of you?
But it looks similar.
So if I zoom
That's a
in a bit,
little spicy
you know,
right
look at the top of your
there.
exhibit.
If you can
Yes.
continue to be a good boy,
Okay,
maybe
all right,
we'll
perfect.
you'll
But for
get
your
what you
purposes,
wish
can look at
for.
the paper exhibit in
Okay.
front of you.
I would enjoy.
All right, so I'm going to go down. Do you see how these emails are in a thread?
Yes.
And so is it actually the oldest email that is at the bottom of the page?
Right. The oldest is at the bottom.
So when we're talking about the thread, the
Yes.
one that is the older is at the bottom, and then you work your way up
Right.
to get to the replies and,
Right.
and so forth. Okay. All right. So now looking at the first page of the exhibit in front of you, do you see an email between yourself and the defendant from September 3rd of 1998 at the time on your email says 6:58 a.m.
Yes.
See that? Now, typically, would you be emailing so early?
No.
So do you believe that this time period is not correct?
That is correct. Yes, it would be wrong.
All right. And so this email that we're looking at from you to the defendant, it says, "Thanks again for yesterday. What a wonderful idea you had and a wonderful time we had." Do you have any idea what you were referring to?
Not specifically, no.
Okay. So would this refer to a time when the defendant was in St. Louis with you?
Yes.
And then,
Yes.
do you recall anything else about that now that you've looked at it?
No.
All right. So now the following line begins with the
it's not that
letters
memorable.
IDLY.
Oh, right.
What do those letters stand for?
I do love you.
All right. So then that line would be, "I do love you even more now, but no surprise, you are too wonderful for words."
Yes.
And then XO, talk to you soon. Correct.
Yes.
What does XO stand for?
Hug and kiss.
So by this time, you are at least talking flirtatiously with. your
Correct.
defendant,
Yes.
And you make some reference to having seen him.
Yes.
All right. Now, just moving up the page, do we see his reply to you Thursday, September 3rd, 1998, 10:04 a.m.?
Yes.
All right. And so in that reply, he says, "Thank you. Wish I hadn't been so tired. So little sleep the previous nights. Was great just hanging out. Definitely lucky. Got a few looks and question about being in St. Louis. Cute. All covered. Then Ron called. It was all about Columbus. Just funny the way it flowed. Hey, came in this morning and my blinds were up and I do like those knobs. IDLY. Cheers." Is that accurate?
Yes.
So he uses the same phrase with you. "I do love you."
Yes.
And then moving up to the next email, this is your reply to him. And again, so your reply says 8:09 a.m., but that time doesn't make sense with his 10:04 a.m. email.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
And so do you believe your replies were earlier than when you were actually replying?
I think the timestamp states earlier.
The timestamp
Yeah.
earlier?
Mhm.
All right. And then going up to the top, take a look at this email from the defendant to
With
you.
my
This is
knobs
2:44
and my
p.m. the same
blinds
day.
and preferred cheeks on my desk.
What does he say there in that email?
Wouldn't mind knobs on my blinds, would prefer cheeks on my desk. Cheers. Did you smile?
So he's flirting with you.
Yes.
And then at the very top of your reply, what do you say in your reply?
If you continue to be a good boy, maybe you'll get what you wish for. I would enjoy participating. Yes, I smiled. I would smile when talking with you.
Okay, so you're receptive to the flirting.
Yes.
Of course.
All right, so moving on to the next page of the document that you have in front of you. And again, to get to the beginning of the email chain, we have to actually go pretty far down. So if you look at your exhibit at page 3 at the bottom.
Oh my. Oh boy, getting Olive Garden.
For this particular email chain from September 4th of 1998, it then begins at the bottom of page 3, correct?
Yes.
Maybe.
And it starts with questions about lunch plans.
Right.
All right, so now moving up,
Hardly free.
you see
How
this
about
email in the middle of the
Olive Garden?
page from September 4th, 1998, 11:15 a.m.
Yes.
I know
The
it.
defendant says to you, know what I'd rather eat, and
Yes.
then there's certain symbols.
Yes.
Okay, what is he saying?
He's making a sexual connotation.
And that's oral sex.
Yes.
When you initially had your first sexual relations with the defendant, was it oral sex?
Yes.
And
He
was it
wants to
one or both of you
play
who
that
performed oral
route.
sex?
Both.
Yes.
All right, and then moving up through the pages.
No.
Sometimes
I can't
when you were
understand
communicating
why
with the
someone
defendant, would
either.
you complain to each other about your current significant others?
Yes.
So he would complain to you about his wife,
Yes.
and would you complain to him about your fiance?
Yes.
And so if you look at the bottom of page 2, this email from September 4th at 11:34 a.m., it reads, yep, lover's nuts thing going on here. My own fault. Turned it down last night after I came in because I was pissed. She knew it. Dutiful thing. Right now, dutiful would do. Nah, cheers. And then it continues, thinking about my desk right now. Now that's a way to enjoy lunch. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And so is he complaining about his wife in that when he calls her dutiful thing?
Yes.
Oh boy. So, yes.
And then looking now, this would be page.
And definitely, I agree with you so much on that. And I'm so glad to see that you're the same way. Because, man, it just, yeah, I do not understand the whole cheating thing at all. I don't get it. That makes not a whole lot of sense to me. Just don't get it.
2, and this is the email from September 4th at 11:49 a.m. And it reads, got pissed last night because of her attitude in spa. She knew I was when I got out. I sat out on the deck for hours. When I came in finally, I just reversed the don't touch me thing. So is that again another complaint about his wife?
Yes.
Would he complain to you about sexual issues with his wife?
Yes.
All right, now at the very top here, your final reply in this chain, what do you say here at the top of page 2?
Did we miss the window of opportunity? I meant with our significant others, not each other.
Okay, so
So
at that point, your perception
she-
was that the window of opportunity.
she was cheating also. It wasn't just him. She was actually engaged and getting a little bit of side action. He's married and getting a bit of side action. They're both just, man, these people, gosh.
was completely open with the defendant.
I'm not sure what I meant there, quite honestly, because it says I meant with our significant others, not each other. Oh, okay, yes. I see what you're saying now. Yeah, that there was a window of opportunity for us. Yes.
And maybe you missed it with the people that
And
you
I
were
should be
Yeah,
on for a while,
that's what it
Daisy
sounds like I'm
Girl
saying, yes.
Williams. I hope I can finish this out tonight. We'll see.
Now, if you just turn quickly to page 4 and take a look at what that email is. Is this email just essentially about stocks?
Yes.
Now, turning to page 5, does that begin another email thread?
Yes.
And so if we want to get to the beginning of that thread, is that at the bottom of page 6?
Yes.
So way off to the side here. This is an email from you, also on September 4th, to the defendant. And you're asking him, what kind of music do you prefer to listen to when being romantic? Is that correct?
Yes.
A little Barry
And then you
White.
and he have a few emails exchanged back and forth on that topic. He replies to you about what music,
Yes.
and then you tell him, work with me here.
Yes.
A bit of
All right, and then he
Everly
suggests
Brothers.
that thing you do or reggae.
Yes.
Okay, is that thing you do an actual song?
Yes.
All right. And so then along that same chain, if you go to page 5 and go to the email from September 4th of 1998 at 4:08 p.m., skipping past the beginning part of that email, does he say, I'm going to have to go home and try to fix my high maintenance woman. If I stopped and got Titanic on the way home, wonder if I could get her to sit next to me on the couch. Low expectations. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so along the same lines, he's once again complaining about his wife to you.
Yes.
All right. And then your response above, you are such an incredible man. I want one.
Yes.
Correct. And then he responds, thanks. You can have me.
Yes.
You call him a tease.
Yes.
He responds, who's teasing?
Yes.
And then your response is, I could get used to having you around permanently. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And so this is all on September 4th of 98.
Yes.
Lovers.
Now directing your attention.
Oh, and love
You
is
go to
young
page 8.
and silly.
All right. So looking at this email, 9/4/98, 3:56 p.m., you're asking whether Midge gave him the message that you had called. Is that correct?
Yes.
And was Midge a secretary there in Racine?
Yes. Yes.
So not only were you emailing with the defendant, you would also call him frequently?
Yes.
And did you have a cell phone at that time?
I did.
And would you call him on your cell phone?
Yes.
Would you call on work phones?
Yes.
So for instance, this would have been a call to his work.
Yes.
But you wouldn't call him at home, would you?
No.
Probably a
Now,
wise
at some point,
choice.
did these calls become expensive?
The cell phone calls did. Yes.
And so did he give you any money for that?
He did send me money to pay the bill once or twice.
Okay, so now moving down to page 9.
Yes.
This is, do you see the very first email in this thread from September 9th of 1998 at 1:51 p.m.?
Yes.
Boom.
And then you talk about in this email to the defendant getting a massage tomorrow,
Right.
and then you the next day.
Lord.
So do you believe that there was some kind of meetup with the defendant sometime in the area of September 11th of 1998?
Yes.
Now, do you recall where that happened?
No. But I think it might have been in St. Louis.
Okay, so if we remember the earliest emails, it sounds like there was some kind of meetup in St. Louis early in September.
Yeah. I think that first one was he came into town for the day and we went to the zoo and just hung out. And then I'm not sure what this one was. Maybe a baseball game or something.
Do you remember around that time period going to a baseball game with the defendant?
Yes.
And was it in St. Louis?
Yes.
All right. And then the defendant in his follow-up email to you, September 9th, 1998, his reply is, you may sleep through the weekend, and then that face again.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And is that the one you testified to related to oral sex?
Yes.
And then you reply to him, you may be right. You ready for this?
Yes.
Okay. So again, you're receptive to this.
Yes.
Okay. So directing your attention to page 10.
So they were having a sordid affair. Of course, we know this already.
All right. Looking towards the middle of that page, an email from you to the defendant, September 15th of 1998, 7:05 a.m. And again, when you look at that time, do you think that's too early for you to be on your work email?
Yes.
So during that time period, did you only access your email from the office?
Yes.
And do you have any idea how the defendant accessed his email?
He would either from work or from home.
Okay. So
Come
did you
on.
have knowledge that he could access his work email from home?
I don't know if he could or not. I'm not exactly sure.
Okay. So you know, for you personally, though, you would have been at work to send these
Yes.
emails? Okay. Now, in this particular email, looking through it, are you complaining about your significant other to the defendant?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, so you're talking about trying to go in the hot tub and the man was too tired?
Yes.
Now, looking above that, is his reply to you, that's September 15th, 1998 at 9:39 a.m. Do you see that?
Yes.
Now, can you read these middle lines here, beginning with the line that begins with drugs and then ending before the next paragraph?
Drugs were still in effect last night, but got some wood, was thinking about someone else, got carried away, banged into the end of things, so to speak. She don't like that, and that was the end of that. Ha, fun. Aside from that, evening was lousy too, hovering, nothing to say.
Now, in those lines, what is he describing?
Having sex with his wife.
And he indicates he was thinking about someone else.
Yes.
So that would be you.
Yes.
And then indicating that she didn't like, she meaning his wife did not like what had happened.
Correct.
And then can you read the last two lines from him?
Oh, that same.
Yes, just the two below lines.
Feeling a lot more stable today, feeling kind of bad about some of the conversation yesterday. Wish I knew how much of the mood was chemicals and how much you. Cheers, idly.
Okay, so I do love you.
Yes.
Now, what are you talking about with him in terms of drugs?
I'm not sure.
Okay. And so was he
Yeah,
on some kind of drugs?
I'm sure she doesn't.
Not that I know of.
But he does talk about the drugs still in effect last night.
Yeah,
And you asked him about it?
I did.
Now, if it was the 90s, yeah, I would say that being a stockbroker was more than likely he was doing a little bit of the booger sugar more than likely, and so was she. So, just saying.
And then he follows that up with those lines about
Oh,
feeling.
okay. Yeah, okay. How are you the drugs?
She's playing coy,
Yeah,
like,
that's what I'm thinking,
oh,
something, but
I
don't
don't
remember
know
what it was.
anything. I never
So
done
your
anything
understanding
like
is these
that.
references
No,
are to
no,
him
no, not me.
regarding drugs and being in effect and feeling stable.
I believe so, yeah.
And then his response has to do with how much of the mood was chemicals and how much you.
Yeah,
So he appears to be referring to a good mood being either chemicals or you.
right.
All right. So that prior email being references to his wife, your response, you see at the very top there, 9:15:98, 9:46 a.m. You refer to she being so damn prudish about it.
Mhm.
So would that be a reference to his wife?
Yes.
And again, did he describe to you ways in which he thought his wife was prudish towards him?
Yes.
And did he ever get specific about that?
Probably no more than what was in that email.
And then you close that email with the XO IDLY always.
Yes.
Now, turning to the next page, page 11.
Oh, good Lord. Get through these emails.
Now, this email that you're looking at on
Yes,
page 11, if you
Cola
peruse that
was
quickly,
very big back
that's not
then.
so much about your relationship with the defendant, correct?
That is correct.
You're actually forwarding an email from somebody else to you.
Yes.
And was that person somehow connected to where you're from in Albuquerque?
Yes.
So now moving on to page 12. And in this next email, which is from 9/29/98, you at the very beginning of this email from you to Mark, you make some reference to this Albuquerque friend.
Yes.
Now, can you read those first two lines to us?
So am I just being an oversensitive chick with regard to Mark's comment last night? Be honest, I can take it in spite of what my friend in Albuquerque thinks.
Okay. And so when you're talking about Mark's comment last night, you're actually talking about your fiance, Mark Greenman, right?
Yes. Actually, he was my husband by then.
Okay. So when did you marry Mark Greenman?
I believe September 19th of 98.
Oh.
Yes.
And so during this time period, why did you decide to marry Mark Greenman?
Oh,
It had been an on again, off again thing for so long, and I guess, didn't have the courage to end it before moving forward with it.
wow.
Was the wedding set?
Yeah.
And where did you go to get married to him?
We went to Tahoe via San Francisco.
And so it's true
Mhm.
that in the midst of this month where you marry Mark Greenman, you are actively having an affair with the defendant.
Yes.
Whoa, God. Wow. You think mom
All right. So now
was
turning to page
good.
13. Now, does this email begin with some jokes that you had sent to the defendant?
Yes.
That's one of those joke emails?
Yes.
All right. And his response to that appears to be, and looking at kind of the middle of the page, Wednesday, September 30th, 1998, 2:05 p.m. His response to the joke email appears to be some type of joke, correct?
Yes.
And he makes a reference to Boy Scout.
Yes.
What was he referring to?
His penis.
So he calls his penis Boy Scout?
Yes.
I guess if you got to.
And then your response to him, cute, not liking him very much right now, are you?
Yes.
And then he responds to you, yes, I am. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. No, I'm not. Like you. Cheers.
Yes. Yes.
So what was he saying with the yes, I am. No, I'm not? Do you know what he was referring to?
I think it was like a conversation between him and his penis. He says, yes, I am. And it says, no, I'm not. That kind of thing. Just kind of a back and forth there.
And then it says, like you.
I don't know.
Were you somewhat non-committal during this time?
Yes. Yes, I was.
Okay, because we're talking about the time period right after you
Yeah,
got
she
married.
don't want to talk about
Right,
how
right.
Yeah, so if we're trying to picture the
the
timing,
bad things that
September
she's
19th
done.
of 1998 that you got married?
Yes.
How did
And you said you went out to Tahoe via California?
Yes.
And so you would have been going.
I ask that to women all the time. If they're going to cheat, why would you want to get married? What's the point? Oh, well, it's the security. Well, if you want security, get yourself a firearm. But getting married is not the way. If you're just gonna cheat, it doesn't work. It never does. It always falls apart.
Gone out of the area of St. Louis for about how long do you
It was about 8 to 10 days.
Okay, so maybe by sometime for sure before September 30th, you're back in St. Louis.
Yes.
Did the defendant know that you went to get married?
Yes.
Okay, did that prevent him from pursuing you?
No.
Now moving to page 15.
Come on, get to the point. Oh, this must be embarrassing.
Now, in terms of the
Have all
timing of
hand
these
curled
emails,
up like.
so you see there's kind of like
Mhm.
a big long email in the middle of the page there.
Mm-hmm.
And is that from the defendant to you?
Yes.
And then your response above that?
Yes.
So the timing of these emails, October 4th of 1998, and then your reply October 5th of 1998, what had happened right before these emails were sent? And I'm referring to early October of 98.
The opening of the Appleton office and the meeting that we had.
Okay, so beginning of October 1998, was there a new office opening for Stiefel Nicholas?
Yes, it was the Appleton office.
And were you involved in going to Appleton to help open?
Yes.
And was the defendant involved also in opening that office?
Yes, he was.
So this was a weekend?
Yes, over a weekend.
So a weekend when you and the defendant would be at a hotel with each other and seeing each other in person?
Yes.
Did that weekend, did you have sexual relations with the defendant?
Yes.
And so
Wow.
that particular weekend, did it go beyond oral?
Yes.
Just sexual intercourse?
Yes.
And so if we're seeing emails from after that time period, you can see references to that weekend. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Like, for instance, near the top of the defendant's email, it talks about up in Appleton.
Mm-hmm.
And he's referring to someone named Ed.
Yes.
All right, so I'm not going to have you read this whole chunk of text, but just going.
Oh
towards the
no,
bottom.
let's read this chunk of text. What does it have to say? They were talking again, seemed disappointed. Finally, Jones said, "On book, take care of. Point being, knowing Vicky thinks she can handle me too." The non-drinker wondered why I was there. I had more business, being he was in the office or typing change paper, blah blah blah. Vicky took it wrong. Oh yeah, it's like a wall of text. Oh boy.
If you read the last two lines of the big paragraph, the one that starts with "now that I can," do you see that?
Yes.
Can you read that out loud?
Now that I can think and I'm not totally distracted by this cute creature that was there.
Kind of bluntly told her she was wrong. Vicky told her she's wrong. Red hair. Didn't like that that was real cool. From people happy and satisfied. Wasn't there hops people more interesting in participant and observation? Okay.
There and had this ability to make everything else disappear.
And then how does he end this long email?
Idly and a true technical cheers to you, hoping you're okay with the tech thing.
Now, do you recall what he's talking about with the tech thing?
I think that was referring to technically having sex.
Would you agree that you and the defendant were somewhat distracted with each other during this office opening?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and then you sent him a response. This is October 5th of 1998 at 3:28 p.m. Do you see that?
Yes.
And you're receptive to what he's talking about with the technical thing?
Yes.
And then you end with IDLY to you too?
Yes.
Wow.
All right, so now I'd like to direct your attention. Do you see on page 16 how there's a long email string that starts?
Yes.
All right, so I'd like to direct your attention then to where that string would actually begin. So that would be page 18.
Okay.
All right, so this email string that we're talking about, it's referring to October 7th of 1998, correct?
Yes.
And then it just starts with "good morning" from you to the defendant.
Yes.
Now, at the very top of that page 18, you talk about having a bad night.
Yes.
And then his response to that, if you look on page 17 at the bottom of that page,
Mhm.
he talks about giving you a call later or a call soon.
Yeah. Yes.
And so you would call each other throughout the day. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And when you follow up with the ensuing emails, you're talking about your bad night. If you look at that page 17, you're talking about drinking, going out drinking.
Yes.
All right. So now, do you see the email that is from October 7th of 1998? That's 2:46 p.m. It's from the defendant to you, and it starts with "must be slipping."
Yes.
Okay. And then he refers to you getting married. See what getting married did to you?
Yes.
Okay. And now there's a few different letters that he ends the email with. We've already talked about the IDLY, but what's IWY?
I want you.
Said you were wondering how I felt, and I was curious what you thought. Cryptic anticipation. So when exactly can I really start messing with you? And don't be changing the subject to rubber baby bumpy bunkers. Cheers. Interesting. It's deep. Good morning. Just figured you were avoiding me. Good morning. Stuck on the phone. Damn. Okay. Good mornings. Good mornings. That's all it looks like. A bunch of good
If you
mornings.
look at how these emails continue going to page 18 and moving towards the top of page 18, is it
Morning.
continuing with the back and forth flirtatious emails?
On page 18 or 17?
Needs
So
a
I believe
couple
this
of
is page 18. Just want to make
cheeks.
sure.
Morning. More good mornings. Good morning text. Good morning.
Oh, I'm sorry, page 16.
Okay. Yes.
Good
Okay,
morning.
so you're continuing with the flirtatious emails with him.
Yes.
Now, early on in this email string, there was some reference to you writing a letter to him.
Good day, Andrea. Good to see you. Yes, she can.
Yeah.
Did you sometimes write letters to him?
Yes.
And would you send those letters to his work or to his home?
Probably to his work.
Do you have any specific memory of this letter from the time period of October 7th of 1998?
No.
Nope.
And would he ever write you letters or no?
Nope.
I don't recall. Maybe.
All right, so now I'd like to direct your attention. There's another email string that begins on page 20.
And I'm sure you're going to go through all of these emails of they're flirtatious.
Page 20, where the email string begins.
Give us
And
something
particularly,
good
I want you to look at
besides
the one
that
from
he
Thursday,
was
October
just,
8th,
you know, a piece
1998,
of
9:46
crap
a.m.
and
From the
as
defendant
was
to you.
she.
Now, in this email, do you see he first of all asks you, so are you a rollerball or a pen kind of person? Do you see
Yes.
that? And then he asks you, what is your favorite color fleece?
Yes.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And then he talks about fishing trips, Missouri, and fly fishing in Colorado. Is that correct?
Yes.
And was he a person who went fishing or did fishing?
Yes.
And fly fishing?
Yes.
Would he travel to do that?
I believe so. I believe he had.
All right. And then your response to that, you talk about, you're responding to the color of fleece and you talk about a deep green. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then apparently he talked about some interest in learning how to fly a plane.
Yes.
I saw that from the prior email.
Yeah.
And that would help get to fishing spots.
Yes.
Deep green works
All right, so
like you
now
should be
we are on page
wearing it.
19,
Got
the
to
very
keep
bottom of
those
page 19.
guys warm.
And once again,
flying,
this is an email from
something.
the defendant to you,
I just
October
thought I
8th,
wanted to do to be
1998,
fun.
10:44 a.m. Do you see the defendant
Type
making a
places
reference
rather than
to
drive
driving
10
10 hours
hours.
to Big Cedar?
Yes.
Yeah.
What is he talking about?
Big Cedar Lodge in Missouri. It's
It'd be
It's a lot
easier
on
to
the- on the-
fly in. Come on.
And so essentially in this email, he's talking about flying would be so much faster.
yes.
Yeah.
And then he ends with, I really want you. Correct?
Yes.
I do love you. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Hello, Lainey. Good to see you. Everybody should be happy
All
for
right. Now
Rabbit.
following up on this email
Grandson's
string,
coming in
do
to
you see
see
the email
her.
above that from you to the defendant?
Yes.
October 8th, 1998
That'd
at
be
8:51 a.m.
awesome.
Yes.
And so now if we go back to the time issue, you see your response is at 8:51 a.m. and his email was from 10:44 a.m.
Yes.
So the timing is not correct here.
Again, yes.
All right. Now in this email, you're talking about someone named Debbie being pregnant again.
Yes.
Is that correct? And was that someone that your husband, or your husband at this time? Who was Debbie to him?
That's his ex-wife.
Okay. And so is this something that was concerning to you that his ex was pregnant again?
Probably just that my current husband made a deal, made something out of it.
And then the email above that from the defendant to you, October 8th, 1998, 12:12 p.m. And is this the defendant essentially responding to your complaints about your husband?
Yes.
And he calls himself, if we go to the very first line of his response,
Mhm.
at the end, he says, I'm the Boy Scout.
Yeah.
Now, you see in this email, he uses the word funky. Was that a word that he would use, a word that you would use?
I think we both used it.
So it wouldn't have been weird for you to use it?
Funky, funky.
I think I used it because he used it. I think he introduced the word, and then we used it as a term that we both understood what it meant. Just the weirdness of a situation.
1.75.
So you kind of adopted it because he used it?
I think so.
All right. So now another email thread. Do you see the next email thread beginning on page 21? And so if we go to the beginning of that email thread, it's actually page 23. Is that correct?
Yes.
Oh, for the love.
Okay. So you have a pretty short email that you sent to him at the bottom of that page. This is October 8th of 1998, 4:21 p.m. I'm out of here.
Oh,
Talk to you
come
later.
on.
I do love you. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then there's a response from him to you Thursday, October 8th of 1998. The time on his email is 11:17 p.m. Do you see
Yes.
that?
Yes.
Yes, yes, we know.
And so in this email, he says, just sitting here drinking wine, thinking about this time last week. No issues, just great. Missing something. I miss you. A new one. I miss you. I want you. I do love you. Thinking about the last line in your note. Feelings the same. Can't
Yeah,
remember ask.
that does look
Kind of
creepy,
wondering how to
doesn't
put the
it?
crap in the office to bed. There's enough stuff being bounced around that should be able to find out where it actually originates. Suspect it's Mary. She's out tomorrow, so can talk to Rose, Midge, and Barry. If that proves to be the case, she'll have a bad day Monday. This is all tough enough without this stuff. Patience, time, and let it play out. I do love you. Was that accurate?
Yes.
All right. So he's sending an email where he's referring to sitting here drinking wine. So that's not something he would do at work, correct?
Right. Yes, I would not think so.
And he's talking about thinking about this time last week. And so this would be an email from October 8th. And so last week would be October 1st or 2nd-ish, correct?
Yes.
And so that's when you were together in Appleton, right?
Yes.
Now, does this email also refer to there being some office gossip?
Yes.
And is that something you were aware of, that within his office there was gossip about you two?
Yes.
Of course.
All right. So then looking at, now we're on the next page, or really the prior page, page 22 in the middle here. Is this your response to him? You're responding on October 9th at 6:35 a.m., correct?
Yes.
And again, you don't think that time is right because you don't think you would have been in work that early?
Yes, it's so he can hear everything that goes on.
Now, I'm not going to ask you to read this whole email, but do you make a reference in it to
It may be a little
you see
hard
the
of
line
hearing.
that says, couldn't you just see me pregnant and sleeping on the couch? What a friendly person I would be for all those months? Not.
Yes, I see that.
Okay. So are you talking about the possibility of a relationship with him where you had a child?
I think my husband at the time and I were talking about getting pregnant.
And then if we go to his response, October 9th, 1998, 9:36 a.m. Again, I'm not going to ask you to read the whole thing out loud, but do you see it's the fourth line down where he references Barry's comments about you being in the knee hole of my desk? Do you see that?
Yes.
So that's more of the office gossip about you two?
Yes.
All right. And then again, without having to read the whole email, he appears to respond to
He's
your
a little-
pregnancy comments.
He's a little
Towards the bottom here,
aggravated
he
with
says, pregnant on the couch, pretty picture.
his assistant. But
And then he ends with, I missed you last night, and sure it will be the same tonight, and then obsession.
Yes.
yes, that absolutely. It's not love, it's lust.
All right, so the email right above that. This is from Friday, October 9th, 1998, 8:14 a.m. You talk about learning anything with your charts last night. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, and then you have some more complaints about your husband.
Yes.
Oh, come on.
All right, and so then if you go to the
They
prior
will
page, this will
have
be
a
the end of
short
this email
break
thread
at some
that takes up
point.
page 21. Do you see that?
Yes.
All right, and so is it fair to say that these ending emails here,
Mm.
you continue your flirtatious emailing?
Yes.
So for instance, the email from you on Friday, October 9th, 1998 at 11:29 a.m., you make a reference to 3,000 lashes.
Yes.
And again, that's part of the flirtation, is that correct?
That's correct.
Oh,
Okay, and then as part of that, you make a reference in the October 9th, 1998 email, should I come over? Yeah, right. Do you see that? This is from 11:34 a.m.
Yes.
Okay, well, you can't come over because you're in St. Louis, right?
That's correct.
And he's in Kenosha, Pleasant Prairie.
Right.
All right, and so when you're on that topic, his email from Friday, October 9th, 1998, 1:57 p.m., he says, time, patience, and figure it out. Way to cool, and I think I could warm you up.
Yes.
well, it's also probably getting pretty cool
All right,
out
now
there
if you look at page
in
24, the email on that page,
Kenosha at this
is
time.
that just like a quick checking in email?
Yes.
And I know the date's kind of hard to see. Is that October 11th,
Yes.
98?
Mhm.
Okay, so
Mm.
let's then go to page 25.
This poor lady is not proud of
So do
the
you
way
recognize this
she
email from
acted when
Friday,
she
October
was
9th,
young
1998,
at all.
8:14 a.m.?
Yes.
This is the same email that we had previously talked about. So did you learn anything with your charts last night, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
But he has a new reply above that. Do you see that?
Yes.
And this is from October 11th of 1998 at 11:51 p.m.
Yes.
All right. And so now
Okay.
looking at the very end of this email,
Come on.
it says, okay, 12, time to hit the rack, almost literally sweet dreams. So it appears that his time, 11:51 p.m., that would be accurate because he's making a reference to 12 and time to go to sleep.
Yes.
Okay. Get to the
All
point.
right. So looking at the very next page,
Yes, they were.
That's a quick email from you to him.
Not
What time should I
uncommon.
return home? Do you see that?
Yes.
And it appears like this is some kind of email draft, maybe.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it does. Compose message.
All right. So now I want to go to the next string of emails. So if you go to
Yes,
page,
this lawyer is very
go to page
condescending.
28,
Condescending.
does that begin the next string of emails?
Yes.
Let's take a break.
Oh yeah, there you go. Judge is getting a little aggravated with this long chain of emails of a sordid love affair that really doesn't mean a whole lot. I think the judge is all right. Okay, we know he was a cheater. We know he was horrible. So let's get on with it. He's starting to go to sleep on this one. If the judge is falling asleep, you know that it's not doing good.
Article this email October 11th, 1998 at 11:10.
Yeah, judge is going to
Down,
probably
put
tell
it back
him,
on the record.
come on, pick it up.
Mark
Pick
B.
it up.
Jensen, the appearances are the same. Jury's back in the courtroom. The witness is still under oath. You can continue, Ms. McNeil.
So directing your attention to page 28 in front of you, the bottom of that page, the beginning of this email string. Do you see that first email from
Yes.
Mark Jensen? And then it's Sunday, October 11th, 1998 at 11:10 p.m.
Yes.
Now that email address, the from address, do you see it's mjensen@execpc.com?
Yes.
And then in terms of who it's sent to, there's a Naring D and Exner D, Peterson B, and then Jensen M@stiefel.com.
Oh, good
So
Lord.
Jensen M@stiefel.com, is that his work email address?
Yes.
And so the email address above, that's his home or personal email address?
Yes.
And so this email, October 11th, 1998 at 11:10 p.m., it references some article from thestreet.com.
Yes.
And so this appears to be a stock related email and article.
Yes.
And then he also sends this email to you at your work email address, right above that.
Yes.
And then you comment on Dan's email address looking like Xnerd.
Yes.
But then you say that you replied back to your home address. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so that would be the mjensen@execpc.
Yes.
Come on.
Now, looking at
Oh,
so we're going from
yes,
page
we
28 to page
are.
27. Do these emails on page 27 between yourself and the defendant, does that continue the flirtatious emails?
Yes.
So like, for instance, in the middle, October 12th, 1998, 12:51 p.m., he says, all free apply. I miss you. I want you. I do love you.
Yes.
I miss you. I want you. I really do love you.
And so then if we go to the email from the defendant to you on October 12th, 1998 at 1 p.m., he's sending you the hugs and kisses signs, right?
Yes.
Yes,
And then
he
he
poisons
refers to,
his
that's what I meant about
wife.
the computer. Would be nice, but it sucks at the same time, being there and not being there. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, and is that a reference to both of you being physically apart?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you knew what was going on with this killer. He's quite
Okay, so
the
now I'd like you
ladies'
to go to the
man.
next email string, and that begins on page 31. All right, so this email from yourself to the defendant, October 12th, 1998, 11:56 a.m. Subject, Chicago. Oakbrook will move on 10:23 and open for business 10:26. Okay, so what is that referring to?
It looks like another branch that's opening.
All right, and was that, at the time, was that good news for you and the defendant?
Yes.
Because you'd be able to meet up that weekend?
Correct. Yes.
So the
Oh,
weekend that is upcoming that you're going to meet up is
special.
10:23,
Okay.
and then the Monday is 10:26, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay, so far they haven't gotten to the point where they're
then his
proving that he
response
killed his
is
wife,
right
other
next
than
door,
he
somebody's
was
taking
a
care of us.
slimy
Yes.
shit and was screwing around.
So you see it
You know, we
continues
need
us,
to skip
ideas, yeah, a
forward
lot
a
of
little
ideas.
bit there, ladies and
Yes.
gentlemen. Give a thumbs up if you would like to. Need to skip through some of this because
So then looking at page 30, does this continue with the bantering emails back and forth?
Yes.
Okay, so once again, he's referring to 3,000 lashes. Think about it.
Yes.
And then you reply, you're an evil man, Jensen, to the core. Do you see that?
Yes.
And then he replies with,
not seeing any thumbs up, so we'll let this play.
okay, 6,000. You see that?
Let's
Yes.
see. Blue,
Okay, and then you talk about what you're going to wear right above that.
shorter dress.
Yes.
Shorter than a cocktail dress, and no, plan on keeping it long. Cool. I can skip a little bit here because
So the
this
subject of
is
these emails involve.
horrible.
I'm getting something potentially, yes.
So for instance, this email chain starts off with him sending an email to you. This is
Or just on occasion, blah, blah.
Yeah.
other emails on that page. He's clearly.
He's clearly flirting. Got it. And we all know this.
And then were you complaining about it to the defendant?
Yes.
Notes
so
from
that's
my
how the
second
topic
in
of this email sort of
Pittsburgh.
started?
He
Yes.
tricked me by changing
All
his
right, so now I
email
want you to
name.
look on
See,
page
everybody
36.
wants to be my friend, even when I dumped him like a cheap dog. Oh yeah, she's all around the block.
Do you know what you were referring to in that email?
It was just a reference to changing the subject, and how's yours was a way to say how's your day. There's some sexual innuendo there, but it was kind of a little bit of both.
Yeah, okay.
And then his response to you.
Feeling lonely and neglected. Yes, we know.
And then once again, he's referring to his penis when he says there wasn't a Boy Scout issue.
Yes.
Of course. Yes. He calls his
Yes.
penis a Boy Scout.
All right. And then following that up, page 39, the subject being Oakbrook, 10/12/98, 4:07 p.m. An email from you to the defendant, 18.7 miles door to door, and no one from the home office is going up to help them open the office. There you go. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. So
Well,
are you and the
and
defendant continuing to plan this
Andrea,
meetup?
more than likely, the reason they kill is because they don't see any way out of the situation. Who knows why a killer will kill? I don't know. Me personally, whenever I first met my wife, I was actually engaged. I did not pursue her one bit. My fiance at the time actually broke up with me, and it was probably about 6 months. Yeah, 6 months. About 6 months before I actually asked my wife to date me. I was not interested in getting in another relationship, but she was making it known that she was very, very interested in me. You might say she pursued me a little bit, but ended up going out and have been with her ever since. So I'm happy. That's going on 18 years. It'll be 19 years this year. It's pretty good.
Surrounding the Oakbrook office opening.
It looks that way, yes.
See, I'll tell you a little story. It's quite funny. First time I met my wife, I actually went to go fix her plumbing. It's a cool story. Bear with me. So the guy that I worked for, I was building PA cabinets. This is what musicians do. They find some other work. Were you using my cooking voice? No, I hardly talked. So as I was working in this wonderful wood shop of love, building PA cabinets and boxes and speaker cabinets and all this stuff, my boss tells me that he's rented out his house next door because he owned the house next door, and he says, "Why don't you come over this weekend and help her move in?" And I was like, "Well, I would love to, but as I told you before, my engagement party is tonight, so you're invited to come." He was just like, "Oh," so he ended up helping her move in, and then talked crap about me the whole time. And I still hadn't met her at this point. So while I was working, he comes over and says, "I got a call last night. She's going to be home. Can you go over there?" And she's got a faucet that's leaking. Sorry. She's got a faucet that's leaking. And so I went over, and she had this big black cat that was sitting up on top of the fridge. And I was like, okay, she's a total cat person. Whatever. Cat people, they can be a little strange sometimes. But she had this cool little Yorkshire Terrier. You know, little. Whenever I say little, he was about 15 pounds. He was a little beast. He was cool as all get out. And I walk over and I grabbed the cat and I put it over on my shoulder, and the cat just curled up and laid down across my shoulder and just went to purring like crazy. And I went and fixed the leaky faucet, and she came in and she goes, that cat doesn't like anybody. That she's sitting there on your shoulder. She's scared of everybody. I was like, oh, okay, well, it's an animal. It's cool. That cat's name was Sister Ray. She had a little white, what do you call it, spot on her neck, and she got the name Sister Ray. Sister Ray lived about 13 years. Yeah, that was pretty good. Sister Ray was a pretty cool cat. And yeah, a couple years later, I actually married her. So that was wonderful. And yes, people, especially men, do not get priority when with custody, especially in 98. That would have been, she would have gotten half everything. Yeah, the cat picked me. I will say. Cat picked me like crazy. Saw a sucker. I was like, I gotcha. But yeah, Sister Ray was a stray that my wife got while she was dating somebody in college. And I guess this cat was a stray. They got the cat, and whenever they broke up, she ended up keeping the cat. So yeah, Sister Ray was cool.
All right, so now directing your attention to the next email string beginning on page 41.
How many more emails? Good Lord.
Or kids. Guess I'm screwed. Doug B wouldn't be the same, but we raise all kinds of hell.
Okay.
Okay, so Kodak's a dog.
Yes.
And then who is Doug B?
It was a friend of his, Doug Brandt.
And did you come to know Doug Brandt eventually?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And was Doug Brandt married to anyone?
Yes.
Do you know his wife's name?
I believe it was Robin, but I can't swear to that.
So your recollection was Robin was his wife's name?
Yes.
Robin.
And so were these friends
Right.
of the defendants?
Yes.
And so he suggested this friend Doug if you couldn't make it?
Yes.
And the dog too?
Yeah.
All right, so how do you respond to that?
It's good to know I'm so easily replaced.
And he says?
Whoa, didn't say you could be easily replaced. Couldn't be replaced. Wouldn't be the same, and I'd be screwed. Or not, as the case may be.
Those
All right,
words
so
get a
then
little
what do you
spicy
say?
because
So let's say I have until the end of the year to decide one way or the other, and then in January you can send in the deposit if I'm still in. Bill?
so this is 1998, and now in November, December, in about 3 months, the wife will be dead. In 3 months, the wife will be dead. So we're moving in on closer to the time that he was supposed to kill her.
Okay, so you are actually seriously considering doing this.
Yes.
And was it your impression or belief that the defendant was also seriously considering doing this?
Yes.
And so then you suggest that if you're in January, he can book it.
Yes.
So end of the year to decide.
Right.
So that would be
Oh.
the end of 1998.
Yes.
So time's pressing.
How does he respond?
Fair enough, but no deadline on deciding. Whatever time it needs to be figured out.
Okay, and how do you respond to that?
And do you
Oh, thank you, Lainey. I appreciate that. I've always been like good to animals. I mean, I'm not too particular with cats. I really don't like cats, but I'm not a mean person to animals. I don't like that. So, you know, animals are really cool, and they all have unique personalities, you know, just like humans. You know, Sister Ray could be a bit of a pain, but you know, she's a cat. I mean, I had a buddy of mine that had this cool cat that he would bowl the cat across the room because the cat just loved it. So he'd grab the cat and just slide it across the room, and the cat would just come running right back and go for his hand again, and he'd do it over and over again. And I saw that. I was like, you know what? Cats are pretty damn neat. They got definitely a unique personality. We thought because she was so old that she had basically run off and died at one point in time. She was gone for about 3 months, and she came back, and was looking a little skinnier and a little beat up, but she was still around for about another 4 years after that. She was a killer. She would go and find all kinds of creatures and bring them inside and kill
Have
them
it all
and
figured out?
torture them.
What are you trying to find out?
If he's planning on leaving his wife, I think.
So how does he respond to that?
I'm thinking so, barring seeing a bunch of disgusting habits I couldn't live with, but then you'd have a hard time topping the boys with all I've taught them. And if it just keeps getting better, some details to be worked out. But then those are just the details, not the big issue.
An issue is way off to the side here.
Yep.
Okay, you respond.
It was the details I was wondering about. Disgusting habits, huh?
Okay, so you appear to be inquiring what he is going to do about his details. Correct?
Yes.
And so the big issue being he's married.
Right.
And he's not giving you a response on what he's going to do.
Right.
Well,
okay, so then how does he respond to that?
Murphy spins on details. Details are just noise in the bigger picture. And yep, disgusting.
Okay, and so now you continue to ask.
And you plan on dealing with the details how? What kind of disgusting?
He replies.
One at a time.
You reply.
Evasive little shit.
He wasn't answering your questions.
Right.
Okay, then what does he say to that?
Ooh, she went to lunch and came back nasty. Not trying to be evasive. What exactly are you looking for? We can talk about the details. Smile. You're cute when you smile. And other things.
mm-hmm.
You reply.
I didn't come back nasty. I'm usually like this. Okay, we'll discuss the details. I'm cute when I smile. Not trying to suck up, are you?
Yes, he's totally trying to suck up.
Okay, then he says.
Okay, you're cute when you try to burp.
And you say,
Nice way to avoid the subject. You're worse than me.
okay, so your impression still is he's not answering your question.
Right.
What he's going to do about his details. Okay, and so his reply to that.
Okay, ask me about a detail. I'm not avoiding. You're not asking. I'm supposed to guess the question. Okay, I'll be Karnak.
Okay, your reply.
You asked me if I wanted to run off with you somewhere. I'd love to, but there are issues we have to deal with. I'm not sure how I'll deal with my issue, thus the deadlines and agreements for any backing out that might be necessary. Do you know how you'll deal with your issues? Details, whatever.
Okay, and so at this point in time,
See?
mid-October of 1998,
Sounds like he's
you were not
talking
sure that you wanted
about
to divorce your husband.
possibly
Right.
getting a
Okay,
divorce.
and so that's why you don't want to make a firm commitment at this time.
Right.
And you set a deadline for yourself and for the defendant of the end of the year.
Right.
Okay, and so what is his reply?
Our deadlines and agreement necessary, not trying to pin anything down, and I got my ticket punched. Had that conversation, heard the answers. We're just hanging out for lack of one of us making a decision. Just need to decide what to do or make an announcement.
What did
So-
you understand him to be saying there?
It sounded like he had talked to his wife, and by him getting his ticket punched, that she probably said she wasn't in love with him anymore.
Well, that brings it a little bit closer. At least that's the way she's reading it. Ooh, let's find out.
And that they were just staying together for convenience at this point.
Oh,
So you
interesting.
believe he's talking about his relationship with his wife.
Yes.
Okay, then your response?
Okay. Deadlines and agreements are necessary because I don't want to let you down.
His response?
Why?
Your response?
I do love you.
His response?
I do love you too.
Your response?
I know. Thank you.
And then finally his response?
Don't forget.
Yeah, so basically he said, I plan on, if I was reading this kind of email, somebody was sending this to me, I would read it as, okay, go get some coffee, Andrea. That's fine. It sounds to me like he's wanting her to commit to breaking a commitment. And that's what he's planning on doing, is breaking a commitment. It could be that that's just what he's typing in there. We don't know. We weren't there. But he was arrested, charged, and convicted
Now moving up to the
of
next
killing
page.
his wife.
Your response?
Never.
His response?
Let me down. How?
Your response?
By getting our hopes up and then backing out.
Oh, imagine that.
His response?
Either way, it'll be an always thing. You have to do what's right for you. I'll just be hanging out. Do you realize that you never use the word now, even in past ease?
Do you know what he's talking about there?
Past tenses.
I think we had an agreement that if I decided I was going to leave my husband, I would say now. And it would be like a code word or something.
And what he told you is that it's an always thing. He'll just be hanging out,
Yes.
basically waiting for you to do what's right for you.
Yes.
Okay, so what do you say to that?
What would change if I did? And I really haven't had a need for it. Now have I?
Okay, and then now some joke about you putting the word now in there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so here, your response to him at 1:13 p.m., what do you say?
Wondered if you'd catch it. Very good, but you haven't answered my question.
And how does he respond to that?
What would change? Some things. Still respectful of messing with your deal rather than thinking all about the fun stuff. Start planning the fun stuff. Wouldn't be letting 3, 4, 6 weeks go by. Hasn't been a problem lately, though.
Mm-hmm. So he's trying to get some commitment from her, and it doesn't sound like she
All right,
wants
so
to
the next email
commit
would be on
to
page 51.
being together with him.
And in that email from October 19th, do you see a reference to Dawn? How
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Was that Dawn Cooper?
Yes.
Was she your friend?
Yes.
Where did she work?
She worked at Seafool in the same office that I did.
Okay, so now moving on to the next email. This would be page 52. It's kind of hard to see the date. Are you able to read that, the date there?
Yes.
And what is the date?
The 20th of October?
And that's for both of them?
Yes.
All right, so in this email, are you essentially talking about your husband, Mark Greenman?
Okay, what does it say? Didn't bring it up. All smiles and friendliness, but not too friendly. If you get my meaning, very talkative. Noticed it kept his distance. I don't know what he's thinking, and since he won't talk to me, I can only imagine pity. I don't seem to care much anymore. 6 years, I really thought I had it in me to love him forever. Didn't realize how selfish he was. She's not happy in her marriage at all. Man. Hope is gone. Part of me has slowly been fading away in these last few months, and this weekend just completely killed it, I think. I don't care if he ever touches me again. Hell, I'd prefer it, and I don't really enjoy his company anymore either. I'd rather be left alone to do my thing than have him around. It doesn't even bother me when he's getting home. A year ago, it was a major point of contention. I was always harping on him about how late he was. More time I have to myself, and that's just fine with her. Jeez.
Yes.
She is an unhappy person.
Okay, so that's what most of the email's about?
Yes.
All right, now at the end of the email.
Now just imagine, she's currently married to another man. This will be her third marriage that she's in. So her first marriage, first her engagement, messing around with another guy, broke that off. Then she got hooked up with this guy, married him because it was on again, off again. And then she got rid of him, divorced him, and married Mark, the guy that's this killer. Now she's married again. This woman moves around quite a bit. For a bearded lady, she does really well for herself. She must be magic.
You say, looking forward to Friday. Smiling and laughing will be good for me. Some time off from the tension, eh? Talk to you soon. I do love you.
Yes.
Okay. So this being October 20th of 1998, that Friday would be the Chicago trip, right?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes.
All right. So the next string of emails directing your attention to page 54.
Yeah, this doesn't make her too happy. She knows the kind of person that
All right,
she
so you see
was.
that email from
She
you,
may
this
not
would
be
be
that
the
kind of
19th
person
Of
anymore.
October, subject he called.
Yes.
But just imagine how, if her now husband sees this, how it's going to make him feel.
Okay. So nice as can be, he's going to Denver the 12th of November,
Especially if they hadn't been getting some action in a while.
which probably put him in a good mood. So now he's getting over being upset with me. I'm not sure where to go from here. Who were you talking about?
My husband at the time.
Okay. So I'm not sure where to go from here. What do you mean by that?
Probably just having mixed emotions about whether I want to stay with him or leave him.
And he apparently has a trip the 12th of November.
Yes.
Okay. And you see this email from the defendant to you, the reply, BC question mark, just a thought. Did you smile? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. BC, was he referring to Big Cedar?
Yes.
And then once again, him emailing you now October 25th, 5:02 p.m. So what do you think? Is that correct?
Yes.
Man,
Reply that
oh
you're thinking
man.
about it.
Yes.
And he replies, let me know. I'll see if I can get the HM cabin again. I want you. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you know what the reference to HM cabin was?
I'm not sure. I think it might have stood for honeymoon cabin.
All right. So now moving up that page, talking about days and the timing of it.
Right.
Yeah. Come on, this is dragging on. October 20th.
All right, so now
they
I'm gonna direct your
haven't
attention to the
even
top of page
gone but a
59.
couple of days. Come on, get closer to the
Page 67.
time here. There's 6 days have gone by. Yes, they're emailing a lot. Good
He asked me if there was
Lord.
someone else, if I still wanted to be married. and what was
October
going on with me.
27th, another
At
day
5:30
has
a.m.
gone
and have a
by.
voice. I was hardly in any shape to battle with him, but I did realize I need to give this a fair shot or get the hell out. I've decided to give it a fair shot first. The 6-year,
Did you ever bring up an
She's
individual
horrible.
who worked in Colorado?
I believe so, yes.
And who was that person?
His name is Jock Joseph.
Did you actually have sex with that person?
No, not to the best of my knowledge.
Okay, but had you seen him naked?
Yes,
And had he been trying to have sex with you?
yes.
And did the defendant ask you about his penis? This man's penis?
I believe so, yes.
And when you refer to these discussions being high level, can you describe?
So
what
all
you mean
this
about
was
these
just to get
discussions?
to the penis.
It would just be, just kind of a one question at a time kind of thing. We'd be having a conversation maybe about the fact that, I'd gone out with this guy and yes, we had sex. And then there would be a question about it and then we'd move on. And then later he'd come back to it and ask another question about it. And so it wasn't, it didn't seem like a big deal at the time. It was just kind of a weird question in the middle of a conversation.
And so that was at the beginning.
Mhm.
And so as the years progressed in your relationship, did that change?
Yes.
Okay. Now, before we move on to that, I just want to clarify the time frame of this encounter you would have had with John Jock Joseph. Do you recall what that time frame would have been?
I know it was a branch managers meeting. So it was probably about a year prior to the branch managers meeting that we were having in 98. So probably sometime in 97.
Jeez.
Okay, so then as time progressed in terms of your relationship with the defendant, so I'm talking now 1999, 2000, 2001,
Mhm.
did he begin asking you extremely detailed questions about your prior sexual partners?
Yes.
And did he specifically ask for each of your partners about their penises?
Yes.
And did he ask you to describe their penises in detail?
Yes.
Would that include things like length,
Yes.
width?
Yes.
Girth.
And then would he also ask you in detail about sexual encounters that you had had with the prior partners?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, they matched up well. They got some serious issues.
So I've showed you what has been marked as States Exhibit number 22. Do you see handwriting on that page?
Yes.
Do you recognize whose handwriting that is?
Yes.
Whose handwriting is it?
It's the defendant's, Mark's.
And then if you page through this document is quite a few pages. So I'm not asking you to read every page to yourself or out loud or anything like that. I'm just asking you to page through the document.
All about the hunt. Oh, yeah. Oh, come on, defense. Get your head out of the backside of your skirt. You might be able to answer a serious question. Mm, 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 mm.
Okay, so now that you've had a chance to page through that document, does that appear to be in the defendant's handwriting, detailed notes about the sexual encounters you had told him about?
Yes.
And that very first page, does that have a note about John Jock Joseph?
Yes.
Now, when you were having these conversations, were you aware that the defendant was taking notes?
No.
See, now that's a serious question there. So, me being Mel, would I ask those questions to the woman that I'm with or were with? Me personally, no. No, I don't. Like with my wife, we discuss past relationships, but we never got into the whole sexual part of that. And she asked me, how many girls? I was like, oh, well, I toured for quite a long time, so a lot. But, that's not who I'm with. And she goes, well, I've been with a few. I was like, I figured, but that's not where we're at. We're here. It's you and me. I enjoy your company. Yes. So, no, I would not. I don't really worry about it. I mean, I guess if I was insecure, maybe I would ask that kind of question. I just really don't care. I guess, I do fine. She does fine. So no, I never would ask that question. So to me, it would be a little bit odd if she came to me and said, so what was the shape of it? Was it shaven? Was it did it have a little something? I don't know what kind of questions she would ask. I would find those a little bit odd, but yeah. General questions, yeah. Like, what do you like?
And so are you saying that he was not face to face with you?
Correct.
So it was only at a later time that you discovered that these notes existed?
Yes.
Exactly.
Now,
'Cause they
these are
was
extraordinarily
with you
unusual
at that time.
conversations. Yes.
Past is
And
past.
to be clear, you are not the person who brought up this topic.
Correct.
Okay. It was the defendant asking you these questions.
Yes.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't find her too credible. I think that she would lie.
Now, when you were paging through this document, did you see pages that had actual like hand drawings on them?
Yes.
Okay. And once again,
Now, maybe he just has a fascination with penises. I'm sure in prison he's seen plenty of them.
and were you aware that this was occurring, that these drawings were being made?
No.
So I want you to look at the second to last page of the document. This is State's Exhibit 22.
Now, I know that ladies talk. Now, I'm not stupid. I know that ladies talk. So, but they generally won't say that to men because it just seems improper, and you don't want to embarrass the guy if he's a little on the short side or less girthy side. You don't want to really embarrass him and say, well, but it's a possibility that he doesn't. It is a big possibility. Yes. That's what I think it is.
Do you see that those drawings appear to be on Stiefel and Nicholas, like a notepad?
Yes.
And that notepad actually has your name on it. Correct?
Yes.
So,
And I would find it odd talking with another guy about my current partner, whenever that might be. And that would just be sort of like, I would talk probably more about something odd, like, that she's got one stray eye or something like that. I would probably note that more than I would anything else about her. I might comment that she has large breasts or small breasts, but I wouldn't be, detailed of, anything more than that. But yes, ladies do talk. Men generally are just like, yeah, she's pretty. She's really good in bed or something of that sort, but we just wouldn't get into detail. I mean, unless she's putting herself out there in that way, then they might.
So that's your printed name. It's not handwritten. It's like how the notepad
Yes.
was printed. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And in contrast, when you page through other pages of this document, they're Stiefel Nicholas notepads, correct?
Yes.
But it has the defendant's name on them.
Yes.
Now, if you had been aware that notes were being taken regarding these conversations, would you have been okay with that?
No.
Okay. She does have a little bit of a peach fuzz there on the side of her face,
And
though.
with any of these prior relationships you've had, have you ever been questioned in this way about your sexual partners?
No.
Or about the penises of your sexual partners?
No.
Okay, so now I want to go back to the time of the Blueprint Conference, and right after the Blueprint Conference had happened. What happened between yourself and your then husband, Mark Riemann, after the Blueprint Conference?
In relation to what?
What happened to your relationship?
Oh, well, we got through Christmas
no
and then it
idea.
kind of fell apart. And then in January I left and we got into a big fight and I left and never went back.
Oh,
And again, in terms of your relationship with the defendant, you continue to be in touch with him continuously.
Yes.
Now, did you hear from the defendant at all on the day that his wife died?
I think so. I think I talked to him. Well,
at least the next day after his boss got the call that's what had happened. I think I tried reaching out to him. He may have returned my call.
Did the defendant call you on the day his wife died?
I think so, but I don't remember exactly.
Okay, would it refresh your recollection to review a transcript?
Yes.
Okay, so this would be the transcript. I believe this is January 23rd and page 26.
What year is that?
January 23rd, 2008.
Thank you.
And then page 26, line 9. So I'm going to show you this and then just ask you if it refreshes your
Okay.
recollection.
Thanks.
So this was the hearing in 2008.
So did the defendant call you on the day his wife died?
Yes.
And is that how you learned that his wife had died?
No, I heard it from my boss.
So are you saying the phone call was just earlier,
No,
but he didn't tell you?
no, my boss heard about it first thing in the morning, and then I think I talked to him later in the day.
So the phone conversation that you are being questioned about, you're saying it was after his wife was dead.
Yes,
Okay, had just died.
the night before, I think. Yeah.
So you've testified that a big argument occurred with your then husband in January.
Yes,
And did you in fact leave him or his household or your shared household on January 8th of 1999?
I believe that was the date. Yes.
And during this time period now, moving to January of 1999, did you at that point come to Wisconsin, come to Pleasant Prairie, and visit the defendant at his house?
Yes, I believe I came one or two, well, at least 2 weekends, I think.
The defendant's and Julie's child, David, did he have a birthday in January?
Yes.
That January of 1999, was there a birthday celebration for him?
Yes.
Did you attend?
Yes.
Now, on these occasions, as early as January of 1999, when you came to Wisconsin, did you stay over at the Jensen residence?
Yes.
And did you have sexual relations with the defendant on those occasions?
Yes.
In his bedroom?
Yes.
So let me ask, maybe you ladies could answer this. What would be the appropriate time of mourning the loss of someone that you clearly don't love anymore and they don't love you, that you were planning on divorcing? What would be that mourning time? Would it be a couple weeks, a couple months, a couple years, a couple decades? Does everybody process it the same? I know that for me, something was to happen to my wife. I mean, she's already told like a lot of her girlfriends, like, you know, go check on, all her girlfriends are married also. Like, go check in on him, make sure that, you know, because he's sort of a recluse, and not that I think he would do anything to hurt himself, but, you know, it would be, I don't know how I would react. I mean, I really don't. Hopefully I don't have to cross that bridge, but yeah, I don't know, Andrea. I really don't. It could be, I mean, geez, I don't know. It's hard to tell. I guess everybody would be a little bit different. 6 months. Yeah. That's rough.
Now, at what point did you actually move to Wisconsin?
I moved to Wisconsin in March.
And
I mean, he was clearly involved with this woman. He felt something for her. And it seemed like he was lost feeling for his wife at the time. So, I mean, it's just, well, if he loved her, yeah, at least a year. But what if he met somebody in 6 months? You know, who knows?
you put the time frame around end of March, early April of
I
1999?
think it was later in March.
And did you plan ahead that move in February by getting a post office box?
I did.
Now, when you moved to Wisconsin, did you move to the Jensen residence or somewhere else?
I rented an apartment in Kenosha.
Now, at the end of March of 1999, did you get $12,000 from the defendant?
I did.
Overruled.
I did, sorry, Bridget. And your answer to that was?
Yes.
And what was that for?
He gave me some money to help pay some bills.
And you were also moving to Wisconsin during that time period?
Yes.
So when did you leave Stiefel Nicholas?
I think I left in February of 99.
So you did not work for Stiefel Nicholas in Wisconsin?
Correct.
You started other jobs in Wisconsin.
Yes.
Now, upon leaving Mark Freeman, did you commence divorce proceedings?
Yes.
And when was your divorce finalized?
The end of March.
End of March of 1999?
Wow.
So at least that was my last court date.
So quite quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
No kids makes divorce go
When did you
quicker.
actually move in with the defendant into his residence or shared residence?
That would have been, I think, like around November of 99.
So almost a year
And in that
later,
time
after
period,
his
did you
wife
move into the
died.
residence in Pleasant Prairie?
No.
Where did you move into?
It was another house that he had moved into in Kenosha.
Was it a bigger house, a nicer house?
Objection
bigger.
relevant.
What's that?
I said objection relevant. Sorry, Judge.
Ask another question. Let's move on.
So when you moved in with the defendant, were his children?
Oh, Obscure said if she went before him, she wanted him to have someone. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my wife said that too. And I said the same thing to my wife. I was like, if something were to happen to me, please do not spend a long time mourning me. Get out there and, live life. Go visit the places that we were planning on visiting and go enjoy yourself. Find somebody and enjoy the rest of your life. If that's what you want to do, maybe you don't want to. Maybe you think that us men are complete pains in the asses. Sorry about that. So, yes, I told my wife, move on. There's, but it's up to her. At that point, I'm not gonna be looking over her shoulder.
Children that he had with Julie Jensen, were they living there too?
Yes.
So that's David and Douglas?
Yes.
Did the defendant use a nickname for David?
He called him his buddy.
At some point, did you become engaged to the defendant?
Yes.
When was that?
When was that? That was February. I can't think of the year.
Would it have been around 2001?
Yeah, 2001. That sounds right.
Okay, so
Wow.
was it before he was charged with a crime?
Yes.
Is that true? Seen more men need women. I don't know if we're more social and they don't get someone or as quick. See, I don't know if that's true or not. It could be, or it may be that we don't go out looking a lot of times. I don't know if I would go looking for somebody if I lost my wife. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to tell.
So do you recall when the defendant was charged with this crime?
Yes.
And was that
I think that was 2002.
Okay, March of 2002?
Yeah, I think we got engaged right before that. So I think we got engaged in February of 2002.
Mhm.
And did you marry the defendant?
Yes.
When did you marry him?
2004.
Now, you're not still married to the defendant,
I am
correct?
not.
Did you initiate divorce proceedings?
Yes.
And was that approximately 2009?
Yes.
And your last name is Brooks now?
Yes.
So you're remarried?
I am remarried.
Did you have a child with the defendant?
I did.
And he would be 18 now?
Yes.
Oh, so he has a child with her.
So I'd like to talk a few questions about the time period when you were married to the defendant.
Objection relevance.
Overrule. Go ahead.
During that time period, did you often see the defendant on the computer?
Yes.
And based upon what you were able to observe, did the defendant seem to be someone who was skilled with computers?
Yes.
Okay. For instance, did he make his own computer?
Yes.
Do you know when he did that, when he built his own computer?
That would have been 2005, 2006, somewhere in there.
Now, in terms of the defendant's, the computer, I guess, in your household, during the time period you were together, was that still a desktop computer?
Yes.
And in terms of the defendant's habits of going on that computer, was he more of a morning person or going on late at night, or was there no habit with that in that regard?
When he was home at night, he was on it and he'd be up late on the computer.
Okay, and so what is late? What do you mean by late?
1, 2 in the morning.
After midnight?
Yes.
He might have been live streaming. I'm not up until 1 or 2 in the morning. So how did she get engaged? 3 times and married 3. Okay. How did she get engaged? Okay. So she was engaged to a gentleman whenever these two first met. Whenever she met Jensen, she was engaged. and it wasn't working out, so she dumped him. And she had another guy on the side besides Jensen. So she's got a couple other people. So she's playing around. She's got her what would you say? Her poker in the fire in many different places. And she's dating a guy. They're engaged. She's got another guy that she's sort of seen off and on. And then she's got this gentleman right here that's being accused of murdering his wife. So she broke off the engagement. And the guy that she was seeing off and on, she married him because this guy is still married. And then whenever she married this guy, she wasn't happy, still seeing him. His wife dies. Then she marries Jensen. And then she divorced Jensen, which is what they're working on. And she's remarried since then. She's got a new last name. Yes. She
So, Judge, I think
is
there's one more thing I
a
have to do with
cow.
this direct examination, which involves playing a disc. So is that something that we could start up again with tomorrow?
How long is it?
It would probably be about, I would say maybe like 10 minutes.
Let's wait till tomorrow. It's still Monday for me, folks. So.
There we
But the
go.
good thing, tomorrow's Wednesday already. So
There
have a good
you
evening.
go.
Don't talk about the case. See you at 8:30. Okay. Thank you.
All right. So that's all we have for this one here. That's just great. So that's day 4. And have we found anything else new other than she's got a penchant for not sticking with men for very long. It was pretty crazy. Oh, sorry to hear that. Took early retirement. Sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that. They both don't seem the slightest bit embarrassed. Yes, this judge, I agree, Crystal. This judge is a very well. I'd let Mr. Jensen, Mark Jensen, explain what he is. He could probably draw up that judge. I'm sure that he's drawing pictures in his little notebook right now. I don't know if he has enough pages to show how big that judge is in his mind. He's probably filled a notebook just with veins. I sort of feel bad for the judge. I really do, because he's sort of stuck with, and I could be wrong in this, but from what I understand, another judge basically said some things didn't look quite right in this trial. And this is a retrial. So he's getting basically a second chance to rehear all of the evidence. What, over 2 decades later? Almost 2 decades later. So it's, this is pretty harsh. For this guy might be able to have his opportunity to get out of jail after spending time. Did he do it? I don't know. Let's see what our wonderful audience here has said. And end this poll here, and let's see what we've got. Make sure that you hit that like and subscribe. Also, link up over there on Linktree and see where we're at. So, according to this, need more information? 60% wins out. Is he guilty? 30% say yes. 10% say no. That's insane. 10 wonderful votes on this. I don't know. I'm still up in the air. I haven't heard the defense's case, but the defense has been knocking down quite a bit of what this prosecution's bringing. And everybody give some love and celebration to Rabbit. Rabbit's grandson's coming to see her at the end of the week. Gonna spend a wonderful weekend with Grandma. Oh man, that is wonderful. That really is. I loved visiting my grandparents. My grandparents were so cool. My grandfather, he was the first one in his family to go to college. And my grandmother, she was a postmaster. So she ran the little post office in her town. So everybody knew who my grandfather was. Everybody knew who my grandmother was. My grandmother was such a wonderful cook that people would come from miles around just to sit down and have dinner or lunch with my grandmother because she was just a great cook. And we're not talking, this fancy chef stuff. We're talking good Southern cooking. So, well, thank you very much, Crystal. I appreciate it. But yeah, it's my grandmother was pretty awesome, and she outlived my grandfather. My grandfather fought in World War II. And the stories I didn't get whenever I was a kid. He wouldn't talk about it as I got older. He talked about it a little bit more, and he went through some crap. He was in the South Pacific, yeah. So he was fighting the Japanese on that front. So he was on a ship that got sunk twice and picked up. He finally got picked up by like a lifeboat from another ship. It's crazy, but that was many, many, many years ago. And of course, as he got older, the health tends to fail, and whenever he passed, my grandmother, she was still up and about doing her thing, and my aunt was in sort of a rush to basically get control of everything and then put my grandmother into a home, and my grandmother couldn't abide by that. She just did not stick around for very long after that, which was really sad. But missed my grandma. She was pretty awesome. So, it's really, really nice to hear a man speak without constant profanity. I have to bite my tongue. I don't have to. I don't feel like it depends on the situation. See, if you see some of my vids, you might hear me get a little bit profane, but generally it's not always necessary. It's not always necessary, but there's times that I will say things that are probably not appropriate. They could probably be considered misogynistic or racist or homophobic or some crap like that. I don't really worry about it. I just speak what I see and try to keep it clean. Try to, I'm not always good. So if I break ranks sometime and you hear me cussing and swearing, is probably with good reason. But anyhow, remember, hit that like, hit that subscribe, go over to Rumble, join it in over there. Some boys know no other words. Well, thank you, Rabbit. I appreciate it. And yes, and that's usually what it is. Especially whenever we're around other men, and having a conversation with other men, we may tend to get our language a little spicy. Now, I just don't find it always necessary, and there's other words that you can use that, can still get the point across without without saying it. Now, if you ever see me working in a shop and I hit my hand on something or smash my knee into something, I'll probably let the profanity roll off my tongue like a sailor that has never been anywhere but sea. But I saw you over, John Andrea. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. It was really good seeing good logic. That was really good. You need some words are sentence enhancers. Sentence enhancers. Yeah, I guess that could be. Sometimes you do have to effing say a little more than you really wanted to. Yes. I was in the army also, and I learned quite a few new words. You know, it would not be uncommon whenever I was working in the shop to have another mechanic around and say something like, "That guy is a real fucktard." So there you go. Yes, I do use dirty language. I'm not completely clean. So yes, Joe Good Logic. He's go and give him some support and some love because his channel has been shut down for a little bit. He's in a waiting pattern. So we don't like that. But it's only because of what he might have been having going on his stream. I didn't get a chance to catch it because my sorry ass was over here doing other things. Go to Eagles or Flyers game, I sound like a sailor. Well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So let me see. That'd be Pittsburgh, right? Pittsburgh, Philadelphia had a guitar player that moved here to Georgia. The whole band, almost all of the guys were from, let's see, one of them was from Cherry Hill, the other one was from Connecticut, and the other one was from Pittsburgh. Yeah. He was a big Pittsburgh fan. That's the Steelers. Where's the Eagles from? Where is that? Both Philly? Okay. I thought so. Yeah. He's a really good guitar player. He actually moved back there. I think he's gotten married. He may still be out there playing. Really good guitar player. But if you saw him, he looked a lot like what was the guy from Law and Order? I'm trying to think. The old guy from Law and Order was also in the movie with Baby. Damn it, I forget the name of it. Dirty Dancing. It was the father in Dirty Dancing. This is what this guy looked like a younger version of him. It's pretty comical. Yeah. You're near Cherry Hill. Excellent. Very cool. Humpty-doo Oz. There you go. See, we've got you guys just all over the place. Gotta love our Aussies. It's a really good thing. Gotta love our Australians, our New Zealanders. You have to give it for somebody that lives in a country that, according to some people on the internet, say does not exist. Also, Phillies fan, but baseball, no cursing. It's a different atmosphere. Yeah, generally it is. My grandfather, in his younger days, was a really good pitcher, and after he got back from military, serving his time, he went to go pitch with farm leagues, and he actually got an offer to be for a minor league for the Cardinals, St. Louis Cardinals, and he turned it down. He turned it down, which was probably a wise thing. It was probably a very wise thing at the time. So whenever he got that offer, it wasn't going to pay him a whole lot of money. And my grandfather made a really good living. So Anyhow, me, I don't really get into. I'm not a big football fan. Not a really big baseball fan. I usually will watch college ball. Um, I don't know. I have a hard time just because I've moved around so much and because I was on tour for so long that I never really stopped to pay attention to any particular football team. Growing up, loved the Dallas Cowboys, the Chicago Bears, because you had the Bears. But another one of my favorites was the Raiders, and that was when I was a kid. I mean, we're talking, before I hit puberty. Once I hit puberty, man, women were more important than football. At that point, I was more into chasing the ladies than worrying about that. I got more into skateboarding. That's whenever you had these horrible banana boards. I don't know. Now, some of you might remember that if you're old enough. The banana boards weren't these big, fat, wide boards. They were these little, skinny boards. And you barely get them to lean and turn. Now, this is really cool right here, Tweety. Yes. American football is ridiculously dangerous, but I will tell you, rugby's fun to watch. I actually watched Sevens in Las Vegas. A buddy of mine that was from a little town outside of Leeds, and so he was like, "Wife and I are going. Why don't you bring your wife? We'll go and we'll watch the rugby sevens." And that was so much fun. We had such a great time. Unlike rugby and Aussie rules, yeah, absolutely. Rugby is rough. I'll tell you about Frank sometime. Yeah, Frank was a rugby player, and I used to tease him about his wife. Now, it was before they got married. He pizza joint that I was delivering pizzas at. Frank got a job working there, working college, just like easy paying thing. And one of his buddies got a job there too. And so I started teasing Frank, and guy talk kind of thing. I turned to him and I said, "Well, one day your girlfriend's gonna say, 'Spank me, daddy, spank me,' and just know who taught her that." Well, he thought that was funny. He was like, "Yeah, okay, my girl's sweet." So what I did is I got his friend Brian to tell her to say that to him. Yep, Brian got her to say that to him. He wanted to kill me because he thought that I taught her to say that. Oh, yeah. I yeah, a little embarrassing, but I actually got to see Frank at one of my wife's friends' weddings. Ran into Frank. Frank was, 6'7", an easy 280 pounds. I mean, this guy's all muscle too. Big guy. He was perfect for rugby. And I ran into him, and he told me that, yeah, he wanted to kill me after that. But Brian, his friend, told him, no, he told me to get her to say that. She had no idea. It was quite funny. And so, yeah, actually ran into him at that wedding, and he's a geologist now, but really good guy. Not the same dude. Anyhow, well, it is hit about 11:30 here in Atlanta, Georgia. The weather is a little chilly, so I'm going to go warm my body with my lovely wife, and I'm going to hope that everybody just reaches over, gently caresses that like button. Make sure that you're subscribed. Make sure you go over to Rumble and subscribe over there. And, just enjoy life. It's a good thing. We've got good stuff happening. I will not be streaming this weekend, probably starting Friday. And also, we've got Rabbit. Congratulations, Rabbit. Her grandson is coming into town, going to be spending time with Grandma this weekend. So Rabbit's got that coming up. So if you don't see Rabbit on here, you'll know why. You'll know why, because Rabbit's going to be enjoying time with her grandson. That's such a wonderful thing. Well, and I do appreciate all of you. I really do. Thank you very much for coming in and being here to enjoy this wild ride. Thank you very much. And with that, I will leave you with my lovely turtles. Au revoir.
Exótica.